Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and are you ready to go there and back again into Middle Earth? Because we are here at the penultimate film of the trilogy. We are here at the Two Towers, back with the Lord of the Rings retrospective, leading up to Rings of Power. I'm the Tide Turner, Travis Dale, and I'm joined by...
I am Graham Kirklin Patzer.
I'm the rider of Rohan, Dylan Muss.
I'm the Helm's Deep of Deeps, Taylor Field.
I love it.
Do you love it? Is
I
that
do.
one to
I really
love?
do. It's always like on pattern with Taylor. The Field of Fields, the List of
Deep
Lists.
Deep.
I think that was one of them.
The ranking of rankings.
The ranking of
yeah.
rankings.
That's
yes.
the one.
Even his name, Field the Fields, right? It's just, it's something. But you know what's something here? Is the Two Towers. So yes, we are reviewing this. You can go back last week. I had a nice 4-hour Fellowship of the Ring review. But here we are. We're back. We're talking about the second of the trilogy. Obviously, again, directed by Peter Jackson. You all know the kerfuffle. You know they won a lot of Oscars for these movies, made a lot of money, all this good stuff. But you don't know our thoughts. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to give those after we give plugs. Not sure what will be happening right now. But the next few weeks, we got Andor, She-Hulk, Rings of Power, House of Dragon, D23 coming up, Gamescom. There's just like a whole plethora of geek stuff going on. So Taylor, when that's dropping, where they want to find it?
Ladies and gentlemen, you can find it with your internet connection in the search bar. GeekVerse.ca is our home base. GeekVerse our Twitter. GeekVerse on our Facebook.
And the links of everything down below that you need, our video, our audio, where to find us, where to subscribe, where to join the Discord, where to rate, review. I think I said review already, but oh well. Everything in between. Head over to Manscaped and use that podcast code GVPOD to get 20% off and free worldwide shipping. And head over to Patreon because, as always, not just like with the sponsors, the more you support them, the more you support us, the same way with Patreon, the more episodes, the more content you get, whether it's there or on the main feed. Depending what tier you're at, you begin up to three exclusive episodes. You call in after 9. You can vote on Patreon polls. I think there should be one soon. Yeah, in the next coming months here, you're going to get to vote on 2 for the patrons, phase 2 and higher. You're going to vote for what Christmas movie we're doing December.
Ooh.
And in honor of the fall, you're going to vote for us to do a video game movie as well. Just any video game movie, except for
Shit, it's
Mario.
like September, bro.
Yeah, shit's like September. Except Mario. Mario, we're saving till next year for that one. But yeah, so we got Christmas and a Halloween one. So actually, there's going to be 3 Patreon polls coming up probably pretty soon here. So look out for that. And that's why you get to give a little something back. Want to thank you, our Patreon producers at the highest tier, Aaron Braden, April Darkness, Smalley Biggs, and Joshua Wright. And Joshua Wright, you can go check out. We just did Fantastic Mr. Fox for him. That was a good time. He had some nice words. So yeah, lots of good stuff there. We really appreciate anyone that listens, and we really appreciate anyone that supports us there, because this is fan supported and you people are the ones keeping this going. So oh, is he timing me? It's Kirklin like, man, Travis.
I was like, I gotta go. This is going too long.
Buckle up, baby. So I'm going to start with a man who has a lot of covers back there. I see one of the greatest video games of all time, Lord of the Rings, Two Towers. Even though you play through the
look at that.
Fellowship as well in that game. You play through the lot. You play through.
It's true.
Yeah.
Very misleading.
Right.
Yeah.
Mines of Moria and well, where's that location with the kings? And they're like,
Well, isn't the Return of the King game have that Battle of Helm's Deep in it too? Like, it's kind of weird the way
No.
they're...
Well,
thought
the
it
Return of
did.
the King one, it's like the tutorial. The tutorial is the Helm's
Does
Deep
it?
battle. Yeah.
That's so weird.
That's
so
so
you play as
weird.
Gandalf, like you just arrived. It's like, holy shit, we're
Right.
here, and then it's
Yes.
like attack, and you just fuck up Uruk-hai with like your one like light attack.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't get to play with Gandalf to like levels later. It's like, but Gandalf is
No,
so
yeah,
fun.
it's in the
Yeah,
tutorial, and he's so OP, and then you get him later on,
Mhm.
and he's so OP then. But yeah,
yeah. Great games. Maybe we'll bust out on the 24-hour.
oh,
stream,
have
Yes.
to
I
now.
think that'd be a good time. So it's gonna be look out. There's gonna be some Lord of the Rings themes events happening in 24-hour stream. So get ready for that. But Dylan Muzz, what do you think of the Two Towers? Came out 2002.
2002. Yeah, I won't do the whole spiel. Last episode we kind of
Yes.
told our Lord of the Rings story, so go back for that. But needless to say, quickly again, like these are my favorite trilogies of movies. They're some of my just favorite movies of all time. Movies I've grown up with and consistently watched. I've played the games. I haven't read the books, so I'm a fake fan, of course. But yeah, I've always considered myself a huge fan. And if you asked me through most of my life what my favorite one is, I think I would always say Two Towers. That was the one I'd fall back on. And I don't know if that's changed in recent times. I'm not going to spoil it before our rankings. It's a bit of a cop-out, but it's so hard for me to pick between them. Like, they're all perfect movies as far as I'm concerned. So to rank one above the other is very hard because they're just almost identical in quality to me. So we'll see when we get to the rankings.
Especially those Hobbit movies. Those are really hard to
Yeah,
rank
exactly.
with the rest of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, the
you know?
animated Return of the King, wonderful story. So I don't know what I'll get to at that point, but I mean, I love this movie. It was so much fun to watch it again. And as I mentioned on last episode, the theatrical cuts are usually what I watch. The extended editions I didn't see until later in my life, and even then, not ones I usually watch. So there was a lot of stuff in here that felt like new content to me. So that was super interesting to get some of that. Some of it, I guess I can say I understand why it's cut. Like you don't need it, but the other stuff, it's like, wow, this is important. I understand. If you only have 3 hours, you got to make cuts somewhere, and all of it's good. But I'm excited to talk about some of those differences. And yeah, I love this movie. It still holds up, of course. And yeah, I have a lot of notes here. It's very messy, so pardon me if I'm a little bit messy with my notes today, because on this piece of paper, it's just a total mess. So
You gotta get a format. I have a format of extended questions, regular questions, and questions.
I have that too, but then it went onto 2 pages, so it's like I have to flip back and forth.
That's fair, right? I
'Cause
forgot
you
you're
gotta
doing the
leave
paper.
space in case you need to put more notes, but then sometimes you don't. Anyway, that's beside the point. I love this movie. I'm very excited to talk about it.
Helm's Deep of Deeps.
Yeah, I recall this being where I really started to take note of Lord of the Rings. This movie came out, and I remember, okay, this is definitely the VHS I recall like prominently getting in our household, and it's like you're a wee lad, and you just got action out the wazoo, like all out war. Like I don't think there was anything else out at this time that was really executing to such scale of war in a fantasy medieval type aesthetic. Like it's just truly bewildering for young eyes to see. Just such an imprint on my mind. So yeah, just everything that we get in this movie, I love how it literally just picks up right off of the first film and just gives us so much. Like this is one, again, I didn't see the extended scenes until I saw it in theaters, and I thought, like, holy crap. So compared to the first one, this actually, because you were touching upon this, Dylan, this actually has a lot of extended scenes that I feel are pretty relevant, and I can't wait to talk about that later on, because I feel like this answers so many questions that I had formed. And watching it now again recently, I was talking with Kirklin about something, and I mentioned it, and you didn't realize that, Kirklin. I thought, like, because I didn't
He
realize
educated
it.
me. Taylor educated me on
you,
Lord
yeah.
of the Rings content. It was awesome.
It's just another one of those little things that you just see, and it's like, holy shit, I can't believe that. Like, and it's probably gonna be memeable, unfortunately, but yeah. This movie's just fantastic. It just holds a good spot on my heart between getting the characters to where they are, and yeah, it delivers. It really, really delivers for me.
I'll go because I'll leave Mr. Tolkien last. Yeah, I'm much like Dylan and Taylor. We'll see where the rankings are. Maybe this is a tip of the hat. But yeah, I think Two Towers was my favorite for a very, very long time. And I think, yes, because Helm's Deep, I think, is still the greatest cinematic battle. Like, the only thing that ever got anywhere close to me was like the battle in Endgame. It's still like, I still put this above that. I remember Helm's Deep happened. And after that, it was just, I don't know, almost 20 years of movies where I'm like, there's no battle that gets anywhere close to the epicness of this. And finally, when we got Endgame, I was like, okay, I felt very close to that. So hopefully it doesn't take another 20 years to get to that. I'm not saying it has to be Marvel. It's any franchise. Like, let's, big wars, let's get it going. Absolutely, them versus their producers and fans, when someone makes a documentary. But yeah, much like these guys, I love this movie. Now, I wouldn't talk about how I saw it the first time because it's very similar to the first one, but I think I'm trying to think at that point in my life. I don't know if there's any movie I was more hyped to see at that point than Two Towers. And Return of the King, I was hyped, but it was just kind of like I don't know why. There was just a different sense of hype, kind of like what we talked about last week or whenever we recorded. As far as I didn't know with Fellowship there was a 2-part, right? I thought, oh, this is the movie. So knowing, and then once after that's like, okay, there is a 2 and 3. So I guess that's why I was just hyped, because I just want to get to Two Towers. I want to see what happened to the team. At that point, I didn't know what happens to Merry and Pippin, how are Frodo and Sam gonna, make it out alone and things like that. Like even Gollum, they hide a good amount in the trailers and stuff like that. He's in them, but he's a very little part. So I had so many questions. Where Return of the King was, I think, a forward line of, okay, this is the ending, big battles, Mordor, here we go. But this middle chapter is great. It sets up new things. It answers a lot of things. Extended, I definitely think that for the most part, it adds in scenes that like we talked about with Fellowship, I actually feel warranted to be there. I think we'll get into it. I think there's a lot of time with the Ents that they added that I don't think needed to be there, and I think that's where I'm not going to say, like, this is, again, I already spoiled this. All these movies are a 10 out of 10 for me. I think they're pretty much perfect. But I think the two storylines I always get hung up on, maybe why it's gone a little lower, in rankings sometimes here and there, is because of the Ents, and also we'll get into it with Arwen, where I go, oh man, we spent so much time with these, and they're still great stories, but when we get to 3, both these things don't play much of a factor in the story at all. They're great middle pieces, and they get our characters from point A to point B, but I'm trying to think of anything else overall, but no, another great film. I'm excited to talk about specifics and things like that, cast skills, and even the new additions to the cast are great, and yeah, Kirk and Patzer.
Yeah, I can come out and say it right away. Like, you guys, I love this one the most out of all of them back in the day. This was my go-to movie. Like, I wouldn't even start Fellowship. I would just go to this, like, fast forward to Helm's
that's
Deep
a
battle.
cardinal sin,
Like,
right?
Yeah.
like literally, and I didn't even care. It was like, there's too much dialogue. I just want the battles. Like, let's just get in here. Like, I would literally just fast forward to the Helm's Deep scene, and yeah, I probably had like all my like Lord of the Rings merch and just like reenacting the scenes. Like, it was just so hype. And like Taylor was saying, I feel like I just didn't really see, or I didn't have like another point of reference for like a battle of that scale, at least at that point in time. Like, came out in 2002, I would have been like 8 years old. So like it was just the best thing ever for me at the time. And yeah, like I remember just putting on the second movie and just really, really loving all of the stuff with Rohan. Definitely didn't like understand about like when Gandalf came back or anything like that. So it's funny like looking back on it on like just where my knowledge was at the time. It's just like I really just was in it for Legolas, just doing absolutely badass archery skills. And I think like the friendly dynamic between Gimli and Legolas, it was just so fun for me as a kid. And even just like the three of them like chasing the Uruk-hai, like that was just so fun. And like the scenery that we have in this movie, it's so awesome. It's funny because I already spoiled my rating last week. Fellowship, I think, is still the highest on my list, and now Two Towers is probably on the lowest. So it's kind of funny how I like just aged that way. I mean, we haven't gone through Return of the King yet, like, so maybe that'll change something. But I don't know. There's just something about Fellowship.
Plus,
so
we got
near and
other
dear to
things
my
in the
heart.
ranking episodes. So we're not spoiling everything. The movies, it's tough when there's only 3 of them. We're speaking around them, but we got other lists. Don't worry.
Yeah. So for this one, it's really interesting too, because the last few times that I've gone through the trilogy, I've watched them all in one sitting. So for me, I've always just kind of, or not always, but in the last few years, just really thought of this movie as just like the middle part of the story, not like its
Act 2.
own movie. Yeah, exactly. So it is interesting this time around, actually just like, like I watched Fellowship just last week, but still like waiting some time and then jumping into it and just seeing it as like a standalone movie. There's definitely some things that I think, Travis, you're kind of bringing up some examples. I'm not quite with you on the Ents, because I love me some Ents and just some
I'm not saying I
random
don't
slow
love 'em. I think
diplomacy. I'll let you defend yourself.
It's a lot of them. It's a lot of them.
It is a lot of them, and like maybe just like a lot of flashbacks with like Aragorn and Arwen, who I just feel like maybe it's. I don't even want to necessarily say like it slows things down, like while we're like it doesn't take us away from like Helm's Deep battle for like this long extended flashback sequence. It's just like it's filling in some cracks while we're like traveling somewhere. So it's like it's not really wasted time, but I feel like there is some moments where I'm struggling to find words here, because I don't want to say it like takes me out of it by any means, but it just. There's something there. Maybe we'll talk about it in more detail when we actually get to that.
And that's the thing. No matter what, like at the end of the day, anybody like us can think these movies are perfect or have 10/10, but there's always gonna be something that's like a little lower. And that's why I look at this, where I wouldn't take any of the stuff out. Like, even with the end stuff, I still love being in the world and things like that. But we'll get there, because I think there's certain points you're right about. Because I feel, and obviously this is not even just about Jackson. It's more even just the love trilogy or the love triangle of. You're rereading the book, so you may have a better idea, but and we'll get more deep into it, but it's just like, I never really feel that at any point you feel like Aragorn is going to choose Eowyn. Like it never, ever feels like that at any point. And we spend a lot of time with this dynamic stuff. And luckily it helps Aragorn and his king stuff as well, like kind of that dynamic of represented men and stuff like that. But the love angle, it's like, it's completely, to me, one-sided in this whole equation,
Oh, for sure. I will say too, like just like the first disc, like I feel like I love that for completely different reasons than I love the second disc, which is kind of a weird like dynamic where the second one is really really heavy in the action and the combat. So it's just it's so intense and like everything that's going on is really really fun. But I really like the build up and even just like the pursuit that goes on in the first disc. So I'm excited to talk about details as I always am. But yeah, no, this was a really fun viewing, and for like I said, for it to be in that camp that I just watched this as a standalone movie, not just like an in between. It really like kind of, I don't know, made me look at it a little bit differently, and not really in a negative sense. I feel like maybe I noticed certain things more because it's not just, I don't know, I've been watching Lord of the Rings for like 4 hours by that point, and it's just like, oh yeah, now we're in Rohan, and then you get to the Return of the King, and everything's just kind of amping up. So, but yeah, like I still obviously love this. I'm excited to talk about certain details, especially with some inaccuracy things for like the Peter Jackson films. I'm not going to go into too many details because I haven't gone through all of the Two Towers novel. I'm not
The ending's
too
sure a
far
lot
in it.
different.
The ending sure is a lot different. Not really a spoiler, but like they actually deal with Shelob in the Two
Yes.
Towers, so that's pretty interesting. And so yeah, no, and I can safely say that's not a spoiler because that's actually on the cover of my Two Towers book is like the Shelob layer. So that was a big like, oh, there you go, that happens in here.
Plus, that was like I think the most. Whether it's like I'm actually pro him kicking at Return of the King because I think it just actually works better for the way he paced the story. If you would have thought like all that stuff of Faramir and then also ending it with Sheila, like that whole segment, I think would have really been too much. But I think that's not a spoiler just because like that was one of his most egregious. He did a lot of changes, but that was like the biggest one of you're kicking Shelob to
Right.
Return of the King. Like that's a huge step. That's the ending of the book of Two Towers. Like.
Yeah.
What are you doing? He's like, well, I'm doing it. It's a 3-hour movie. Sorry.
Helm's Deep is a perfectly acceptable ending.
I agree,
Maybe
yeah.
in the book it wasn't as grand as it is here. At least
Well,
relatively. I'm not saying it's not good.
The
but-
big thing with the book actually that was an eye-opening moment for me is that so each book is broken into 2 books. So like book 3 is technically the start of Two Towers, and then book 4 is the last half of Two Towers. So
Girthy
there's like
book.
6 books total. And then the first book of oh my gosh, let me rephrase that. Book 3, so this like the first half of Two Towers is just Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas. And then the second half, that's Frodo and Sam. So it makes it really interesting
What
the
about Merry
way
and
that
Pippin? They don't exist?
well, yeah, so that's like a
They're
part of the
twinkered in.
Aragorn.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. They're sprinkled around.
That
But like
makes
the
sense.
main players, it's really interesting that it's done that way because just like certain sequences happening at the same time, like you learn about them later on through the eyes of
Sure.
another character. So that's very interesting.
And they kind of do that a little bit in this movie, right? Where like Merry and Pippin go
Yeah.
through something, and Aragorn and them track them down, like relive the situation.
Totally.
So there's like some tributing to that.
That makes
Even
sense.
like they take a lot of it out, but even like some stuff with Saruman, which is actually Gandalf, it's kind of similar. Where the first situation is Merry and Pippin bumping into them, and you think, oh, there's like if you not have any idea, they're screwed.
Yeah.
I will say, as a little tyke, I was very upset that they spoiled Gandalf coming back in all the fucking trailers. He was all over the fucking marketing of this movie. So somebody that had no idea, hadn't read the books at that point,
That's a bummer.
I was pissed as a kid, yeah, because that happened. And then also the game came out before the movie, which like Gandalf's all over
In
that.
the tutorial.
Yeah, like no, not in Two Towers. In Two Towers,
Oh,
you
okay.
do me, yeah. But it was just like I was so bummed as a kid. Like, well, Gandalf's just back. I would have loved to have that experience of not knowing Gandalf was coming back and it was Saruman. But I knew that whole because they showed that scene. I'm pretty sure it was in a lot of the trailers. Like, why? And I know because people read the book for years, but there's tons of people like myself who had never read the books, and it was just like such a bummer. Of okay, Gandalf's back. Cool. I know 6 months before the movie now. No.
That's funny. Yeah, no, I think that's like a plus for me just not even ever watching it in the theaters is like I didn't really know anything about the story. So when I like watched through it, it's like, holy shit, Gandalf really died here. Like that's pretty intense. And again, like I was 8 years old, I was kind of just focusing on the combat, so I probably wasn't even too interested in all that dynamic. And then like when he came back, I just didn't understand. It's just like, why is the same actor and like why does he kind of look the same but he's not? Like it
And why is
just
he all
didn't make
forgetful?
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely as a young and like all the the dialogue was like Gandalf the Grey. That's what they used to call me. You're like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is up
It's like,
with
dude,
this
we just
dude?
saw you a couple hours
Yeah,
ago.
you know these people. You spent like weeks or months with them. Like, what's going on and stuff? No, I remember the build. This like I was constantly watching Entertainment Tonight. I watched Entertainment Tonight because the first ever. Oh no, it wasn't that. It was 60 Minutes. The first ever scene. I think it was that or Barbara Walters. Something on ABC. The first ever scene they released for Two Towers was the warg scene of just Aragorn or Legolas getting on the rock and he sees them and they're right. That was the first ever clip, and I remember being like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna see a clip of this movie tonight," and I was all over that stuff. And like, so was Ian McKellen. So, what are you laughing about, Taylor?
Nothing. I can just picture little Travis just getting super jazzed, just fucking cartwheels off the couch and the furniture.
Whoa,
Oh, I was too
cartwheels.
heavy for cartwheels at that point. I more just rolls
He's
and
just
stuff.
barrel rolls. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's say our first ad break because I completely forgot to do all that in the last retro, so I'll be sprinkling those in, and we'll be right back. And we're back. Now, before we get going, Taylor, do you want to work on, or do you want to tease? I feel like this is the place to announce it, what we got going to be going on in the next few weeks here.
Oh, yeah. So I reached out to Kirklin. I was like, Kirklin, I need some insights here. This is what I got so far. Kirklin's just been dishing out characters for me, but this is currently, I mean, the villains are not
Why is
completed.
the left side's okay?
Villains are not completed. This is currently the standings with possible revisions coming in. 'Cause Kirkland's been helping me out, but we got definitely some hot celebrities in here.
Collateral's husband made it in. You fucking kidding me?
Dude, Celeborn, man. Come on. He's a big player.
I love
Picture
that
for
that
Bilbo.
meme going around of like, where is me in the trailer for the thing. I love also you put Harry Goatloaf in there. That's
Oh,
good.
and you gave him
We
an
need
easy
Goatleaf.
round one too. He's gonna crush. Actually, I guess he might not.
No,
unless
he
they
might
listen to
lose.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got names too. If anyone is like specifically wondering, because that guy, he's up against Barleyman Butterbur is his name.
Oh, that's
Harry
another great
Goatleaf.
name.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, this is gonna be pretty prime. I'm just trying to figure out more villains because I thought like, god damn, I can only do so many orcs in here. I feel like
I'll send
but-
you some. I'll send you some, Taylor. I got a couple.
Man, once again, the way you seed these brackets is so weird to me. Like you're putting heavy hitters against each other, and then you're putting like
Yeah,
Harry
Merry
Goldleaf and the
Pippin is
bartender
just-
against each
Okay,
other.
that was Kirkland's suggestion of Merry and Pippin, though.
I did do that. I was like, that'd be fantastic. Okay,
Let him
and like,
face off eventually later on Sam and Elrond.
no,
And look at Aragorn's-
Travis.
Look
If
at
you would have
Aragorn's
seen,
matchup. Look at this shit. It's him versus the old guy that shoots the. Why is he even in the pool?
you should
Why
have
is he
seen
in the
version
pool?
1. You should have seen version 1. There were some cuts I had to make. Come on.
He did. Well, you have a problem with the guy Aragorn's facing?
Yeah, he shouldn't.
It was
be in
either
the
him or
way.
Shadowfax, so we're definitely kept.
I just look at this and I
Shadowfax.
see some bias. You know, like Boromir, easy round one. Aragorn, easy round one.
Yeah.
Aragorn, you get what against that fucking guy? Come on.
Who's Shadowfax?
Shadowfax, that's the Lord of Horses.
Yeah, it's Gandalf's horse.
Oh fuck. I actually would have preferred the horse over the arrow. guy.
Okay. I pushed back on that. I'm like, keep the arrow guy in there over the fucking horse. At least this guy does something. Kills an orc guy.
You got a lot of the villains in there. That's gonna be tough to add. Some.
Isn't the guy? What's the guy in the top left corner again? What's his name?
Isildur.
Isildur?
He's kind of a villain, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that was the ring.
No,
He was a hero.
Dude, he slayed Sauron. Come on.
Yeah.
He's
but
the,
like the
he's
most
the
heroic
reason the
thing
ring
possible.
exists in the world, and all these.
But
people
he's also
die.
the reason why it's off his finger, and Sauron might have ended the whole world in that moment, right?
Doesn't matter if
Definitely a
Kirkland,
free
you
pass.
if you had nukes and I killed you and I stopped you from using the nukes, but then I just started
Use
to
the
maybe
nukes.
use the nukes.
Yeah.
I
That's
I
a
think
problem
it's-
for another
didn't-
day,
he
though.
didn't
You got to
use the
focus on
nukes.
the first, like the
Yeah,
first
he
initial
did.
nuke.
No,
He
he
used
just put the nuke in his pocket.
No, and he set this whole thing up even worse. I'm with Dylan that Isildur's on the villain side, 100%. But you know.
Oh, I don't know.
You
Because
do
that's the
you.
ring that's doing it, too. Because, I mean, I put King of the Dead in there.
Well, then
He's
put the ring
definitely
on
a
the
hero.
villain side. You should
That's
do that.
true.
Just put the ring.
Ooh, yeah, that
That's a
one's
good
winning.
idea. Okay,
that would
yeah.
be the winner. The ring versus Sauron.
Do you have the Nazgul as a group there? Is that what I see?
Well, I put
He's
in
got the Witch
King.
King. I was gonna
Angmar,
pitch.
but
I was gonna pitch Kamul the Easterling too. Just like the two most iconic
Kamul?
ones.
Who the heck is Kamul?
Use them
He's
all.
the one in the Shire.
8
He's-
slots.
He's like the main. He's the one in the Shire. Yeah.
I didn't know they had
8 slots for all of them.
They don't all have names.
You got your villain side right there.
Just the same
Done.
picture of all of the one Nazgul for all 8 slots.
Yeah. All right. Well, look out for that.
There
I'm
you go.
guessing you're timing that for the premiere of Shadow of Ring of Power. Fuck.
This will be my most active poll I've ever participated in.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get
a lot
updates
of them.
since I'm not on Facebook
Yeah.
anymore. So
Definitely.
send me
Is-
some updates.
Is that a correct date you're thinking?
Probably.
Rings of Power?
I was thinking of timing it when we drop like Return of the King retro, just to get a little get our like
That's
foot
a week
in
of
the
Rings
door.
of Power, so it's pretty much
Okay,
the same.
yeah, get our foot in the door.
We don't want the Rings of Power heads to come in and be like, "Where's all the Rings of Power characters?"
Oh, I know. I did tell Kirklin like no Hobbit characters in this. This is just strictly OG Lord of the Rings kind of thing.
Oh,
here.
that I thought you meant like you're like no Frodo, no Sam. So I mean, I predict that Aragorn's gonna win the whole thing, and I'm gonna say
Taylor-
that I'm gonna say
Sorry.
Gollum will make it on the bad side. That's my final two. That's what I'm saying.
Damn, that's quick.
Yeah.
That's a quick guess.
I just go with the super popular ones. Everyone fucking loves Gollum, and Aragorn, he's just like the babe, right? So
He's the babe.
Taylor first had Aragorn versus Galadriel, and I had to put a stop to that. I'm like, that's too big of a. That's like a. I feel like that's a main card fight, you know,
is
in
that
round
Galadriel
one.
versus
Yeah.
Treebeard?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it
But
is.
Kirkland, you can't use that method. Merry and Pippin is a main event fight as well. That's not a round one.
It's a good undercard fight, okay?
No, it's not. That
Yeah.
brothers fighting. No, that's a big one.
Okay, well, what's everyone's quick prediction then? Who's like semifinals or final round light and dark side here?
I think I agree with the Gollum pick. That seems like a good one. Aragorn does feel like the true path. I gotta say.
Even the
or
picture you used of
Gandalf, maybe.
Bilbo.
Gandalf, I think. Maybe
You
him.
use the most unnice picture of Bilbo. That's a villainous picture right there.
No, he's just admiring it. It's all good.
Gandalf is
Oh,
a
I've
bad
seen a
pick
more
either.
villainous picture of
Yeah,
Bilbo.
this is true.
Fuck.
Yeah,
Let me just
Gandalf
bring this one into the
and
mix right here. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Taylor, you
put that
said
back up.
what? You said Aragorn, or who do you think?
Honestly, I feel like Gandalf is a pretty good shot in there. Gandalf, I feel like people love Boromir. I could see Boromir
No,
going.
Oh,
there, too.
Boromir's not making
If
it.
Gandalf gets eliminated, does he come back as Gandalf the White?
Yeah,
Fuck,
last round.
I should totally do that.
The
Just
final
a free
comes
for
in
all
as a-
round.
Yeah, the final
I
comes in as like
should.
We make our own poll.
three-way.
Yeah. Yeah,
Brilliant.
Aragorn's a good pick for sure. Just to be different, I'm gonna throw Sam in the mix. I feel like a lot of Sam
He'll
boys
make
are
it a
gonna
couple
come
rounds,
in. and
maybe. But.
I think he'll
Watch
decimate
Elrond
He's
destroy.
beating
And then-
Elrond first
I mean,
round.
if the memes are strong too, I think Denethor has a strong chance of winning on the evil
Yeah,
side.
You never know our
Um,
Facebook, man.
Yeah,
Well, we don't know. Yeah, we don't know who Denethor's against the first round. That could be the make or break moment.
Nobody
Yeah.
gets a bye.
And then maybe I don't know Sauron. Oh no, yeah, you guys are right about Gollum. Never mind. I think Gollum has a strong chance. Maybe Gollum versus Denethor in the finale.
Oh hell yeah!
Oh, there we go. Look out for
Cool.
that coming soon. Lord of the Rings poll. Can't wait. Gonna be a fun time. So
Ooh,
all these
the
other
meat's on the menu guy. That guy could make it pretty.
Oh
far.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I see these other photos. Oh god. So anyways, we'll get talking. Once we get
Don't look at those. Don't look at those.
Starting some positive stuff. Now, I don't want to. What I'm going to say is exclude Helm's Deep because we all love Helm's Deep. If I ask you, hey, what's your favorite part of this movie? You're going to say Helm's Deep and stuff like that. So, Dylan, other than Helm's Deep, what would you say is your favorite part of Two Towers? What's the thing you think of right away other than Helm's Deep? Character, moment, scene,
Yeah,
etc.
and honestly, this if you ask me, if someone just mentions Lord of the Rings, this might be one of the first things that comes to mind. It's not necessarily one particular scene, but just the scenes of Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli running over hills and stuff. Like those images are just so burned into my brain. There's just this epicness to it, how zoomed out a lot of those shots are, and obviously just these amazing vistas and landscapes and stuff, and just them running. And then, if we really zoom in, like a lot of those individual scenes as well, like I just love that section of the movie for them. I know that is quite a long time, so it's hard to zoom in on one thing, but if you ask me to narrow it down to like a 2-minute period, it would just be that main like montage section where you get all these different shots. And I love that Gimli is of course like 50 feet behind both of them, but he's still running that whole time, even though they haven't eaten or slept for several days, and just all the tracking that's going on there. So yeah, I think it's that. It's just like some bonding moments between this trio of characters. There is plot stuff going on, but really I just love the setting of that. I feel like that just has always put my mind into this world of imagination somehow. So I think it would be that section.
Yeah, I think I always liked what we talked about with Fellowship, where it ends with that crew together, and it was such like a ragtag. Like if you would have thought the characters that were going to end up like at the beginning, like Aragorn will someone end up with Frodo, and this that's like you got Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn. Like this is a strange team up, and I just love it's just them, just trying to save Merry and Pippin. There's all this stuff going on, but they're not going to let their newfound friends be taken out. And then obviously they go their separate ways and they go on a whole different journey. But I love that all the people they bump into, Aragorn tracking down the hobbits and stuff like that, Fangorn Forest and stuff. So yeah, I'm with you where that is just like a iconic trio of just characters, and I love that Legolas and Gimli are a bit more friendly now. Like I love that moment when oh god, what's Butcher's name in this? I always forget Carl Urban's name in this because he's kind of just
Éomer.
Yeah, he's just kind of boring in these movies. Like he's fine, he does his job. Like he's fine.
Are you kidding me? He's so good. That line drop, I'd cut off your head, dwarf, if it's
Accurate too. That's ripped right out of the book. Just a vicious insult Tolkien was packing.
Gets me every time.
And that's why I love that. Yeah, we are picking up right from where we left off, but it feels like even if it's been hours or days, they've bonded even more. And I love in that moment when Legolas just like draws the bow like in a second to defend Gimli, where maybe a couple days ago that wouldn't happen. So they feel like this just unit that's going to stick together. Now, obviously, when we get to Helm's Deep, we'll talk about they start to fracture a little bit. There's some tension going on there, but that first half, great stuff between the three.
Yeah. For me, it's interesting because I feel like I wouldn't even give Helm's Deep my favorite moment of this entire movie, honestly. Okay. Yeah, because definitely, I mean, when I like rewatched it, just like the build up to it, like just goosebumps. I'm like, holy shit, this is still amazing. This is still like a amazing caliber. But honestly, for me, I completely agree with you guys. Just like the trio, just in the pursuit of the Uruk-hai and just like chasing them with a ferocity they've never like. I forget the line specifically, but like they just are so motivated to just track down this group of hundreds of Uruk-hai, and it's just like, what are they gonna do when they catch them?
Aragorn did one via 1,000 just a couple days ago.
That's true,
right?
But
so
it's just like I feel like it's just always been a thing where I'm like, yeah, they're chasing them as hard as they can, but like, are they gonna be able to take them out? I guess so. It was just something that it was like they didn't even second guess it. It's just like, this is our motivation. Like we need to save these hobbits, like no matter what. And then everyone's just game and they just do it, and it's awesome. Like you said, Dylan, all of those like pan shots are just so awesome. Like the aerial of them, like just sprinting.
It just feels like they don't want to lose again. Like we talk about in Fellowship, like so much bad stuff happens. They need a victory here. They need one step to like save some people actually. And
plus they took out the leader, so I bet that would give them some confidence too, of feeling like, okay, I bet these Uruk-hai without that leadership, even if it's not a very smart character necessarily, would still like make them more disorganized than they could. And at least be kind of scrappy with it and maybe get some victory. But yeah, I think it is just that desperation, which I love, that they don't care at all. They don't need rest. They don't need food. Like they're gonna find them, and somehow they're gonna find a way, even if all three of them die to save Merry and Pippin. Like that's the kind of risk they're willing to take, which I love.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, like just like any time that like there's certain moments in this movie where like the Fellowship like sound or like tone will just come into a scene, whether it's Merry and Pippin kind of talking about like, maybe we should just give up, go to the Shire, and then like this little tone comes in of just like a little bit of hope, but it's like super dreary because it's like, no, that's not even an option, because if we go there, like the world's gonna burn. Like that's not an option. But then also the moments with Sam and Frodo, I feel like the more I watch this movie, I just appreciate that so much more, where Sam really gets a lot more moments to shine. Travis likes to shit on Sam, so I'm excited to bring up specific moments.
He's still an idiot.
MVP.
No,
he's
not
completely
the MVP.
disagree.
No, he's
by
not the MVP.
Of the moments in this movie with Frodo and Sam and Gollum. Are you kidding me?
Drove your brother mad.
Twice, and then that's a lie. No, there's three things I would show about Sam where it's like he was wrong about Gollum. He doesn't really understand what.
How was he wrong about Gollum?
Because he said there's not a single good bone in his body, and it shows that Gollum does start to turn until the hunters set him up, right? And he feels betrayed.
Sam wasn't there, Gollum would have strangled Frodo at the start of this movie.
No, I'm talking about after that. All that he
well.
does save him. Yeah, I'm not saying Sam's useless. No, we need someone to carry the bags and be some brute every once in a while. But he said there's not a single good bone in his body and everything like that. And the only time he's nice to Gollum was like, oh yeah, we didn't mean that to happen. Like he's just trying to try to smooth over the situation, but it took way too long. They should apologize to Gollum right away. So he was wrong about being a good bonus body. He lied to Faramir about how everything went down. He's like, you know how your brother died? That's not how he died. That's not what happened. They didn't Aragorn didn't
What do you
fucking when they're getting all mad and everything like that, and he's like, you know how your brother died? He tried to take the ring from Frodo. That's not how he died.
Sam doesn't know how he died, though.
So he's lying.
This is
That's
why
what I
the
mean.
Fellowship
He's
broke
lying.
up, was because this moment happened.
I
Frodo
know, but-
realized he can't trust anyone because
he-
this man tried to steal the ring from me, so now I can't trust anyone in the Fellowship.
But he's
the
painting
best
it
course
like
of
this-
action is to just dip out.
He's painting it like this situation, like Aragorn got the group together, and yeah, let's fucking kill Boromir.
But all he knew,
you
though,
know?
in that sense, was okay, Faramir just told him that Boromir died. And the only thing, the last that he heard of Boromir was from Frodo saying he tried to take the ring from me. So obviously you're going to connect those two, right? He probably didn't even know the Uruk-hai
Maybe.
were there.
I also just look at it as Boromir just being representative men. So it's this man who is the best of all men, he got corrupted so easily by the ring. That is why your brother is dead in that moment. That happened, and then
Oh yeah.
led
Your
to his
brother
death.
is weak. He was
I
a
guess-
wolf
What was your third point on Sam?
My third point was
Yeah.
and I just remembered that I forgot. Hang on, it's gonna come back to me. We talked about Gollum. We talked about the ring. Oh yeah, with Frodo, and I feel that's why in Return of the King he is more of an MVP. Other than I still hate that he leaves Frodo on the mountainside. I don't care if Frodo sent you away. You stay a little bit back because fucking Gollum did this shit to you. Stuff's going on. So we'll get to that in Return of the King. I always watch idiot. But I feel like in Return the King he actually understands what Frodo is going through and he starts to be a bit more caring. And I feel like at the end when Frodo goes, I just can't do this anymore, and Sam goes, I know that does when he realizes. But I feel like there's middle chapters where he's just you're just so moody, Frodo, and you're just this and that. But it's clearly this guy is going through a lot of stuff, and I feel like Sam just punched downs a lot at him in the first half of this movie, and he doesn't, and he did that we talked about in the first one, where he doesn't, and that's why I'm fine with it. It's character growth. Where I feel like in Return of the King, he finally realizes kind of what Frodo's really going through with this ring, and once he sees the marks on his neck, it really starts to get with him. Where for a while I feel like he's just oh yeah, when he clearly there's a moment where Sam says some shit about Gollum, right? But it kind of sounds like Sam's talking about Frodo, and Frodo snaps at him. It's yeah, you could have delivered that better, because clearly Frodo knows what that guy's going through, because he's going through the same stuff. So he's a bit airheady on purpose, and I think that's good, because in Return of the King, I think that goes away, and he becomes charged. He has the fucking sting. He has the whatever Galadriel gives him. He's kicking Gollum's ass and all this stuff. So to me, I think that works for the character to be airheady, and he kind of just... He's a little naive still about he'll say things, and clearly if you were to say that around this person that's going through the struggle, not a great idea. To me, it's like drinking by an alcoholic that's recovering. It's no, this is not the ideal thing to say in this moment. So those are my three on Sam.
I like your points. I don't agree with them, but I think
That's
that's
fine, yeah.
why this is a great film, because you can kind of interpret these things in different ways. To me, I feel like there's always this connotation when he's talking to Frodo in these ways that he's always putting the burden of why he's changed onto the ring. He's saying the ring is doing this to you and stuff like this, rather than a character thing. So I guess I see it as him, personifying the ring and saying that's the bad guy. And so that's why I think I like this, because I don't ever feel like he's being mean-spirited to Frodo in that way. Yeah. So, but I see where you're coming from in terms of some of the things he's saying are maybe exaggerations, or maybe he doesn't have the whole truth, but I think it comes from a place of just being incredibly protective of Frodo at all costs, and I completely understand and think he's justified in how he treats Gollum. Yes, maybe he goes overboard, but at the same time, think about the first time they encounter Gollum. He just tries to fuck them up, and he's obviously very deranged, and he's saying some strange things. They're hearing a lot of the weird, scary things he's saying when he thinks they can't hear them and stuff. So I think all of that, he has a reason to. Now, obviously, he does help them, and a lot of times he saves them in certain ways. But I also felt that I really appreciate that, towards maybe the 75% mark of this movie onwards, there's a point when Sam does have that turn, and he is starting to work with Gollum more, especially when they are leaving Osgiliath, I believe. The dialogue he has with Gollum there is he's more protective of him at that point. And so I guess what I'm saying is I understand where he starts at this point of being 100% skeptical of Gollum.
Oh, yeah.
And that goes back and forth, but then kind of towards the end of this, he's getting a bit more trusting of him, but it still like is on the side of skepticism. And then obviously things happen towards the start of this next one. But I also get it from Sam because he's being alienated by Frodo and Gollum a lot in this. They kind of have this weird bond, even if they don't say it in very clear ways. But even just the way Gollum obviously is excluding him all the time, always putting Sam down, making fun of him and all this stuff too.
That stupid
but then,
hobbit. He's giving his jabs too.
But then Sam is like, this is an intense amount of pressure he's going through, and Frodo is often dismissing him too. So like, I just love all of it, and I think it really, Sam really gets to shine here. So I agree with what you said there, Kirkland. Love that dynamic a lot.
Absolutely. I like how you pointed out too of just like that percentage point where like Sam kind of has that turn and he's not just being, because it almost seems like he's putting on this act of being this like douchebag of like no we can't trust you, like being really aggressive towards him because I don't know, don't judge appearances, but this guy looks fucking creepy, okay? Like, the way you found him, you know that he's been following you since Moria, and, like, why is he following you? Because he has the ring, and then he's just creeping down and, like, talking about wringing their necks, and just, like, yeah, as you mentioned, like, he's saying these things to himself so they can hear him. So it is an obvious threat, and I feel like maybe, like, the super toxic words towards Gollum, it doesn't help the situation by any means, but I feel like it's almost also one of those things that, like, if a bear is there, like, you're just going to be yelling at it and like trying to like intimidate it, right? And like putting on this act. And I feel like Sam does that for a lot of this movie. But after that 75% point, like you mentioned, and even sprinkled in throughout the film, I found Sam to just be this like this just like really good like motivator for Frodo of like reminding him of like the good in the world. And like I was gonna bring up later, but just like his speech at the end when he's just talking about how like we have to try and just believe that there's something worth fighting and like that there is good
theme hits at that
moment.
I
know. Every time the Shire theme hits, it's just like chills. But like when he's just talking about how like there is good in this world and it's worth fighting for, and it's just like they're in tears, I'm in tears. It's just like it's such a powerful moment, and it's just I feel like for Frodo to be. Up until this point, this is the most grab that the ring has on him. Like he literally almost just like, or he did. He walked up to a Nazgul on a fell beast, ready to just like give him the ring, or at least just like put him on, and just let the fell beast take him away. Like he was just so. He was so weak in that moment, and
he's
then
ready to slit Sam's neck too. There, so
like he is at his lowest point. But then for Sam to be able to deliver this really powerful speech and just get through to Frodo and just kind of like bring him down a level. Maybe if it's like a video game, his corruption meter is like 99%, and he just it allowed him to like bring down to a reasonable level. So I feel like those moments definitely shine through, but. I can't really excuse his his mean name calling. That's never good by any means.
It's interesting that you think that he's putting on an act, because the way Sean Astin plays that to me, I don't like. It doesn't feel like he's trying to play tough guy in those moments. I feel like he's actually he hates Gollum. Yeah, he can't stand him, and he would want to the same way Frodo. And I guess that's why I like the Frodo dynamic better, and I like the bond that him and Gollum have, because like. Until Return of the King, Sam has no idea what this ring feels like. He's around a little bit, but he has no idea the actual weight of this. And when Frodo had that same type of thing where, Gandalf said, pity Bilbo didn't kill when he had the chance, and he gives him that whole speech. I feel like if Gandalf gave that speech to Sam would be like, yeah, okay, and he'd still like be throwing like the rope around his neck and like dragging him, and that's where I feel like he's not putting on a front. I feel like he is a bit more of like a meaner hobbit when it comes to yes, he's protecting Frodo, and that's why I give it to pass. But that's where in the situations where Gollum where he was teetering, Sam's not helping the situation to calm the situation down. Where it's definitely all Frodo that gets Gollum even close to being like there's a what if they didn't If Boromir and his crew didn't catch Gollum or Smeagol at that point, he probably could have stayed good that whole time. Now, you don't know for sure because the ring works in mysterious ways, right? But at that point, when he does that turn and he tells Gollum to go away, Smeagol's good the whole film until he feels like they screwed him over and betrayed him and stuff. Where Sam in that moment is still, he's not helping the situation, which I get. It is down to be skeptical, but that's funny. I never seen him as playing a tough guy. I felt he was felt he was a tough guy, I guess.
I'll pass it to Taylor here, but one last thing I'll say is I feel like I'm just bringing in my own like Hobbit isms where I'm like, there's no way hobbits are actually just like that cruel, you know, like they're just very joyous people. And even if just looking back early stages of Fellowship of the Ring, of like just Sam being Sam in the Shire, like there's never a moment where it seems like he has like a mean bone in his body. That's why I am bringing in like my own feelings on it. I'm not really at that part in the book, so I'm excited to like see like a long drawn out like narration of like actually getting into Sam's head, because I'm sure Tolkien wrote those things out, so I'm excited to get to that. But I mean, you brought up some really good points, and this has been a good discussion already on Sam, so this is fun. Taylor Field, we didn't even get to what your favorite part of Two Towers is. I'm sorry, I
Well,
just
what was-
got going.
Your answer was just like Frodo and Sam. I guess.
I'm like, this
Was
whole
it the
movie, it's all
speech?
good. I love everything.
Was
Yeah,
it the
it was-
speech?
I mean, it was a cheap answer. It was mostly just like all of the moments with like Frodo and Sam kind of just like be like calling back to what the Fellowship kind of is, and like keeping that heart of like the Shire alive. But I also shouted out the Gimli, Aragorn, Legolas dynamic. I feel like I could also mention the Gandalf stuff, but if I had to choose one particular thing,
tricky
I
question.
feel like honestly it is like that dynamic between Frodo and Sam, and just where it leaves at this end of the film. Like it yeah, like there's some nefarious things going on, especially with Gollum's, you know, oh yes, we'll show them. Like he's just very nefarious at the end of this movie.
Follow me.
It ends with just Mordor looking like just you got Felbies flying. Like it is very scary at the end of this movie, but still it has this little shimmer of hope, and I love that about this film, because it is a pretty dark film. There's a lot of shitty things that go on in here, but always got hope.
You get that fucking track. I see them lies. That song over the credits. I like it, but it's like, oh, I don't know.
I didn't listen to it, so it's not fresh in my head, unfortunately.
Oh, I listen to it
I
every
know
time.
exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, she's hitting all those high notes in that song. My goodness, I don't know who it is, but yeah.
Should I talk favorite part or Sam? I'm not sure which direction to go.
Maybe do
But
Sam
maybe
just to
probably
wrap
do
it up.
Sam,
and
and
then-
then you
Okay,
can
yeah.
bring us somewhere new.
Yeah.
I'm definitely kind of in the camp of you, Dylan, and you, Kirklin. I'm probably biased because I love Sam. I love him so much. And in this, like, he does shine so hard like the sun. He's just such a great grounding force. Like,
Samwise the sun, like
Samwise the
the
sun.
sound of that.
I like it.
he's just such a good grounding force for Frodo. And you guys are totally right. That end scene where he's just popping the speech off and that Shire just theme kicks in with a little bit of like an extra kick to it. It's
Little salt
modified
on
a little
top,
bit.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's just, oh my God, this is just so, it's so good. It's so good. And yeah, it's just after almost being stabbed by your friend, saving your friend from a Nazgul, like he's unfathomably loyal and dedicated to Frodo, and this is where you really get to see that friendship kind of like grow, even when he's held captive by Faramir, and like he's just like tripping out, or even before they get captured, and he's just like, Mr. Frodo, wait, like look, and Olifant, and he's like, no one at home's gonna believe this. He's just enjoying the moment, and Frodo's even smiling a little bit too. Like I love those little simple things. Even though it's a fucking horrible army of men that are out there. But it's just such a simple little thing because it's an animal. And I love that stuff. It's so grounding. So Sam is definitely, fan-freaking-tastic.
Nice. What's your favorite part? Do you have a
Where are
favorite
you
part?
taking us?
My favorite part, yeah, this is...
And you're not allowed to bring up Helm's Deep. We've
No, definitely not. I would probably say the beginning when we get, and this is where young Taylor came into play, because I used to get mad at my parents, like, oh, you put in the wrong movie, it's just replaying the scene. Yeah.
You fucking idiots. Little 8-year-old
Taylor
Taylor.
in the middle, starting at Mines of Moria.
Yeah. So I already saw this part. What are you doing,
I
Mom?
hate Fellowship of the Ring. It's the worst in the trilogy.
But after a couple seconds go by, then you just see Gandalf just fucking skydiving down to the cave, just going to town, just grabs his sword. Oh my God. And then young Taylor was just all up in that shit. It was so cool.
Ooh.
Just sliding his sword up into the Balrog's like chest, going to town. And then I often didn't understand, in conjunction with this, the dialogue where he's like, I fought in the, how does he say it again? Like the highest peak, the lowest
darkest
dungeon,
to the
darkest
highest
dungeon,
peak.
highest peak. I used to think that this was a peak that was at the very bottom part of Moria, but it's not. It's at the top of Moria, right?
Yeah, they literally just fight from
It's so
like the depths
confusing.
of the ground That's just how long their fight is. It just gives.
I know, but the
That's so exhausting.
editing of it for them to go completely down in the water, and then the next time you see them, they're just
I know.
on a hill in
Well,
the
yeah,
snow.
am I
You're like,
missing something there? How do they just walk up there, or is there some teleportation going
It's just a
on?
long battle. Like they're
They
just
just-
constantly, like
He's
they're
like
literally like
one-handing it while he's
angels,
climbing
right?
the
Like they're
ladder and
angelic
stuff.
beings. So like they're not in the same camp of Boromir.
They're,
or
like playing
something
tag,
like
and like Balrog runs to the top of the mountain.
they're like
He's
five.
"Give me a
Okay,
beer."
yeah, I gotta eat something.
Could
yeah.
you imagine if you're one of those like fire dudes in Return of the King and you're just chilling, you see fucking Balrog and Gandalf just going to
Fire
town up the
dudes.
hill? You remember the beacon's are lit. One of those guys just look over, fucking
Is that a
Balrog on
beacon?
the mountain.
Okay, light it.
Wait, is that
Is that a hot air balloon?
Oh, he's dead. Oh, he's dead. Shit.
Oh shit! Did you already light it?
Yeah.
Yikes!
Royan's gonna be pissed.
Another, well, this is more of like a deleted scene, but it always gets me every time. It's probably one of my top like 5 favorite moments of the movie, just because it's so humorous. Aside from all the Gimli Legolas stuff, but that extended scene where Eowyn gives the soup to Aragorn.
Awesome.
It just
Yeah.
cracks
So good.
me every time. I hate that they removed it out of the main like film too.
Oh,
I feel
did
like
they
that's
actually?
worth it.
Why?
It's
Yeah,
an
it's not
extended
in the
scene,
film.
yeah.
Okay.
Because the first time they meet in theatrical is when they're sword fighting. Like, like they look at each other in other moments, but in theatrical they sword fight. Which
I'm excited to talk about that. It is weird what the difference is in the theatrical and extended on that.
and I feel like it makes it weird because when they sword fight, it does feel like the first time. So they just had this
Yeah.
conversation like about like, oh, who's like your loved one and the soup and everything like that. And then the next time she's like really. So it was a weird choice. I'm not with Taylor where I like the scene. I would see when you have a over 3-hour film, that's something you cut because it's like, oh, it's funny, but you don't need like me. Viggo Mortensen's like, great acting with the soup. Like you don't need this at all. But in the extended, it's almost like that should come after the sword fighting scene. Like they should do that and then have the soup moment. It's very strange the way they have it placed together like that. So,
Well,
but I guess maybe
no,
you should.
because isn't technically the first scene when they're in the stable? In the extended?
Well, I thought it was when.
Yeah, but do they share any
I thought the
dialogue
first
in the
scene was
stable?
when they go and like basically like
in the main hall.
cure Theoden, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't care.
But
He
that's-
just
they don't really
holds her.
talk.
It's not
Yeah,
a
they don't
one-on-one
talk at
scene.
all.
He holds her
really,
back.
no.
He touches her.
Yeah, he just waits.
But yeah, like their first conversation is different. But yeah, it is weird to watch it because I'm, like I said, used to the theatrical where that is their first like dialogue scene. But when watching extended, I can understand like they both feel like the first times they've truly had a conversation. So it is a bit strange, and so I can understand why there was a cut made there, even just for making it make sense. I think it actually works a bit better to just pick one of the two. It almost doesn't matter which one, but just pick the scene when he gets the horse or the sword fighting scene, and you just need one.
Yeah, it feels like you have multiple introductions to it, and it's almost like they shot them and like, hey, which one are we going to use? In theatrical, they decide which one to use, but then extended, they're like, just put them both back in. Doesn't matter. Like, and you know, I'm fine with it. Whatever it was, you know, maybe maybe she just scared him with the sword. You know, that's why she was caught off guard and she was looking like that.
I don't know why this is so hard for me to remember, but I could have sworn that actually was like the situation where like she has the sword scene and then later on is the soup scene. Because isn't that when they leave Edoras? Because
Yeah.
they're like packing up and then they have the sword and then like they eat soup on the way there.
So
don't
the
they?
first scene is them in the stable with the horse. That scene, where
Okay.
when Aragorn I guess gets his horse or calms the horse down, whatever's going
Yeah.
on there.
Yeah, pick some
And
up
then the
later on.
sword
Freeze 'em.
fighting scene, and then the soup scene would be after that. That
Yeah,
would be
okay.
the order of it. But
Yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
theatrical, the only scene is the sword fighting scene.
Oh, okay.
I mean, they have other
Okay.
scenes later on, but of those
It's
three.
Mandela effect.
Yeah, 100%. Because I feel like I haven't seen the theatrical versions in so long that like I'm excited for you to like break down the details, Dylan. You know, the man with 2 monitors. I'm excited to get through those details. But
Well, we'll take
Sure, go ahead.
an ad break, and then we'll be right back. And we're back.
I just wanted to quickly go back to the first thing that Taylor mentioned there. One, during that falling scene, I love all that when he gets the sword and, as you said, goes at him, as Taylor described it. But I love when
slides
they
the sword into his chest. Taylor
Yeah.
said.
when they get into the, I guess, darkest dungeon part of it, and that zoomed out shot where they're just falling and they're so far in the distance. I fucking love that shot. That is just amazing. And then I also I hadn't really thought about this until, really going through these retros that, the first movie starts with the battle 1,000 years ago or however many years ago it was, because I don't know all these details. And then the third movie starts with Smeagol's backstory, right?
And
so
Deagle.
I hadn't really thought about how every one of these movies starts with a prologue sequence. This one's the shortest of it, but I thought that was kind of an interesting choice. I hadn't really noticed that before. And I'm assuming, I guess the books would then be the same way. I'm guessing that Smeagol thing maybe starts off the third book as well. I guess we haven't really got there yet.
Well,
for Mr.
I don't think
Passer,
it does. I know I haven't read it in
Yeah.
a long time, but I think the Smeagol Deagle thing is like kind of more sprinkled throughout the book overall. I don't think it's like a big chunk of here's how
Yeah.
it gets. But like I said, I haven't read these in about 15 years, so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they even talk a bit about that event, like during The Hobbit. Like I
They
think
do,
Gandalf
yeah.
kind of explains some of what happened there. Obviously, I'm not at Return of the King yet, but like I don't think it opens with that sequence. I definitely think it's a Peter Jackson decision, but I'm sure they cover that event in more detail.
Well, like, and even in this one, they make it, I feel like, a big deal for Frodo to be like, you were once something close to a hobbit, Smeagol. But like in the books, it's like, right, wait a minute, oh yeah, that used to be Smeagol. He was in the Shire, like it's pretty
Yeah.
common. Like they just kind of talk about. I imagine whatever the tale is of Gollum, it's just like they talk about the origin point. Where I feel like in the movies, Gollum's poised as this like no one knows what it is, who
This
it
creature
is.
thing,
It's this
yeah.
creature, yeah. But I feel like in the books, it's like, no, this used to be a hobbit or something like a hobbit.
It's funny too, and he's like, "You're something not so different from a hobbit once," but like he was literally a hobbit once. Like,
Yeah.
no, not so different. He was exactly a hobbit.
Would he
was
be a
store
like
hobbit.
slightly different version, like a sub race?
Well,
or something,
yeah,
or-
he was.
or
Yeah,
there's
definitely.
different elves, right?
Definitely. There's different, like there's the Brandy Bucks, which is like that's Pippin's family, but like it's also just I think there's certain hobbits that are more like stout and like burly compared to other ones. I
Right.
forget the names right
Well,
now.
and even
but
then
like
when-
the Stour hobbits, those ones were like river folk. So that's what actually makes Gollum like the relevance on why he's such a good like navigator of the waters was because he would like they were the best swimmers and like fishermen like
Nice, I
in
didn't
that
know that.
in that
That's
era,
cool.
yeah.
Well, I was gonna say though, even in Return of the King, I always felt like they made Smeagol and Deagle look more adultish, like adult, like kind of features and stuff
Like taller.
that.
Yeah, I think they
Yes.
were like actually taller than
Yeah.
like the hobbits that we know and love.
And that's why even to the mystery point, it could be like the rumor. I feel like in this, like the rumor is they were a Hobbit thing, but they don't know for sure and stuff like that. There's not like a clear.
That's also a fun
Yeah.
aspect about it, right? Is that you just don't know what this thing is.
100%.
Like you don't know what he was. He talks to himself.
It's an
Like
urban
he has this
myth.
really 100%. And that's really really fun and interesting.
Well, yeah. So I guess from the book perspective, or maybe even just something I haven't picked up on, like that. You're talking about that story of Gollum and people would know him as Smeagol. Like in the Shire, I know the Shire is like a big place. Is it like do people know about that? Would that be like something
Well-
that would just be common knowledge, or something that would be talked about at bars, for example?
I don't
Fuck,
think so.
did you hear about what
I'll-
happened
I'll
to
have to
Smeagol
pull
and
up-
This
Deagle?
hobbit that got corrupted and went down this dark path. Because that would be like a very unique case, you would think, at least in recent history, would be someone going down this path. Because as we know, like most of these hobbits, other than like the Bilbos of the world, like stick to home and stuff like that. At least, I mean, there's different clans and stuff that have different, personalities and such. But I'm curious about that now, because you're talking about in the book, you'd pick up on it right away. So maybe it's because generally it's like just common knowledge. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll have to pull up a map of the Shire because it's definitely like a large location. Like it's not just everybody lives together.
Yeah.
Like that's where I was explaining in the last one, the Fellowship, where like Frodo, like the story around the Shire is that he's moving to go live with like his cousins, and like it's basically like he's moving from I don't know, Kelowna to Penticton or something. Like it's decent ways away. It's almost like another city. It's
Yeah,
still in,
without
like,
a car,
the same
it's
valley.
quite the journey.
Yeah, 100%, right? And like Bree is like kind of on the border of it too. So that's like kind of out of the Shire, but because it's so close, that's why they're so used to like seeing halflings, right? So I don't know exactly all those details on like word gets around, but I also feel like the hobbits are just so preoccupied with eating, drinking, partying that like they don't really like they hear those stories like whatever. Like that's a folk tale, you know.
Right,
Well,
that makes sense.
Well, and I would say it would be folktale too, because at that point they always stress about how the hobbits are like so goodwill and kind spirited and stuff like that. I don't think they would probably think in the scenario like, oh, Smeagol murdered Deagle and all this stuff
Yeah.
like because the ring got involved. I bet if anything traveled around, they would have thought something like a third party would have done something, right? Like they found Deagle and Smeagol could be in the water,
Well-
like he's just missing. I don't think they would have jumped to, oh, he, I think it's more the other worldly characters like the Gandalfs and stuff that once they start to hear things or put them together. And again, I don't think in the books they actually say this is how Gandalf knew this was Smeagol. It's just he just has this knowledge. So maybe it was something, but but they are kind folks. So unless people just really didn't like Smeagol, and they're like, yeah, he definitely killed him.
Yeah, that was actually the case, because another thing you got to remember is Gollum's like 600 years old, right? Like the
Yeah.
ring kept
Yeah.
him alive for a very long time. So
What
like
is the
people
average
in
Hobbit lifespan?
well, Bilbo's extremely old, and he's like 111, and like he wasn't even showing age. So I think Frodo's full age, and he's 50.
So 600 is
I
like
think.
fucked up.
Si-
Like,
yeah, oh,
that's-
it's insane.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's why
exactly.
he looks the way he looks. Yeah,
Exactly, right? So like
Probably
I think
100
just
is the max, I
his-
imagine, right? By like being old, like old,
little bit,
looking
like-
old Hobbit.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
111. Like he should have been like ready to die at
Like
that
Return
point.
the King Bilbo, like that sort of. feel.
Yeah, and like
Yes.
at that point, he's like 170, right? Like, so he is an extremely old case. Gollum had the ring for a very long time. So a lot of people that would have known him as Smeagol, they're all killed off by now,
Yeah.
or like just died of old age. And
Killed off. He came
they
back.
looted all their bodies, like Boromir did. So yeah, that's another thing you got to remember. Whereas like these hobbits, like they're so young, like they probably didn't even know about Deagle and Smeagol and all these other, because they're in a different area too, right? Like they probably just focus on their own realm.
Well, yeah, so I got two. It's tough because when Taylor brought the extended, I was like, oh, yeah, like I should go there. I'm going to save that part because I feel like that'll take us to like a different conversation. But I think my first one would be, I just love the entire sequence of Gandalf and the gang getting to Rohan, and then once he leaves Rohan, and not even for the, late as the hour. Like, we always meme and talk about it. That's a great scene, and all that stuff's good. I love the power of struggle. I love the reveal. I love the cadence of, oh, you wouldn't take a walking stick from an old man. Like, all that's very clever, well shot. I love, it's one of the first and only, not only first dubs, but one of the only dubs that feels good when Saruman's voice is coming through Theoden's body. Usually, though, that looks so bad in movies when you have other actors going through different, you're like, this just isn't working, but the whole thing works. But for me, what really hits is Theoden when he wakes up and he kicks out Wormtongue, but when he finds out about his son, and that whole segment of the funeral, Gandalf consoling him, talking about it in the extended, Arwen is just singing her lungs out and everything like that. But just that speech, and right away, because they have to do a lot of work with Theoden of like, he wasn't in the first movie. You're meeting him very quickly. You're getting introduced to Rohan, and it's lots of exposition of uncle, niece, son, Wormtongue. Like, it's all going quick, but that line that always stuck with me, and I think that really hit me as like a child because I never really thought about that, when he says like no parent should have to bury your child. Right away, you're invested in this character because you know how much they've lost. And again, talk about like selling it. All is crying when he falls down on the knees. It all feels natural. It doesn't feel like movie crying. And there's just that shot of Gandalf watching him from afar, and he's on his knees, and there's all the flowers and the tombs in front of him. So that whole section in Rohan, I absolutely love. And obviously, it kind of gives credence to later on when Theoden's like not really making the greatest decisions, because like, yeah, this guy's been through a lot in the past. Like, I don't know how long, Kirklin will probably remember how long he's actually been in that state, but I love everything about that. And like, we talk about the score all the time, but I love the Rohan themes. I love how much violin they're just going hard on that violin. There's that great tracking shot of when Arwen like runs all the way from the fields to the throne and everything like that. It's just a beauty location. Not the strongest warriors, and I feel like, it's great that they help out and everything, but in these movies, it's like Rohan is it feels like such a small town, but I like that about it. It feels like a smaller section of Middle Earth that they've just lost so many people, and this is what's left. So everything in Rohan is kind of like my highlight and stuff like that.
What do you mean by not the strongest warriors? Because I feel like these guys were ready to go toe to toe.
They are, but like, look how many are left at the end of it. That's my thing in Helm's Deep. You got like, which always is crazy when you think that. Now, I don't know, I can't remember, Kirklin, if this is in the books, that I feel like maybe more survive, and in the movies they just had that way. But it's crazy when you see how many men are lined up, and even children, and there's like 12 dudes left to that like keep. You're like, man, all those kids that were scared out of their mind, they're fucking dead. They're gone.
I just took it that they
like
all went to like out back to.
That's what I
help
tell
family.
myself,
They're in
but
the
like,
caves.
Helps you sleep at night.
Easily at night.
we never get that confirmed. But no, I just feel like they are lower on the food chain. Like, I think they had the spirit of the fight, but they don't have the manpower.
Well,
they don't,
You got to remember, their main fighting force is the Rohirrim, who got banished from the kingdom. So their main army shows up at the end. I don't think a single one of those dudes died. So like their best soldier is
They also had a clear
fine.
advantage. They had the high ground and the
Oh,
sun.
a downhill
high beams.
charge
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
The high beams on. Yeah, they had all like 5 check marks.
And
then,
Gandalf's for sure sending like some magic good vibes.
Oh,
behind him,
100%.
you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
like the morale of
They're all
the,
just
of the
fully
Rohirrim there,
erect.
were
Fully
horses
erect as
too.
they're going.
It hurts
Horse
on the
dick, too.
armor. Like
Yeah.
it's just like
Just
they're all-
slaps the Orca and knocks them out. God.
Yeah, they weren't.
All
even
their
using
horses are
swords.
males. Yeah.
Yeah.
Travis, I got a question for you. Actually, for everyone. Like, why would, in part with the whole Rohan theme here, why would Éomer just ditch his sister?
He was gonna be killed if he didn't.
He got
He was going to be killed if he ditched
I
his
think
sister?
if he showed up, there.
'Cause I
would
thought
be
if he
consequences.
He
stayed
probably would have got
there.
executed, I would
Yeah.
imagined. It's like
I knew he'd
issued
be
by the
executed if he's-
king. That's a big deal.
If he stayed there, I knew he'd be executed, I thought. But, like, because he's banished under penalty of death. But I just thought, like, why would you just not sneak your sister out? Why would you leave him with the worm tongue?
Well, they pulled him out right away, right? Remember?
Yeah,
like,
he didn't
they
have a
beat him up.
chance.
And they
Oh,
pulled him-
yeah, that's true.
They keep
yeah.
socking him and everything
Yeah.
like that. Too long.
And
I've
like
looked at my
for
sister.
like the Rohirrim's point of view, like yeah, they've been banished from the kingdom, but like they're still serving their land. Like they are just decimating orcs, like that are like going through their lands unchecked because Grima Wormtongue is just whispering evil plots into the ear of
That's a
Theoden
great
and just
idea,
allowing it to
Saya.
happen. So then like that's where they like you see that moment when Éomer comes up to him. It's like orcs are going through, they're burying the white hand of Sauron. Like what the fuck is going on here, man? Like do something about
Saruman
it.
would never
He's
do
like
that.
Sauron's
He's
always been
a
a
loyal
friend. Yeah,
and he throws the
exactly.
helmet down.
Yeah, he's just like shook. He's like, what?
That's like the person like, no, baby, it's only you. And then they throw like text message in front of you, like, I don't know whose phone this is, and stuff
yeah.
like that.
He's always
Yeah.
been a loyal friend.
Great shout out to Brad Dourif. He's not in these movies that much, but my God, if people don't know, the voice of Chucky, and he is just. It sucks that he is
Who's
just
this?
the voice of Chucky.
Holy
Wormtongue.
shit, I did not even
Oh, is it
realize
Wormtongue?
that.
Yes, he is.
Oh,
And it sucks because
man.
he's always just known as the voice of Chucky, but he's just such a good character actor. And man, this is a role that could be nothing, could just be on the side, little, but you care so much about this character because he's just so scummy and whatnot. But Brad Dourif just knocks it out of the park, and like I
Oh,
said,
man.
very underappreciated actor. I love this character I love all his interactions with Saruman later on. Saruman just fucking hates this dude so much. Like he throws so much sass at him. He's always, but master, and it's just,
Yeah.
he plays
He's like
that
icing his lip always. Like he's always just bruised
Yeah.
from getting
And
his
he-
ass kicked.
And he's giving like Saruman like actual vital information. It's not like he says nobody knows nothing. He's like giving them strategy and where they're gonna go. But Saruman's just like, you stink of horse, and just like fuck, like like he's worse than what Sam does to Gollum. Like, but Wormtongue's just like, okay, I'm here and stuff like that. Before I forget it, it might be my notes, but just as a joke scene, one of my favorite things is they're talking about them going to Helm's Deep. And Wormtongue's like, but how would you have an army that big? And he's like, well, and he looks outside. I get it because it's for the reveal, but the fact that the whole day he didn't look outside the window and see like this massive army, and when they go outside, the Yurkai are like, rah, rah, like, how did he not hear that chanting all day long of like
he
thousands?
doesn't
So
go outside. He's super pale, man. Are you kidding
Yeah.
me? That guy never goes outside.
it's great for the reveal, but it's just so funny. He's like, but how would you even get that many soldiers? And Saruman's just like, look,
I laughed as well.
It's
in that
all right
scene. And like
there.
I've seen this so many times, but even like I was watching with Shay, and I'm like, this guy needs to go out more. Like,
Yeah.
Jesus, like, you
Yeah.
didn't see all
Where's
those
he
orcs
been?
out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't like that sunlight. I'm glad you brought that up, Travis, because that was something that I was so surprised to see that storyline with Theoden and his son is largely cut out from the theatrical cut.
Yes.
Like they have a line
That's
and there
crazy.
is like a bit of the funeral scene, but even like that first scene when the Rohirrim like they go up to that like riverbank and they find all the bodies in the sun, like that whole part's not there. So really like there isn't ever actually like a shot. I think there's maybe one shot of the sun, but it's never really highlighted, and it's not terribly highlighted in the extended cut either. It's more about like Theoden's perspective of it and showing who his son was or something like that. But yeah, it's interesting. I feel like that storyline has always worked for me, but I just gained like many levels of appreciation for it watching the extended cut here, because you're right, there is a lot more scenes there, and it's great stuff. It's great dialogue, and it's more of that friendship from Theoden and Gandalf as well. So I'm glad you highlighted that. That's a good shout out as well. And then I mean just a couple other things on Rohan in general, like that first shot when it's Gandalf and Aragorn, Legolas, Gimli, when you see the town, like I just love the design of that town so much. Yeah, I agree. That's a fantastic sequence, and yeah, one that changes a lot with the theatrical cut or extended cut rather.
Yeah,
It's
because
so crazy to
theatrical,
me
you
that it's just cut out in the theatrical. Like that's such a big moment for like
Oh, yeah.
character wise, and like I get it, like his
Yeah.
son isn't
I
really
mean, it's
relevant in
just-
the show, but just to have that moment for Theoden,
It's still there. It's just
Mhm.
it is not given nearly as much time to stew and sink in. But yeah,
You
It's
just get
it's
the
just
where.
mentioned essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, you just get the "Where is my son?" and then they do that scene where it is like, "Oh, no parent should have to bury a child," but then that's it. Then they move on. Like, well, times are tough, and
And
it's just
Arwen's
like,
not singing. There's
No.
yeah, you don't even really know it's a funeral, honestly.
no, and it's because he's just by a tomb in theatrical. It's like I guess that's where his son is buried. I guess, and it also makes it feel like to me in the theatrical that his son died and was buried like a few weeks. Like he's been in the ground for a little
Right.
bit. Where this is like, no, this is like a fresh death. Like your son's still like in a morgue somewhere, and they haven't dealt with it because all this shit's going on. I think
In
that
a
Har-
morgue. Yeah, I don't know
Well-
if they have a lot of those. In
no, but I think that
in this
hurts
world.
even more as far as like, of course, when he wakes up, his son's been dead for weeks. That hurts, but the fact that it's just like it's so recent, it's like he could have been snapped out of this like a little bit
Yeah.
sooner and done something and changed something about it. And that's where
Yeah.
I still wonder they don't get in this. I get Aragorn's point of like, oh, enough blood's been like, spilled in his account. But I feel like Theoden every time's like, you should have fucking let me kill that guy, because I agree with Aragorn on so much stuff. In that sense, like, no, you should have let him have this swing. I feel like this would have helped Theoden a lot, and it's not like Wormtongue's gonna have obviously in the
They should at least lock him up. Like
100%.
Yeah.
They let him
You
just
don't have
run
to
through
kill
the
him,
city
but-
with his black drapes, and obviously in Return of the King Extended, it's fine. In theatrical, it's not, because Wormtongue gets nothing. Like that character ends with 2 towers pretty much, and we'll get to Return of the King when they have an
yeah, there's
egregious
some
cut
big changes there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but yeah, and then the other cut thing I was gonna, because I didn't want to mention, because I know we'd go on a different thing, and maybe we'll talk about Faramir too. But we talked about this already in Fellowship. We've talked about this off-cast many times. I'll always say the most crucial scene I wish they never cut out of every movie is the Boromir taking back that city with the Gondor soldiers. My goodness, from everything, if you get to see Boromir completely clean, not sullied by the ring or power, just like this leader, a good man who's joking about drinking ale with people and celebrating and relaxing. You can see how much he loves his brother, because in theatrical, you almost think like he is just shitty, like he and his father were like very close and the brother was always on the outside. You don't get a sense that Boromir and Faramir were really close in the theatrical. They're just, yeah, brother by namesake pretty much. But in this, you can see he was close
See,
with him.
I'm going to disagree with that as someone who's pretty much always watched theatrical. Like they still do a good job with that, and you don't get that whole scene. But just from Faramir's performance, the way he reacts to learning, or
True.
Scene and stuff like that, all his reactions, it all works for me, and I still love that character and that storyline. I totally agree with you. Like that is a major cut, and it changes it a lot. But I still think that storyline works, even if it doesn't have all of the substance to it.
And then what I love too is just that when the father shows up, and one just like how like Boromir doesn't cower, he doesn't cower
The
away.
fucking lines that come out of Denethor's mouth towards
Oh,
Faramir
yeah.
in that secret. I like always forget how savage he is. Like it's
Oh,
the
yeah.
roast of Faramir when Denethor arrives. It's like always you cast your shadow on me. It's just like
We're
always
taking back the
shitting on
city.
him.
No thanks to you, who was supposed to be
I know his
guarding it.
uses, and they are few. Like it's just Boromir being an awesome brother defending him. Fuck, it always cracks me up in those moments because again, Denethor's just become such a meme in my eyes. But everything that he says about Faramir, it's satirical at this point. Like I I get it at the same time, but fuck, it sure takes me out of just. It's so funny. I love it. I love the character Denethor. I know we'll get to that, but
And that's what I love too, that Boromir just doesn't cower away. He does stick up for his brother. And then,
Yeah.
like, literally, I love that scenes that Denethor says to Boromir is exactly what he says at the council. And that's where, again, it gives so much context to the brother relationship, to the father relationship, and to what Boromir was going in with. It, to me, is such a... I remember seeing that for the first time, like, on YouTube somewhere before I had the extended cuts, like, early days of coming out. I was like, they cut this out. I could not believe. And you talk about scenes that to me are essential going forward. This is one where I feel like, again, this is where I'm like, you could take out some Ent stuff and put this scene in here. Put this 5-minute scene. I don't need the Ents standing around talking about they're going to just take an hour to decide, okay, it's funny, haha. No, this one I think is the egregious cut, other than there's one with Saruman in the next movie as well. But yeah, love this scene.
Yeah, I gotta say it's interesting too structurally how there's almost like this passing of the torch where Fellowship is Boromir's story, Two Towers has Faramir's story, and then the third one has Denethor's story. And it's interesting too because in the theatrical, Denethor is just not in that movie at all, obviously, so you don't get introduced him until the third one. So this like passing of the torch element works a lot better here. And obviously Faramir still has a story in the Throne. I'm not saying that, but it's just like of that family, you're kind of getting each movie sort of highlights one of their journeys and where they are. So yeah, I think that's also an interesting element of it as well. That Boromir just does not exist in the theatrical cut here in Two Towers. So yeah, very interesting the way they changed that up. I think this actually gives a lot more just that one scene goes so much to kind of make it feel like a more cohesive trilogy by having those two characters, one carried over into the sequel and then the other one introduced before the sequel that he would eventually be in. So I like all that stuff.
It's again another scene. I probably just would want all these extended scenes in the theatrical just because, but I know that doesn't work that way. So we
I
got the
agree with you,
extended
Taylor.
scene.
Yeah.
But this again is such an absolute incredible scene. I love it. I love when you get that just Gondor score kicking in when he's like, for Gondor, for Gondor. It's just like, yeah, let's go. This is great. And I just had to like revisit it here because it's just Denethor just cracks me up. You just like they're talking about a good moment. You just see the long haired guy in the crowd. Where is he? Where's Gondor's finest? And the look on Faramir's face just drops. It's so good.
It's the funniest thing too in that scene is that it's like Boromir, like Travis, you shouted, like he's the one that's kind of carrying. It's like, fuck, why did he have to show up right now? Just like take this moment away. And that's
Give him a
Boromir.
moment of peace. He says, give him a moment of peace.
Yeah, no, I love that. And just to add on, like everything that Travis said of just like the importance that this gives to that initial fellowship scene, completely agree. Like I feel like every time that we talk about these extended scenes, like it's the reason why I just don't watch the theatrical versions anymore. Like it's not worth it. Maybe it is worth it, but you know what I'm getting at. I feel like I'm missing out on a lot of stuff. And just like the moment where Denethor says exactly, or maybe a better way to say that is Boromir says exactly what Denethor says to him, and it totally makes sense on why Boromir has this motivation. Like in his perspective, if he doesn't bring this weapon back to Gondor, like all of his friends and family, like they're just dead. Like that, all of this weight is on him to really push and be that bad guy of like, no, we have to take this ring to Gondor. You guys aren't on the front lines. You're not seeing what's going on. Unfortunately for him, he's just a man that's probably like 35 or something, dealing with elves that have been around for like 3,000 years. So they have a bigger picture on what's going on. Right. But still, from his perspective in that moment, this scene really just enriches that so much. And even without that, honestly, just getting Boromir, peak Boromir of like just captain of Gondor.
Yeah.
He's probably a higher captain. Would he be a captain or would he be a higher rank or something? Same as Faramir?
I
don't know if they say a title to him.
I don't think they do. I feel like if there's like a list of captains, he's definitely Captain A.
General of Gondor.
Yeah.
General of Gondor. That's probably it.
He's the
honestly.
lieutenant.
Yeah. He's just Denethor's son. That's his title. So like just seeing him like raising the flag and again just being like the pinnacle of men. Like all of the soldiers are seeing this one dude, and as long as he's happy and cheering, like they feel confident that they can follow this guy into battle. And I feel like just having those moments, it goes such a long way of even just filling, like just boosting like Boromir in the first movie, but also just kind of like showing what like the races of men can kind of like have their perspective on it of like this is like the men like really unison and like really joyous on being like, you know what, we have a chance, like, you know, like this is a long war, like this is one battle that we won, who knows, like in that moment they probably thought they could fucking march down the Black Gates,
all
honestly.
erect like the Rohirrim were.
Like they're jazzed, they're ready to go. And I love that that's shown in here because we really don't get a lot of moments like that with at least like the men, especially like the kingdom of Gondor, like because later on when we see them, it's just in times of peril and like the fucking Nazgul are coming in. Yeah,
and Return the King too later on, like they're just getting towns taken over and stuff like that. So they're always
I think the Shelob.
Did you see a Nazgul there, Taylor?
Yeah.
All right.
Like I was gonna say, like the only other time that we see Gondor kind of cheering like that is right at the end of Return of the King, right when like King Elisar is basically getting crowned. So I think this is a very, very important scene, not only just for like the ties to the fellowship sequence, but also just showcasing what men can really be all about. And I love it for that sequence. And like again, like because I haven't seen theatrical in a while, it's tough for me to discern like which scenes are deleted or not. But I totally back Travis's opinion that this is probably like one of the most important I agree with you, Travis, though, including the Return of the King one. I'm not going to mention it right now, but just realizing
Yeah.
certain scenes that get cut out, it's like I can't believe that they would have done that, and then versus some of the ones that they would have kept in. I don't know.
It's strange because I just feel it also helps Faramir, who's a character that carries over into 3. I could understand if Faramir was just in this movie, and like, let's just get him from point A, point B, tell a story, and that's good enough.
Yeah.
But like, he plays a big part in Return of the King. He has enough dialogue and screen time where this is still vital to kind of bring up this character and like kind of like spruce it up a little. So it's always strange because like also like this scene is what 5 minutes. It's like would this have made it that much more if you would have made the theatrical like 5 more?
Right.
Everything else I could see, like you don't have to keep, but this is one where I'm like, I feel like it is for Faramir like very vital to his character, but oh well, didn't happen.
And like Faramir, I don't think this is a deleted scene, but like he arguably has one of the most important decisions in the entire War of the Ring,
Yes.
right? Like he literally has that moment where he makes one decision and the entire war is lost, but he doesn't, and he just kind of trusts his instincts there and basically causes like insubordination and like even like his own men. It's like you realize what this means, right? He's like, yeah, no, I'm totally gonna just make my decision anyways. And I feel like just that fact alone kind of makes me think Faramir gets underappreciated a little bit because like I don't know, like would Boromir would have done the same? I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. I think this
Yeah.
shows. I think this shows the difference that he had
Just
that
to
quality. You
show
know?
his quality, yeah, you know it.
He had the quality and stuff. And plus, so the difference is Boromir was like Faramir is under pressure, but I feel like Boromir's under more pressure. So maybe you could argue
Yeah.
if you didn't have Denethor under Boromir's like neck, being like, "You gotta get the ring." You gotta get... So maybe he could have, but in that situation, it's all situational. But that to me was like, it's probably happens. I don't know runtime, but happens at a very similar time when Boromir is trying to take the ring from Frodo.
Yeah,
when he
you're
gets
probably
that
not wrong.
when he gets that decision, and that's where I think this show that is him showing his quality that he lets them go and stuff like that. He
Yeah.
kicks the shit Gollum, but then he lets them go.
I will say too, like maybe Faramir only makes this decision because Boromir died, and like Sam
True.
does give
Yeah.
that story. So it is tough to say in the
He
this
also
what if
hasn't had
scenario.
the time to be corrupted by the ring.
That's very
True,
true.
yeah.
Yeah.
Though I don't think that's like the major thing that changes it. I mean, it's a factor, but I don't think it's like
Yeah.
the main thing.
Exactly. Yeah. True. Wonder if what if Faramir was hiking with them for months? Like, would he have that same mindset? You don't know. You know, like I feel like the other people.
He wouldn't have
didn't, but
spoke up like Boromir would. He was like, "Fuck, I am totally on my wheelhouse right now. I'm just a captain of Gondor. Look at these people."
I would love to say when we talk, like I always say with Star Wars, I would want like a Lord of the Rings. What if Faramir went to the Rivendell cons?
Yeah.
Because he tries. He's like, I can go in his stead, and Denethor does not want any part of that conclusion. Like, I'm like what?
You're a scraggly ass. No way.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
no way you're going and stuff. And Boromir doesn't even want to go. That's another thing about the thing. He would rather Faramir go. He wants to stay here with his men and keep fighting. He doesn't
Yeah.
want to go to this council thing. Like he believes his place is here to help the men, whether he lives or dies. And that's why Faramir's like, I'll go. He's the leader. Let me go. But no, it's too. He literally says it's too important for someone of whatever. Just insult, and stuff like that. You know. So. Let's take an ad break, then we'll move on to our next topic. So we'll be right back. And we're back. Where do we want to go now?
I have an
What
idea.
a good question. Sorry, did you say
Okay.
you have an idea?
I have an idea. Is
Well,
it
then
too
let's
early
hear
to
it.
bring up Gandalf here? My main man Gandalf, the return of the Maiar, of just his.
I would like to. I wonder how long Taylor's
Okay,
going to be
nice.
gone because I'm sure he wants to be here for this. But let's get into it.
Absolutely, yeah. So this is a moment. Obviously, Travis got it spoiled big time, but
Yeah.
I feel like just overall, like it wasn't really a shock when he came back because I'd probably just known that there was Gandalf the Grey, Gandalf the White. Like before I even like really dissected these films, probably just playing like the tie-in games and stuff. It's pretty easy to discern that like
He's
this
all over the
character-
posters.
Yeah, exactly. And so I and again, like I feel like I've just kind of accepted, like, okay, he falls here, and then somehow he gets back. And I didn't really like try to like digest or even just like look into like the importance of what this event actually is. Of like, it's not like he just got resurrected or something and he's just here to pop off. Like the fact that he literally like he so the Astari, that's the main word for the wizards. So the blue wizards, Radagast, Travis's favorite, like Sauron, Gandalf, like those are the Astari that were sent by the Valinor, or the Valar to Middle Earth to just help people out and like stop the forces of evil. They were there with like a specific task, and nobody listened to what they're doing. They just kind of had their own ambitions. We were memeing about the Blue Wizards and partying in the East on the last episode, but also just Saruman. Obviously, he had his own ambitions, and then Radagast was just so enamored with nature. Gandalf was the only wizard that actually like stayed true to what he was doing. So when he died there, like full honors, like like he is like in the eyes of the Valar, and even just like the creator itself, Aru Ilúvatar. It's like this is the one individual that actually did something good, and like we're just gonna promote him to like the status of Gandalf the White. And I feel like that moment, the more I really like sit on it, even just now, like sometimes I just catch myself just thinking about like, again, it's all fictional world, but like just what could have like through the eyes of Gandalf there, and even just like the lines that he drops there where he's like and I faded into darkness and I just walked along the path, and every single day was the length of an entire human lifetime. And like how long he did that for from his own perspective, like for him it makes total sense that he doesn't fucking remember his name. Like when he comes back, like it's probably been like centuries or something, right?
I have a question on this then. Why does he still know Frodo's name, or why does he still know like the overall goal? Can you explain that for me?
Yeah.
I just feel like I feel like it just slowly comes, like the overall goal. I think that could be tied to like the higher power. I feel like the Frodo, everything like that. The second people say Gandalf, I think it just slowly starts to come back. Like maybe someone coming out of a coma, where it's like coming in, like, oh yeah, I remember Bilbo and stuff like that.
Yeah, like it's interesting too because Gandalf is a Maiar, right? So he's an angelic being. When he dies, like it doesn't matter that he died fighting the Balrog there. If he would have died somewhere else, like he just goes to Valinor. Like he just goes to the Undying Lands and just lives where he was already living before he was sent to Earth. So same sort of thing that happens with like someone like Sauron or Saruman. Like they don't actually die. It's just their physical form gets destroyed. And so like he always kind of just has his own psyche. I think because he's just been around for so long, it probably just gets totally like muffled around. Like I was talking about a little bit about it on our last week's last week's episode of how like the elves, like their memories, like they just kind of they remember certain things, but because they just live so long, like they just kind of see it as a dream. Like, oh yeah, no, I kind of remember that going on there, and it maybe just need like some time to like actually get that around. But another thing with Gandalf is because he is a wizard, he's actually blessed with like foresight, so that's what allows him to make these just super sweet predictions, like look to me on the 7th day on the whatever hour, like so specifically. Like Aragorn's like, okay, what does that mean, but like for him to be that accurate, and like
I also wanted to ask what that means, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, so he most likely honestly saw his own death coming. Like he just sees into the future, and he still makes decisions that could possibly put himself at harm or other people at harm, but it is the right decision. Elrond is another person that can that has foresight. I don't know if that's tied to his ring or whatnot, or just like a specific power that he has, but yeah, like with Gandalf, just remembering his name, it is the same person, it's the same spirit, but he just has a new body. Or maybe he doesn't even have a new body. That's where it's kind of tough.
I wanted
specifically
to ask about that, like from when he dies. What'd you say, Travis?
Can I be a little younger, this body? No, you're getting that
some abs. Can I get some abs?
Yeah. No, this body again? Okay, I'll take it.
It's like I can still feel when I hit my head on the chandelier.
Yeah. Can you deal with this bruise? I'm colorblind
just a
in the
huge
left eye.
goose egg.
So obviously
like,
he mentions
fine.
that he, experienced time, like, whatever he experienced like millions of years, whatever the heck it is, some long amount of time. So, but like in real world time, is it like the moment he dies, he's back again in terms of like timeline of stuff, or is it like a week has passed and in that time he experienced a million years, but then he comes back? And then my question was like, does he wake up in that? Because I guess we'll see that scene where he like wakes up again, right? So he is still in the same body.
Yeah, he wakes up on the mountain again, and when he wakes up,
fully nude.
Literally, he's literally butt ass naked, and he mentions that he just kind of wandered, and his main homie, the person that keeps coming to save him, Gwahir, like the Lord of the Eagles, picks him up, and even just comments on like like, holy shit, dude, like, you're different. Like, you're so much lighter than what you were. Like, light actually, like, goes through him. Like, he's so changed, which is obvious. Like, it makes sense because he's no longer Gandalf the Grey. He's Gandalf the White. And then Guahir flies him to Lorien. And it's actually crazy when I learned about this. It's like basically right when the Fellowship leaves Lorien is when Gandalf like arrives there, and then Galadriel like kind of helps like get him back to like working for him. He's probably hitting the heavy bag or something, like getting in good shape, ready to kick
Put on
ass.
some clothes, Gandalf, please.
Yeah. No dong in Lorien, please.
Yeah, we dated a long time ago. That's not a thing anymore, Gandalf.
Oh God, don't mention that.
Peter Jackson canon. Peter Jackson canon.
So like that's just so fascinating to me. Again, like the timing of it, like the Fellowship isn't just mourning in that period. Like they're never gonna see Gandalf again. And then literally, if they just stayed like, I don't know if it's an hour or 10 minutes or whatnot, but like Gandalf was there, but it's all kind of according to plan. Like at the same time, there, like Gandalf did foresee that moment happening. Something that, I mean, like some of his foresight kind of gets not the most accurate, especially around the hobbits. And I'll bring that up a bit on why the hobbits are so fantastic. And it makes sense why Gandalf's just so obsessed with them. But in that moment, yeah, he comes back in the same body. I would imagine it's like pretty short after like his death. He just comes back as just like a skeleton. It's all like just eaten by vultures. I don't think that's the case. I guess he's on top of a mountain, so it's probably well preserved, nice and cold. But yeah, no, it's definitely the same body. And then he doesn't just like spawn in, like a a respawn something like Guahir,
like,
the MVP of the untold or the unsung hero. I would say Guahir is, because he's just always popping up and saving our heroes and when we need them. So.
Now, one other question, and you might be annoyed by this one, but like, that Balrog fight, we talked about how that goes on for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't he just like leave at some point? Like, is it really that important that you fight this Balrog for the rest of the journey to be successful? Is that Balrog really going to be the thing that stops the ring from getting to Mordor? Is that worth risking his own life? I mean, I guess maybe you're saying that
better
he feels
kill
so
me, Gandalf.
confident
If you don't,
that he would
I'm
come
gonna
back.
show up later.
Yeah, I'm gonna fuck up those wood elves.
Like, I could say that he did try, right? Like, he made the Balrog fall, and it's like, okay, now I can just leave, and then the Balrog just grabbed him. So I don't think he could have just ran away, really. I think the Balrog
But we're saying they
was
fall
pretty...
for so long that they eventually get to the top of the tallest mountain. Like, so that
Yeah.
battle, he's trekking up a hill. Like, why don't you just not go up
Well,
the hill?
if they battled to the Shire, I'm sure the Balrog would have just like, that was just like their trajectory. I'm sure, and maybe again, like, I don't have all the details on that specific fight, unfortunately. I'm excited to just see how much detail it is, because I feel like in the movie they do a good job of just giving the viewer like the scale of like how big of a deal this fight actually is. Like, it's not just they fought for 3 minutes and then they end. Like, no, they battled from the darkest depths to the highest mountain. Like, they are so even. Like, they're such on an even playing field. Gandalf finally gets like the upper hand on him, but his body's just broken, and like as soon as he kills him, like he just fades into darkness. And because at the end of the day, they are the same being. Like the Maiar, I don't think they're necessarily called the Astari. Let me rephrase. The Balrog isn't necessarily like an Astari, because that's like the name for the wizards, but they are Maiar. It's just they've been completely corrupted by Morgoth in the first age. And I think it's another thing too, where it's just like a yin and yang, like where like the Balrog is just like the complete opposite of what Gandalf is, so maybe only one of them can really like make it out of it. In this case, both of them didn't make it out of it. But it's also just such an evil thing in the world that he probably did a service to the free people of getting rid of this thing, because he probably would have just gone back to sleep if he killed Gandalf there. Who knows? Maybe he would have just been jazzed and like, what else can I do here? Like, I just killed this thing that's the same power level as me. Like, let's go pop off
Fuck up
now.
Helm's Deep.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
Where's
gonna take that
Theoden? Where's Theoden?
I just took it for literal that the Balrog was not going to let Gandalf lead. Like, one of them had to die, and that's how I take it. Like, Gandalf would try to go, and then the Balrog would just follow him out. So that's how I always took it. It was just one of them had to die, and well, I guess both of them.
Yeah, I guess if they're fighting for several days or weeks, I just figured like maybe at some point he could sneak around a corner,
Yeah.
I don't know how much that's worth thinking about.
And then again, just I'll let Taylor jump in on this fun Gandalf talk, but I just gotta stress how big of a deal it is for like Gandalf literally to just be selected by like Iluvatar. Like there's angels, there's gods and stuff, but like above every single like there's like like you guys have heard the name Morgoth, like that was the original big bad. All of these are just like pawns in Eru Iluvatar's plan. Like he is the one being. Like it's just such a significant moment that like he literally just like grabbed Gandalf and been like, "You're the fucking man, dude. Like I'm sending you back because you're so awesome." And like I feel like just the scale of like this one creator, like literally the creator that made everything. He made all good, all evil, all everything. Like this is him putting this out in the world, and he just grabbed this one being. Like it just it blows my mind. Yeah, essentially it completely blows my mind when I just sit and like think about it. It's just like, oh my gosh, like that's just so crazy to me, and it's such a rare occurrence for people to like come back. It's definitely happened before. The other occurrence was Glorfindel in the First Age. Funny enough, he fought a Belrog, and he fell fighting the Belrog.
That's the trick, eh? Die to a Belrog and then you get brought
well,
back.
he like they were trying to escape the city of Gondolin, and then like he saved Elrond's grandparents like in that evacuation. Like they would have just got murked. So it's just crazy like the ripple effects that it has. And then he was brought back in the Second Age because again like he was just so honorable and such an amazing deed that they sent him back. And again, that's a character that's not in like the Peter Jackson movies at all, but he's probably like my favorite elven character. So hopefully in the future I'll get some Glorfindel content.
Nice.
So why is this god just letting like Frodo suffer so hard?
Eru Iluvatar, it's all part of his plan. I don't know. I'm not
What
a
is-
god,
what-
so I
what
can't
is
really
God let-
digest.
Taylor, how often? I don't want to.
Don't even say it. Yeah.
How often do you hear it's all part of God's plan in our world, right? And, there's always a reason.
I guess, but if you were to say like, God made the bad and the good, like Kirklin said, I'd be excommunicated.
Oh yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, you said like this god created the good and the bad, so he just like he's
But
playing.
like, is it good or
both.
bad? Like, I don't know. That's a human outlook on it, right? So like, that's what's so
bad.
interesting.
They
When you
create
get into
bad.
some Silmarillion content,
They
Taylor,
did
one day
bad.
we'll cover the Silmarillion. Like Morgoth, like the main
Volcanoes
bad guy.
are bad, okay?
I was gonna say, I was gonna use volcanoes example. Volcano comes, kills
I like
dozens
that
of men,
analogy.
women, and children. Bad.
Lakes
No
are
good.
awesome.
It
Volcanoes-
fertilizes the earth, maybe. Who knows? Maybe it purges the parasites on the earth. Who knows? But like also just again, really quick Silmarillion piece. But like Morgoth, the main big bad, like he's just fucking shit up, and he's getting so pissed because Eru is just like everything you're doing is what I put into play. So like keep going, man. But like you're basically just acting out my will, and that just pisses off Morgoth even more. Like it's so crazy when you get into like the actual creation of just everything, and again it's on a whole nother scale. It makes sense when they don't go into it really, especially in just a trilogy movie.
No place in these movies. for
No,
that,
it's so like it's so hard to wrap your head around some of these things, but again like just
well, a lot
the
of
fact
that
that
stuff
they
like
mention
people wouldn't
him,
know anyway. Like these
No,
characters
exactly.
that we're seeing, like
and you don't need
Frodo
to know
doesn't
it
know
to
about
enjoy
this
it.
guy and Morgoth and stuff like this, right?
Yeah, Aragorn does. He mentions Morgoth in the movies. He drops that name. But yeah.
The
But he
fucked
doesn't
him
know about like the godly connection to him and stuff. I'm assuming. I don't know.
I don't
Maybe-
really know like the whole
does.
religious pantheon, at least in these worlds. I'm sure like each. Yeah, that's. I never really actually wondered that. Like it's probably a very elven thing to like focus on like the specific Valar because they're like.
After
basically
1,000
descendants
years of
that.
life, you're like kind of bored. You're like, maybe I'll learn some lore today.
Yeah. Why are we here? They like
Yeah.
after 3,000 years they finally asked that question.
Yeah.
But Taylor, what do you think about just Gandalf coming back and just reemerging as? Because that's what I was talking about was him, the resurrection, appearing as Gandalf the White. I didn't even talk about the specifics when they're splicing like Saruman's voice with Sauron.
Yeah.
Such a great reveal. I love it so much. How it's like it starts with oh my God, what's the actor's name?
Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee's voice, and then splices in with Ian McKellen. Oh, it's just such a masterful reveal.
I was
it.
thinking about this yesterday. If just say like Ian, like I do not think of Ian McKellen as an Ian. You know, if you just say his first name, it doesn't feel right. You guys agree with
Ian.
that?
No, I'm on the other side. I think he looks completely like an Ian.
You think
Ian?
that's
Looks like a
him-
McKellen. I don't know about any of them.
I think
don't know,
it
I
looks
think
like a
so,
Magneto.
yeah,
I just think
Ian
of, like,
Holm look
just
like
the name
Ians.
Ian. Like I don't think of him. I think of that as like a more millennial name or something. I don't know.
What name would you give him?
Maybe like Jesus
Like a
Christ
Roger.
or something.
I was gonna say a Roger.
Morgoth.
Morgoth. Yeah. Eru Iluvatar.
Yeah.
Uh,
Gandalf the
yes,
White.
Gandalf the White. Little Taylor was totally just eating that up. I was like, oh my god, it's Saruman. It's Christopher Lee in the woods. Like, be careful, heroes. But no, I
Fuck 'em
think
all up. Audio's dead.
movie.
Yeah.
Can't you hear me? Be careful.
Yeah. I killed Merry and Pippin. Now you're next. Boom, and that's it. That storyline's done.
Mom, this is the wrong VHS. That's the
yeah. But overall, I loved having him back. The memory stuff was definitely a little bit of a twist because I just felt like it makes sense. And obviously, when you're older, you understand the death concept a little bit more and understand like, okay, he's reincarnated or he was brought back. I guess I should say not reincarnated, and you can kind of piece that together as to why he's got different like lapses of memory. I guess kind of distorted because I mean he died, for crying out loud. We got to see that whole time lapse of him going and transcending through time and coming back. So I, at the end of the day, love that they brought him back. I haven't read the book, so at this point in time, I never had that instance with you, Travis, where like the trailers and stuff was spoiled where Gandalf was coming back. So that was completely, I remember it caught me off guard and I was super stoked on that because I love Gandalf. Nice. And he just comes in and he's just absolutely like the holiest of holies. He just totally drops Aragorn's sword, breaks the arrow, and Gimli's axe gets bopped. And then he just walks out of the woods. He's like, woo, woo. And then the horse of Lord of Horses comes storming out. Like, he's just like, oh, Gandalf has ascended here. This is a whole new peak. And he just, I always find it funny, though, because he's like, oh, it's a Shadowfax. You know, he says something like he's been my friend for many an age or something like that. But I was like, I don't remember Shadowfax with you in the first movie. So
Well, Gandalf's
was this
pretty old,
like,
right?
I
Just like
guess so.
like many trials, I think he's like just very like many like yeah, just problems that they've had to come through together. And it's funny too because it's portrayed like this is just some godlike horse that just like appears to Gandalf when he calls to him. But like it's literally just a horse from Rohan. It's like it's their best horse. And then when
Just
you have
steals
like
it.
corrupted
Bucks off
Theoden,
the
like
rider
literally,
and goes
no,
off.
literally
I give
when
your
you
king
have
back. Give me the fucking horse.
it's hilarious when you have corrupted Theoden. He's like, that fucker stole our best horse, essentially. Again, paraphrase. That's not actually what he says. It's not Tolkien words in my mouth. It's just, it's hilarious that it's just, oh no, Gandalf just came in and just took Shadowfax because he's just used them before. And yeah.
I'm just picturing Gandalf like crouching in the tall grass, like sniping the guy off the horse, and then he's like, "Come here, boy."
With his like staff, yeah. And
I
yeah,
gotta
one
say,
of the
too,
one of the
I don't-
best whistles I think I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah,
Oh my
it like
gosh, nice
transcends
drawn out.
time. It like freezes the whole world for a moment. I gotta say, I don't know if this is like another plot hole, or maybe I'm missing something, but Legolas, Aragorn, and Gimli, like they go into the forest, obviously, and once again, as soon as they emerge, as you mentioned, Taylor, their horses are with them again, but their horses were not in the forest with them, so don't know what's going on there. I guess they also did a whistle at some point.
They went around.
But
They went
but I feel
around.
like they got the alert. They got these horses like minutes ago, so it's not like, oh, that's
Yeah.
Aragorn's whistle. I better go to my master. Like it's. I think it's just one of those things where it's like, how did Gandalf get his staff back? It's like there's probably not an answer for it. It may be a little plot holy thing.
Yeah.
Well, like with that, that's definitely something where the book handled that differently. So then going from like the movie version, instead of like having this event of like Gandalf disguised as Sauron like stealing their horses and just like, oh, now we're without our horses, now what are we gonna do? And then like some time passes and then they happen to be in the woods, and then that's when like Saruman, as he should have been, appears. Gandalf the White appears, and then when he's coming out, it's like, oh yeah, I got your horses here. So that would have been maybe we'll get the extended cut someday.
Yeah, it's very minor. It's not something I ever noticed until, doing this like a very introspective
Well,
look at these movies where it's like, I'm wondering where those horses came from. But
It's funny that you mention it because I didn't even realize that like they just have their horses and then they don't until I went through the book and they lose the horses. And then I'm like, how did that happen in the movie again? And then as you laid out, they just don't have them. So it's like, oh, that actually boosted my viewing experience
Yeah.
like in the past because I didn't notice this plot hole.
Yeah, it's not needed to fill in the story there. I will say a couple things in that part of the story. From when they meet Gandalf to when they end up in Rohan, a couple things the extended scene or the extended cut adds there is one where Gandalf and I think Aragorn it's at nighttime and they're looking out. I think they can see Mount Doom or something like that, and he's just talking about the upcoming war. And then there's another scene with the two. I can't remember what dialogue is there, but just a couple more scenes between Gandalf and Aragorn before the rest of the plot stuff advances. So I liked those additions, just seeing more of a connection between those two and kind of filling each other in on what they've missed in the time apart. So I like those additions.
Which I like
There's-
because I feel like in theatrical, Gandalf's in it for quite a bit, but like once he goes, he's gone. So it feels like we meet him. We have our, oh, I'm back, turn the tide, all this stuff. We're gonna save Theoden. Okay, I'm gonna go get an army. I'll see you later. So I like an extended. He actually feels much more like a character. In theatrical, it's very not even supporting role. It's just more, I would say appearance, because it is like 20-25 minutes, but just opposed to where we got from the first film, where he's a main character and all the other characters that are in this. I guess Merry and Pippin too, if you looked at theatrical, they're in it a lot, but their scenes are quite small. But that's why I like extended for him, because I like you guys said, I love all this stuff. I appreciate this storyline more now I'm older, because the same thing when I was young, I was like, why is he not remembering stuff? I didn't like the idea that this could be like a new Gandalf or something like that. I didn't like any of that, but he's used well in here, and yeah, I'd agree. Extended beefs up his role a bit.
How do you guys feel about Gandalf being missing for a huge section of this? I know it's kind of like the framing of it from just a movie perspective is that it's supposed to be a big valiant surprise when they comes over the hill and Helm's Deep to save the day, obviously, but just like thinking back on it now, where obviously we know the events of all these things before they're going to happen because we've watched it so many times. How do you feel about Gandalf just being missing for that large amount of time? And do you wish we maybe had a scene or two where we could see him communicate with Aemir and those crew, or just see what he's doing? Or are you fine with just like that being left up to interpretation exactly how it goes?
Good feeling.
I'm gonna shut out on the pedestal of not needing it. I actually really like the idea of just him being gone for that portion, because we get a heavy dose of him. He's back, and it's just like, hey, we got our Gandalf here. It's great, and he's doing all these things, and he's helping turn the tide. And him being gone is fine, because then we have our focus on our three kind of storylines, where you have the Tree Ents, and then you have Frodo, Sam, and Smeagol, and then you have the Battle of Helm's Deep. I don't know what real dialogue you'd really get. I mean, it'd be cool to kind of see like Gandalf just storms in, like, oh, you turn around, shit's going down, like we gotta go back. But I don't know if there's enough juice there.
Stop!
He's just chasing them for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Listen here, I am your friend.
Who are you,
I
old
like-
man?
I don't know Gandalf the White. I'm sorry. No, I'm the same guy. I swear. No,
I'm
I
doing
think,
a poor job at explaining it.
I think I'm with Taylor, where I think for me it's kind of like the extended stuff though, where I would take it if it was there, but I think for the overall movie it works with him not being there. Obviously he couldn't be around with our heroes just from like the actual book story of, if he was there at Helm's Deep, it would not feel that same type of like direness, because you'd be like, well, we got Gandalf here and he has some magical shit that could help us out. So if there were these scenes, I would completely take them, but yeah, I don't think they're needed per se, especially because Return of the King, at least he returns as being a fully main character again. If he would have had the same screen time he did in this, then I would have felt a little lackluster. And I still miss him, because like I said, when he rides off, it does feel like there's kind of a hole because we just got him back, but I think it's fine with how it happens.
I guess I feel it more in the extended cut when there's a lot more time,
That's fair.
a lot more chunk of time there. It's like, oh yeah, I have not seen Gandalf in a very, very long time.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all. I agree with what you guys said, where extended, I would have just taken a little bit more of it. But I also feel like just in the heat of the Helm's Deep battle, because like that one line, especially if this is your first time like watching it, and like he just, when he leaves the stables, like, look to me on the seventh day at the first light, like, look to the east. And like that's all he says. He doesn't say like, I'm gonna come with the Rohirrim and I'm gonna save the day at Helm's Deep. Like he doesn't say that at all. He's always speaking in riddles, as Aragorn mentions to him. He's like, some things never change. He's still speaking riddles. Oh, you get that little chuckle from Gandalf. I always love that. But I love it because in the heat of the battle, I feel like it's really easy to just kind of forget about that line happening. So then it feels like so much peril in that last moment. It's like they're literally just gonna ride out here. If the third movie's not out yet, if you didn't read the books, it's like this could be the end of our heroes here. Like this is actually the dire straits. Like this is terrible. And then when they ride out, and then what do you know? They're looking to the east. It's first light on the whatever day, and then he appears, and it's just a goosebumps moment for me. I feel like also if I wanted to defend it even further, it's just like, it's all part of the plan. Gandalf had this foresight. He knew what was going to happen. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm totally fine with it too. I'm just so used to it at this point, but I think it could have been interesting to explore something there where I feel like, Travis, you mentioned Eomer and that character, how he maybe doesn't have a ton to work with, and I think that could have been an interesting, potentially emotional moment where he's learning of what's going to happen, and knowing that Arwen is there, that could make him pretty emotional and stuff like that to see this turn. I don't think it would take much convincing from anyone really to say, hey, all your people are going to die. I know they kicked you out and all, but like, these are your family members and friends and all this stuff, so you should come back and save them. But I think the other thing for me is like that first scene we get of the Rohirrim when, Aragorn jumps out from the rock and like hails to them and they come around. I don't feel like there's that many of them there, especially if you compare it to how many are there in Helm's Deep. So I guess I'm curious, like, is there a section of that where Gandalf and Eomer, or just Gandalf, is getting a bunch of other people together? And if so, I'm curious, like, if he's building the team there with other clans of riders or something, which I don't think those exist, so I don't know if it's just for a cinematography thing, whatever reason, I don't know. But I just feel like maybe there's a bit of a disconnect there in terms of, like, just the numbers of people that are there. Does not feel like the amount of people that Aragorn saw on that hill are the amount that we see in Helm's Deep. So.
The numbers, you're totally right, because there is a lot more, and I would speculate that they would have gone out and recruit. The only thing, too, is then if you show that kind of a scene, then you have kind of like a Return of the King sequence, right, where they're going around recruiting people there. So maybe that was the issue, and they didn't want to do that in here, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely not needed. I'm just trying to speculate on, like, what would you do if you had another scene with Gandalf? Like, what would it involve? And those are the things I come up with in terms of, like, what I would be curious to see.
I will say that, like, I love the scene. I know we'll fully get into Helm's Deep, but like what Dylan's mentioned there, when they get on the bridge there, and as Aragorn and Gimli versus all those people, completely unbelievable. It does, the pure numbers of manpower does not make sense for them to take. And I get it because they're not as smart and they're all brute, but it's just like the way they shoot that, it looks like an impossibility of, I don't care how good Aragorn is. It's just, and especially at 1.2, when the Yurga like wraps them both up.
He
and
grabs them both. He like headlocks them.
And they're still just like, and it's like, okay, this is like, I love Helm's Deep, but our characters have so much plot armor in that one.
Yes.
It is ridiculous. And I think it's not hurted over the history, but definitely as I'm older, I'm like, this is like a little bit of like, you couldn't have just maybe like a section of the Uruk-hai on the bridge, not entire. It's like from the ground to the bridge, like all of them are lined up, getting ready to go and stuff like that.
That's
but
so good.
then he tosses a good dwarf, and you forgive the scene. You know, you go,
Don't
this is
tell the
great.
elf.
Yeah. Not a word. Vigo's delivery is so good. I'm gonna take an ad break because I actually have no fucking clue when I took an ad break last. So we'll be right back. And we're back. Okay, I'm on track. It's all good. Where do we want to keep talking about this? Something new? Whatever.
Oh,
It's all flowing.
I got something if you guys are ready for it.
Oh, God.
Hit me with it.
Okay, well, Kirklin, I already hit you with it, Kirklin.
Oh,
yes.
no.
So you guys all know Hama, right? This guy? He's like, he's the one who was going to take Gandalf's staff, but chose not to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So did you know that this guy is his son?
I did once you upload the photos, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Hela, son of Hama. So I had no idea that was his son. Not good odds, considering his father died already.
And he's dead, too, because he was in
Did
that
he?
Are you sure he's dead? You
He
confirm
wasn't in that keep at the end with all our
Could have
characters.
been with the women and children, though.
Exactly. He could have
But
been
like,
hiding.
but that doesn't make sense, like, because you said that. I know you want them to be alive, but like, if they were to go to those women and children, then the Uruk-hai would know exactly where to get them. There would be an opening, stuff like that.
They were going to barricade it, right? Barricade the entrance.
So how that guy got in?
He went in before they barricaded
Really?
it.
No, they're all dead, Taylor. All those kids are dead. All those young guys they're gone.
He's a failed king, I would say. I mean, he just killed like
Did he?
300 children. Yeah, he killed like 300 children, and
All of them, Gandalf and Aragorn, are like, why are we doing this? Like, this isn't this isn't the play. And like, I chalk it up to he's rusty, he's emotional, he's just trying to save his people, and he's going to what's worked in the past. But that's the whole point. They're trying to tell him that worked in the past. This isn't the past. They're more ferocious. They're greater numbers. It's Saruman and Sauron, and that he just doesn't get it. And I think it kind of shows of like, I think that plays more in Return of the King too, as far as like a, you know, with Arwen, like she could be a leader, and it's kind of playing out that like, well, the man has to be the leader because it's in the bloodline and he should reign over. But it kind of says, no, this isn't just the only way of doing things. So yeah, I agree with you. Like, I love Theoden, but not the greatest king. Even some what I hate too is, and I think it fits with his character, like how arrogant he is. It's like, this is the best Sauron and Sauron's army can do while these people get slaughtered an hour later and he's walking over dead kids. And it's like, but I just take that as like he was arrogant and he just thought he was behind the times in this situation.
Well, like men in this world just generally suck, like the race of men. With the exception of Aragorn, but he's got like elven blood in him, so
exactly,
that's
it's a
why.
cheat. Yeah.
But like everyone else is like they're deeply flawed and not that smart and stuff like that. I mean, they have their moments for sure, but yeah, Theoden. I mean, I get it too. Like he wakes up essentially from this curse, and that's fucked up. Obviously, he gets all this information, and then he's just like tasked with this impossible battle. They're already on the way there, get fucked up by some wargs, which we got to talk about that scene at some point. Their army is gone. Yeah, if it's not for those elves to show up too, like that battle's over before the rain even starts. Like it is.
Well, funny enough,
good.
that's actually not even in the books. The elves don't show up in the books at all. So
really?
yeah, they actually defend themselves. And I'm gonna push back a little bit here. I'm gonna defend Theoden. I feel like
the numbers are on our side. The numbers are on our side with the
What do you mean?
boys.
There's
He
still
did-
Rohan.
but
Rohan's
there's
still a
still-
thing. I think he did his job.
But he that's debatable. You know. how
Okay,
many
and like
people he
just the
let die.
fact when he like has that line to Aragorn, when Aragorn's like, "What are you doing? Like put out help, like do these things," and he's like, "What are you expecting me to do? Like if you have 10,000 Orokai coming towards you." You can't just fucking walk away and like, okay, like he's stating all these statements of like, we don't have friends like you do. They're not going to come to our aid. Like, what am I supposed to do here? Be a fucking Denethor and say, flee, everybody flee, run for your life.
Maybe.
Like he actually is just putting on a strong face and he has a plan for what's going to happen if so happen a miracle a miracle appears and they just survive. Oh no, like yeah, we'll be able to what does he say? Like bring back the crops and just like save the land again. Like he's very optimistic in that sense. And I feel like, okay, deep down, he probably really doesn't think he's going to survive this, but he's just putting on that face for his men and being that beacon that everyone has to look for. Because
masculinity. Toxic
Oh, get out of here.
masculinity.
I'm gonna mute your mic
100%
soon.
Proud face for all the men to like, don't worry, we're going to be okay. Instead of thinking of some other, realm, talking to Gandalf a bit more. Gandalf storms out of there.
Gandalf's
Gandalf was
gone.
pissed. But he was pissed because he couldn't talk Theoden to do anything else. He's like, fucking idiot. This
yeah,
fool.
no,
Fool of a
I'm dying on that Theoden.
I don't
I think
Yeah,
he
you're
really
gonna die with
did
all
the
those
best
other
he could.
people too.
I would have to, yeah.
I don't think like Theoden tried to put on a good show, but at the end of the day, the people knew something was wrong because they just see this and they're sweating because
That's not
Aragorn-
Theoden's. That's not. I knew you were gonna pull up this fucking meme.
My favorite meme.
Every fucking time I see the scene now, I think of this meme, and it gets me so hard. Oh, it's so funny.
If anyone wants to look it up, just search Legolas, Aragorn, Jordan Peele, Helm's Deep meme, and it's one of my favorite memes of all time. I'll laugh about it every time. But see, and that's where, I guess that's where it's all subjective, right? And that's where I just take the different way where it shows the lead into Return of the King, where it is time for a change on multiple fronts. And I think the whole, this has worked in the past, it doesn't work here. Putting on the brave face thing doesn't work. Taking the kids away from their family. Like, people who have never held a sword at all, it's like, you're going to fight. It's like, this is, and I know it's desperate times, but it's just like, this isn't the way to do it. You have to think of other ways. You have to, and if it is just keep flaying, maybe it is. Because they had lots of days on those Uruk-hai, but they stopped. They stopped moving and they let them catch up. You don't know, they could eventually just show up to Gondor and say, hey, we're crashing here. We got to stick together. Like, there's other routes to me you could have done instead. We're just going to stay here and just be bait pretty much. And if it wasn't for Gandalf, and in this one the elves kind of help out, they all get murked too because there's no elves at the end. And what's the guy's name again? We meet him in Lothlorien in the first movie.
Haldir.
I always say that's a bad editing choice. I hated how dramatic the death they give him. That character was not warranted, the death that he got in this. I think you
He's a great character. He doesn't actually die in the books, so there you go. He doesn't actually get a
I
death.
remember that. Yeah, and it's always struck me as even a
Well, I
kid.
guess
I
the
was like,
elves aren't there, so he
Yeah,
would be
no,
helpful.
Yeah.
he would have no reason to die. Exactly.
even as wee lad Travis, I was like, why are we taking such a moment in the movie to tribute this?
It
guy?
is weird because you only really see him
Once
and that
in
might-
Fellowship.
that might even be in an extended scene. Is that in the theatrical version of Fellowship
It
when
is,
he
yeah.
like
Death?
Oh, it is.
Oh yeah. When Aragorn's
No, not
having
the
it,
die,
oh.
or not the die,
Not
not
the
the
die.
death. Like when they
I
get
gotta
to
say, the Helm's
Lorien.
Deep is
Yeah.
99% the same. That section's
Yeah.
very much unchanged.
But you mean in Fellowship, right?
I'm
When he
seeing. I'm
greets
speaking
them?
of Fellowship.
Yeah, he's
And
there,
he's
but I
just
think
like shit talking them.
yeah, I think that's the only scene, and then they cut to and stuff like
Okay.
that. So yeah,
Yeah,
he's
'cause-
there. So
But like what you're saying though is like you don't have a lot of moment of like relationship building between him and the Fellowship. So yeah, like from Aragorn's perspective and the other people that are at Helm's Deep, like just to get any help, yeah, I would fucking hug and kiss this person. Like,
yeah,
oh my
that I
gosh,
buy,
you're our
yeah.
savior. But I agree with you. Like the significance of his death. It's really sad because they literally just volunteered to come help them out. Like they didn't really need to by any means.
they weren't cowards like Elrond.
But
They all show up like, what are we doing here? Are we like building a new wall or something? Like, oh no, you're here to die, pretty much.
Yeah.
We're here to help you get to Gondor. Oh no, they're staying in Helm's Deep. Oh, okay. I guess
Yeah.
get your arrows ready, boys.
I would have loved to have seen a few elves at the end instead of just like our main.
Just men?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just men. It's
Legolas.
unfortunate because like those elves were on point. My dad, when we'd watch this movie together when I was younger, he'd often pitch like, "Yeah, isn't it weird when the Uruk army's like marching off, you don't send out like a squad of dudes with bows on horseback and just pick off a few every so often?"
Yeah,
Like,
kill some time. You know.
yeah, exactly. So
Théoden, he was old. He didn't have it together. He didn't.
It hurts.
You
I
He
feel
was
like
on all
you're
fours.
underestimating like the amount of just weight that he has on any decision that he makes. Like
Yeah,
anything.
but
So
he made
they could have
the wrong
stayed in
decision.
Edoras. they could have went to Gondor and just got ambushed en route. Like that is such a long distance actually to go just from like where they went to the Hornburg, and you think that they can just travel to Gondor, which is already getting
They had
invaded.
tons of time on the Uruk.
yeah.
No. They're already
like
like they're going to like a war zone. Gondor is getting invaded by the forces of Mordor.
hit him
what
on
do
the
you
other
think Faramir's
side,
dealing
man. Hit him on the.
with? No,
And what do you
you're
think-
wrong.
But then, then you're saying Gandalf's wrong because Gandalf thought that this was the wrong decision, and I trust Gandalf more than Théoden. Trust me, I trust Gandalf way more.
He's wrong decision. He
'Cause
just told
that's-
Aragorn to stick with him. So you don't
no,
actually
but
know
in the
that
scene
was
when he
Gandalf's.
gets out of that, he's like Helm's Deep. What a fool of a plan. Like he has some sort of dialogue. So Gandalf just everything's a fool of a shoe, full of arrow. So Gandalf,
Théoden.
full of Théoden. No wonder why your son said it. And he just leaves, and everyone's like
Oh
really,
my
it's really
God.
awkward. And like,
He has
man,
one of those
Gandalf-
flowers, just crushes it in his
Yeah.
hand. Like,
Gandalf the White's a dick, but like Gandalf did not agree with that decision. So whatever Gandalf was pitching, we did not. You're right.
but also,
Kirklin.
if
we didn't get
Gandalf
to
showed
hear
up
it.
earlier, everyone would have been fine. So,
That's true. And we did not get to hear what Gandalf was pitching, but I would have went with whatever the wizard was pitching, in my opinion.
I mean, at the end of the day, though, if he says, "Look to me at the 5th day on the first light," I think he knows the outcome already. Like this guy
I was
is
gonna ask,
already
so is the 5th
foreseeing
day-
all of these plans.
Is
But
the
what
fifth
if they
day the
didn't
fifth
change
day
it?
from
It's a
like
new
when he
outcome.
says that to Aragorn, or is it 5th day of the
I would
Helm's Deep
imagine 5th
battle?
day of the week. I would imagine.
that doesn't really
Are you
help.
memeing
does
or are
it?
you mean
I'm dead serious. I have no idea.
the 5th day of
The
the week?
5th day. What do you think the 5th day means to you?
I
don't know.
thought it
It's
was
a
5th of
subjective
the
thought.
month. Like if it was October 5th, that's what I took it as. Like whatever month they're in, the 5th
Well,
day
there you
is
go.
coming out. That's what I thought it was.
I see.
Fifth day of the
I
week.
took it more as he's either saying it's the 5th day from right now when he's talking.
That's
to
how I took
Aragorn,
it.
or the 5th day of the Helm's Deep battle, which
We
is
would-
assuming that it's going to take.
It's old
five-
English, man.
We
I don't
would,
know.
we would all show up to Helm's Deep on very different days.
Yeah.
It'd be that, yeah, and
I'd
everyone's
show up at the
just
very end.
gone.
Like,
We're
what the
here.
fuck?
Yeah.
That was 6 days ago, Dylan.
See, I think I have a slightly different take on Théoden. I mean, here's the thing: I love the character, but I love him because he is so flawed, and I mean that makes an interesting character. But you're saying that you think he's putting on a strong face for everyone, but I totally disagree with that. Like he gives up so early on and is just such
That
a
is true.
defeatist to like anyone who's around him. He's just like, it's fucking over. Like he just has given up all hope. And you know, I get it. Someone needs to be there as the strategist or as the head of it all. But still, he never unsheaths a sword and like does anything. And we saw Aragorn alone killed like 300 people, Gimli 200 or whatever 50, Legolas against a bunch.
43. Come on,
they
now, don't
didn't-
inflate
you know,
those
he
numbers.
he could have potentially saved a bunch of people if he had also done some fighting himself. So there's maybe a couple points. I don't know if they
Yeah.
do anything to you, but I
Well,
see. I
he
love
definitely
him 'cause he
unsheathes his
is-
sword because he
he has a
charges
lot of
out, right?
powers.
And then even just like when
At
they get
the end.
ambushed by the wargs, like he is charging into battle there. He is leading his forces. So he is getting in the action, I would say. But
Okay, the safer fight. Okay, if there's 20 guys, I'll fight.
At the same
If there's
time,
10,000,
though,
fuck it. I'm not risking
the Battle
my
of
life.
Helm's Deep,
I'll let
I
all
don't
these
know. I'm
kids
going to
die,
give him a
though.
pass there.
The
Yeah.
only reason I don't give him a pass because I agree with Dylan. There's stuff more he could have done, but in that day and age, it was always the king is the last of the shit. Like the king is not supposed to be fighting; they're supposed to be in the back. They are making the directive calls. Like when he says "get to the keep," so that
I feel like they threw it out the window, which we'll talk about it like in like Return of the King though with him.
absolutely like. Well, I feel like Return of the King that just gets into it. Literally, just kind of shifts to like Gandalf and his three friends, and everyone just looks at them like, "What are we doing here?" And they're like, "Well, we're gonna do this." But one of my favorite theater moments is when they're blocking the walls and he gets stabbed by the fucking spike, and he takes another spike behind him and stabs the guy. Like, he's like, "Give me this!" I love that shot right there. It's so good. Like he gets stabbed and he takes another one, but. You know, I'm with Dylan. I bring up all these points, but because I still like it. I like that it's like the Boromir thing, where it makes him an interesting character that he is flawed. But I think that he gets what he kind of deserves in Return of the King. Of like, you know, not that I want him to die, but like, you know, it's time for a new age. It's time for a new age.
You get what you fucking deserve.
Just the Witch King. You know what you get, Thanon? You get what you fucking deserve.
You know, one thing too for me is like if you put Aragorn in that position, he's the king, whatever, he's the leader of this. There's no doubt in my mind that the instant that battle starts, he is out there, you know, even if he doesn't have a sword, there's no swords left. He will fight tooth and nail just to do anything he can to.
I mean, maybe that's a flaw of his, right? Maybe he dies in like a really easy battle when they could have needed him in like the end game battle.
He's like, I don't know. Lead the charge, and arrow just pierced right there. That's always been my worry though too. Is like, what if Aragorn, when he becomes king, he does become like Theoden, and he is like, well, because I'm king, I got to stay back and stuff like that.
Yeah, you know? I also feel like at this stage of the story, Aragorn just isn't really prepared to be king like at all. Like he's ready to die. He would be doing like probably impulse decisions that would probably I don't know in the moment seem right, but
100%. Like it's not like I got to bring a little Return the King over, but like the way he thinks Arwen's going away, like he thinks she's gone, right? And then like I feel like with Arwen, he's kind of like flirting with her a little bit, but very quickly in the Return of the King, he's like, yeah, this isn't going to be a thing. So I felt like he was like fine with it. And then when he survived Helm's Deep, he's like, oh no, she thinks we're going to be like an item. No, like I thought I was going to die.
She definitely thought that.
Yeah. And that's why I feel like Aragorn's still like not on a suicide mission, but on a way that if he has to go, he will go. I think the stuff with Theoden does actually help him more, seeing he has ideas like I could do it this way, or this would be my call. So I think these are little bridges to why he feels he could also be king of, not only because he's like it's in his bloodline, but also now he's starting to realize, you know, I could lead people, I could be this person. But I do think in this stage he is ready to. He's the one that says right out Theoden. Like he gives him that idea. He literally gives the idea like let's all fucking get killed.
He's pulling
together.
A worm tongue.
100%. So
his alarm goes off. He's like, I think it's the 5th day.
he's still in the stage where it's kind of similar to Fellowship, where I feel like he's just waiting to get knocked off because it's a perfect excuse. Like, well, I didn't get to be king because they took me too soon. You know.
Well, on oh sorry Taylor, you go ahead.
No.
Maybe transition a bit.
I was going to maybe transition a little too.
Okay, well, then I'll maybe transition us in a certain direction, because adding on to what Travis said there, I think also analyzing just where Aragorn is in each of the 3 films, it really makes like the progression of where when he finally becomes king, like actually a natural progression of like every little situation that he comes across. Kind of, it's like a lesson on like, let's take the example that you gave of just like when he has these decisions, and then Theoden's kind of shooting him down, even when they're in Edoras, and he's just keeps like trying to give commands to him, and he's like, last time I checked, Theoden is the king, not Aragorn. And then when Aragorn keeps stating that like we could call upon these allies, or like Gondor will come, that's fucking his own kingdom right there, and he's still like, they'll probably come, you know, where if he was actually in Gondor, and maybe that's where he's like perceiving that of like, if I actually, Travis has tripped me out, he went full Blue Man Group on me, but like if he's actually I like it if he took his birthright and actually was king of Gondor, maybe this whole event wouldn't have happened, because he could have sent Gondor to help with the Westfold falling. He could have sent Gondor to help with the Battle of the Hornburg. And I think all of these little moments, he kind of has these internal battles with himself of like, yeah, maybe I really did screw us over, and like he's still having this internal battle. But by the time that we get to the Return of the King, it feels like, yeah, he's gone through the ropes. He's gone through those training courses to become a better king, and I feel like it's not rushed in any means. And the more like I dissect the little moments, specifically with him, I think it makes me just appreciate that journey of the king returning. No pun intended there, or maybe a little intended.
No, I agree 100%. I feel like I don't know if it's. I could also say that with Sam, but I feel like he has the biggest. I think he has the biggest arc in this entire story, whether it is the books and this. I think characters have other arcs, but his is because it feels like in every movie he is evolving and something is going towards his journey. So
Well, picture him when they first meet him in Bree. He is
Oh,
dirty,
yeah.
fucking gross, smelly, I'm sure, and just like this Strider. Like he's this like grungy dude that's just chilling in a pub, and then where you are at the end of Return of the King. Very nice and clean. He's wearing like the nicest royal gowns and all that stuff. So
and
I would agree that he
Towers,
definitely has the biggest journey.
You would like believe that now when you get to Return of the King, the things that happen in Two Towers are the stories they tell about like the war battle and Helm's Deep of like why this guy would become king, and he's starting to like build up that legend. He doesn't know
Right.
about it yet, but he's building up the legend, and he's kind of getting a name as far as like that speech we're making the meme of like I will die as one of them. But that is a guy where you want to like deal with something about follow that guy to be your king. He's the one that's going to be on the front line, right? So I think he is kind of unintentionally building up his status to become king, and then later on it obviously it does happen, but I think it just grows that legend of Aragorn, Strider, whatever it may be, Isildur's heir, to get to that point where everyone's like, yeah, this is the guy. They start looking to this random person they just met a few days ago, but it's because he's so confident in what he's doing.
And adding on to that, like Éomer's line that she said, or Éomer, Carl Urban says to him, no, oh my God, Éowyn.
Éowyn.
There we go.
Éowyn, yeah. It's
Too many
I hate
Rohirrim
Tolkien for
names,
it. Arwen,
yeah.
Éowyn, Aemir. Come on,
Yeah.
Tolkien.
Éowyn's like line to him of like they fight like like with you because of all these reasons. They fight because they love you. She's saying it to him for her own reasons,
He
but
doesn't
also
get
just
it.
like it is totally hitting true that like these people that are seeing him just speak up for them, like he already has Legolas and Gimli charging through the fucking Wilderlands with him to just chase these two hobbits. Like they wouldn't do that. I mean, they love the hobbits too, so maybe it's a bad example there. But specifically,
It was his
like
idea.
just leading, yeah, specifically like leading them into battle, like that line, it really just I think it goes a lot further than maybe initially thought, and even just it carries like on Aragorn's shoulders. Like I'm sure it's sunk through to him, and not just for being like Éowyn kind of pronouncing her love for him. It's like, dude, I've known this for a while. You're very, very forward with your advances, but. Yeah.
It's not even from a men's perspective either, because I think from this moment on, I think this is where for Sauron it kind of becomes a prominent thing. Like, oh my god, like the heir of Isildur is returned. Like there's
All these
Aragorn,
stories.
like, what's
Getting
going
scared.
on? Yeah,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
getting scared. Yeah, for sure. He's shaking
Why won't
his
he just
tower.
die? I thought the Balrog was gonna take him out. Come on.
You get what you fucking deserve, Aragorn. That's what he's saying in his tower to his own worm tongue version.
That's what Wormtongue says to Saruman on Return of the King.
Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Dylan? I just want to make sure you get in before I transition.
Transition, please.
When Gimli was just like chilling there, and he's like, the sun's rising, he's just super calm about it. Do you think, like, because he clearly reminded Aragorn, he's there to remind us that, oh yeah, Gandalf's doing some stuff. How do you guys interpret that? Like, do you think Gimli was literally like holding out this whole time, just counting the minutes down to the 5th day at dawn?
No. I think just it was getting later, and he probably just popped in his mind.
He's just calling it as he sees it.
I do like that he pimps off while everyone rides out to battle. He just gets to stay at the horn. I do
He's
like
not a
that.
rider.
so-
He's not a rider, man.
I know, but it's just so funny if everyone's dead and he's at this horn. But no, I think
And-
it's just the weather reminded him.
And he's blowing the horn of Helm Hammerhand, which is the character that's going to be in that Rohirrim animated movie. I'm so excited to finally get to that.
Can you say that 3 times really fast, Kirkland?
Helm Hammerhand. Helm Hammerhand. Helm Hammerhand. No, I think that's as fast as I can go.
Okay.
That was I don't know, questionable the fastness.
I'll give
there,
you a
but he is a
pass.
little melt. So,
Thanks, Tom. Let's just speed it up and post that.
What's your
Just
take,
imagine.
Taylor? You seem to have like a deeper interpretation on that one.
I interpret it like he knew Gandalf
This
was
is where he was going
coming.
to take the ring for himself in this moment.
I took it as in like he was just so calm and sold me on that scene. He's just like Aragorn, you need to look to the east because this is where Gandalf's coming. That's how I interpret it. But obviously, I'm looking way too far into that scene. Gimli's just he sees the sun. He's just calling as he sees.
Just zoning out. He's like, I think I
yeah.
knocked my head on something.
It's funny you mentioned that scene. And, like I feel like I tuned it out somehow. I'm like, I don't even really know what you're talking about, actually.
I was afraid that was the case because everyone was super delayed. Like, oh, no one remembers the scene.
Just adding on to that scene actually, and just the light appearing, and just like the symbolism that comes with that of like the whole battle is just so dark and dreary, and like the rain is coming down on you, and then like when that shimmer of hope comes on and like the lights coming up, and then of course the best case scenario appears and like your saviors are there. Just talking about like some other symbolisms that I absolutely love in this is when they first arrive in Edoras, like the flag just like rips off, and it just really symbolizes just like a kingdom broken. And it's I love that introduction. You get like the Rohirrim, or not the Rohirrim, I keep saying that, just like the Rohan theme plays in as they arrive to the city. And like you don't like people aren't like dying of infections or anything, but like it just seems like a city or a kingdom that's really not at the peak. And then just to have like that flag rip off when you have this king that's super, I mean, he's super possessed, but also just yeah, he's not doing his job because he's possessed, but it's just the whole kingdom is kind of in shambles. You have their main fighting force that's just been banished. It's just so in the gutter, and I love that detail of having the flag rip off there. It even as a kid, I remember just being like, oh, that probably means that like the kingdom's just not really like coming together. Like I just remember at a young age, like still kind of understanding what that symbolism meant, and I love it. I love all of the little hidden meanings and little things that go a lot further when you dissect them.
The you'd find more cheer in a graveyard kind of aesthetic, as Gimli says.
Yeah, exactly.
I wanted to make like a comparison that I hadn't noticed before. Was that obviously Gandalf coming over that hill? Obviously, I mean, it is pretty on the nose that it's like an angel coming down from heaven and he's all in white and all that stuff, right? But that same thing happens in The Hobbit too, where the trolls are gonna fuck up the hobbits, but then the sun comes up, which we talked about in the animated. Like Gandalf moves time forward, but then in the Peter Jackson one, he like cracks a rock, which reveals the sun a bit sooner. So I thought it was funny that he pulls this trick more than once. This is a trick of his. He likes to time his appearances very cinematically with the rising of the sun, which I mean is a very symbolic one, but it's also a good advantage. Obviously, in the trolls it worked because it turns them into stone, but in here it just as you said, puts the high beams on. So I like that kind of thing is recurring. I think that's cool.
I feel like that's another big tie-in to just him being a servant of like the ancient flame, which is Aru Iluvatar, and I feel like that also it's been represented as the sun because it's the brightest thing like in the sky. So it's kind of just it's tie-in to him like to Aru. So I don't think that's just like a happenstance that they do those decisions, that it is tied to the light. I know like it's mentioned that he has like the power of flame, which is also like a very bright thing. The sun is that, so maybe it could be tying into all of those different things.
I could see like the night before they get there and Gandalf's like, hey man, we're gonna camp here, but we know the battle's just around the corner. No, we gotta wait till the sun comes
early.
up.
Fuck.
I made that joke to Emily of like, what if he got them sooner? And he's like, no, let's just hang out a little bit, make them worried. And all their
Amir's like,
friends
where are we
dying.
going? Like he doesn't tell them like the actual grave danger
I think
that
they're
his
just
friends
in
and
Rohan
cousins in.
still. Let's ride by there and check. They look, it's all empty. Like, oh, actually, I think they said they're going to Helm's Deep, and they're just like, man, Gandalf.
You guys want to catch a movie? Got some fireworks in my
I think
bag.
I heard
Yellowcard
Isengard's
right up
pretty
there.
this time of year.
Yeah.
Attached to that, when they arrive and everything, in the theatrical version, you just assume like, okay, this is where the battle ends. The Rohirrim just come in and just take charge and destroy. But in the extended scene, you get a clear, different outcome where the army like retreats and they storm off, and the trees just fuck them up. Yeah, what do you guys think of this?
I actually thought it was a fine cut, to be honest. I think it's nice that it's there. I'm fine with it, but I wasn't one where like, I really wish this was in the movies. I think it was fine to know that they just retreated and went. I don't think it needed that exclamation point on that point. So,
Well, I think theatrical, you just kind of assume that all of the orcs had been killed.
yeah.
Like that none had left, right? So
I think so they won the battle, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a fine cut. But I'm glad you brought that up because I noticed that too of like, that is a pretty, big difference. But I almost took the trees thing was almost a bit goofy for me. And I feel like the trees are already popping off in this other Isengard scene. So I don't know if we need to see this as well. So, yeah, that's one thing that I can definitely understand, like Travis said.
I love it a lot. I feel like it's fun. I mean, we see the Ents like pop off, but I feel like if you don't get this moment, you might just assume that the only trees that can really pop off are the Ents. Like I know you get that old willow thing that just like strangles Pippin and Merry, but like it's very minor, and it's just like it's not like they're actually like yeah, they could have got messed up, but it kind of just like hid them, and like because they were drinking all the water, it just didn't like that. But this is showcasing that like no, the trees are actually dangerous if you are a foe to them, and Aragorn stresses that right when they enter Fangorn, and he's like, Gimli, lower your axe, like don't say bad things about the trees. And that's something that's very stressed like in the book, is that like the trees are so old and they're like they really hold grudges, and like don't piss them off because they are fucking powerful. Like just picture what the Ents were doing, you know, like these are just really really ancient trees. And I like that little addition because you don't have like details of like just seeing these trees fuck up orcs. You just see movement and screams, and like that's enough. So I think that's a good, again, just showcasing what Aragorn was already explaining.
Brilliant.
Oh,
Brilliant.
let's take our next break, and then we'll move on to the next topics. We'll be right back. And we're back. Take us away, someone.
I'm ready to take us somewhere. If anyone have his objections, I was gonna go to Frodo and Sam, specifically like the two of them with Gollum. You know, they have a new addition to the crew here, and I really 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 like this combo. I feel like I always was like a younger kid. I was just always sus of Gollum, especially because like I probably knew that he just turns at the end, so it's like, oh, don't trust this guy. Like I know he's like their guide, but I've really grown to just appreciate. Again, Travis, you kind of hinted to it earlier, but like the bonding that him and Frodo kind of go through, or Gollum and Frodo kind of go through, and just the fact that Frodo is really like, again, very like he's pitying Gollum so much, and the line that when he drops to Sam where he's like, I have to believe that he can kind of like come back from this, because he's just seen himself, or sorry, he's seeing Gollum as possibly what he'll become, because like he had the ring, he was a ring bearer, and like he kind of went through, and especially that one quick moment when they're in the marshes, and Gollum is kind of I forget specifically what he's saying, but he's just talking about like the way that the ring like basically makes him feel, or like the way that the ring kind of tortures him in a sense, and Frodo completely understands what he's saying, and it's a really quick line. You know, he's getting all close to him, and then Frodo kind of snaps out of it, get out of it, like get away from me, and then you have that like the look on Gollum when he's just like totally in shook. I always loved his face, even as like a kid. I was just like, he looks so shook and just like, oh. And then he just lays down, and again, he just looks so pitiful, and like you really, at least for myself, like I feel like I really have grown to just feel so terrible for the character of Gollum, because he's literally just tortured by the ring his entire existence, like 600 years. Yeah, he has it, but like it's really just shattering his mind, which is evident. He shows very schizophrenic like tendencies to the extreme, where he has completely split personalities, and his other personality, Gollum, basically bullies himself. So he's just such a tragic character, and just the way that Sam like treats him, the way that Faramir and the men treat him, I couldn't believe. I still can't believe when the men just like full Nelson him, and they're just like taking shots at him. I'm like, Jesus Christ, like this is such overkill here. But yeah, like that. I know we kind of talked about a little bit with Frodo and Sam, but specifically. And like I'm gonna call him Smeagol, because in this movie I feel like for a majority of it is Smeagol. Like he kind of wins that battle with himself, and he's just like, yeah, like especially when he tells Gollum to go away. I love that change when he's like so pumped he gets the rabbit. We get that very iconic line about the potatoes. But I just love that when he's really like on their team and like on team fellowship. It's so fantastic. I love it so much, and yeah, like, and again, just being able to feel so much pity for this super tragic character, and just it's very sad the way that it ends, obviously, but it's also fitting that like it gets his Return of the King thing. But spoiler, he dies. He dies because of the ring. Yeah.
Damn, I've been waiting this whole time to watch Return of the King, and now I know how it's gonna end. But yeah, no, I can't add much more on that as far as like the storyline, because that's exactly how I felt. I kind of talked about that earlier. I can't remember. I think it was for Return of the King. They actually shot some footage. They took it out, and it's not even extended. They gave Frodo, like Elijah Wood, like a Frodo looking like Gollum aesthetic and stuff. You could probably even search it on Google. It's there, where it's like they did some prosthetics to make him look like turning into Gollum. So that was talked about. And I think that's what I like about it, where I don't even take it as Gollum's on the side of the Fellowship. It's just that he's on the side of Frodo, and he wants to try. This is Smeagol's redemption. Maybe if he could get this one task done, maybe every bad thing that's happened to him, he could be good again. Even if that means like dying a couple days later, he could be good again. I think the only thing I'll say that you didn't say is just it's been said for decades, but Andy Serkis is just a powerhouse with this. You watch the behind the scene footage, and man, it is funny. It is goofy when you see these two with the guy in like this white ghillie suit. The fact that they pulled it off, this is still probably the best. Good thing for MC, like they did very good with Thanos as well, but like he is still, I think, the tippy top. That I just even remember the very first time. I obviously still see it all the time, but when he's choking Sam and Frodo gets them out of there, just even like Gollum's arm just looks so realistic. Like it looks like an arm. It doesn't even look like the CGI creature thing, and it's just like it was so ahead of its time, and everything from the voice, the look.
How about that in
I
sync?
beat you to it. I'll pull up the one I found
yeah,
first.
Look at oh my
Right.
god!
Look at that
Yeah,
hair.
I
That's
think it was a
terrifying.
good idea to cut that.
Yeah.
But either
Taylor, pull
way,
up yours.
oh,
That's a
live.
better one actually. You got like
Yeah.
the live action.
I'm sure I
Yeah.
trust them that it would look great when they actually shot it on the camera and everything like that. But no, and I will say too, the funny thing is when you're talking about being a kid, like I remember when I watched Lord of the Rings with my sister at a young age, she didn't really care about it until Gollum got introduced. Gwen, she actually cares about more, but kids love Gollum. Whenever Gollum's on screen, they're like their eyes right away pull attention to it because I think the noise is the way it moves and everything like that. But no, I love all the twists and turns we get with Gollum, and that's like the best like thriller aspect of this movie. And the other one, obviously, Return of the King. His motives are pretty clear at the end of this, and I think obviously you don't get Shelob, but I think that's a good cliffhanger as he's acting as Shelob of I'm going to bring them to her and stuff. So I think it leaves them in this situation where it's like they're kind of screwed now and they don't know what's coming. So yeah, nothing bad to say about Gollum.
Yeah, truthfully, I feel like this is one of the few characters that like, what more is there to say about Gollum? Like, something like Faramir. I've never heard like a deep dive on him. He's mentioned in passing or something. But I think this is just such a iconic character that you guys pretty much covered anything I could possibly say. It's amazing how well it stands up and in terms of like the CGI and all that stuff, and what a performance. And this is one I'll mention this is that there's really not a lot cut from Gollum scenes. I think there's maybe like the when he fake runs away at the start, like at the very very beginning of the movie, and then like a couple of the things with Faramir in that section. But that's pretty much it. Like they pretty much keep everything in there. I think they know that it's very special, and they want to show off that CGI. I'm sure. So I thought it was interesting just from that perspective to see that character-wise, character beat-wise, there isn't really anything missing in the theatrical cut. So I think they knew they had some gold with that character. And kept it all in there.
I will say though, like when Faramir is interrogating Gollum, like what are you doing with him? And then he's like, that's where Gollum comes in. He's like kind of like,
rubbing his back
yeah,
and everything. Yeah.
Smeagol or whatever he says to him, just totally tripping him out. And then he's asking like, what did they take? Yeah, like what did they take? And then he's like, they took my precious. And then he just screams at him. He's like, ah! I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not trusting this guy.
No,
It's
there's
like,
a reason
hey,
Faramir beats him up a little bit.
I get it. You're upset. You might be screaming at Precious, but throwing in this like roar at the end, it always makes me chuckle. Just because it's like, oof, okay, sorry, I'll not letting you go. Taylor, do you have anything else to add?
Not really. I mean, like you guys really said it all. Like, yeah, Andy Serkis just delivers. He's fantastic, and I mean, I will say like I do enjoy seeing the more positive aspect to him in this, like just seeing the lightheartedness. Like, yeah, he comes in, he's very like evil and stuff, but just when he has that moment, like what did you call me, Smeagol and stuff, and it just like clicks for him. I really like that scene a lot. And all the stuff where he's talking to himself is just, it always kind of like cracks me up a little bit, but he always used to terrify me when I was younger. I remember I used to pretend I was him in elementary school and like
right.
in the
Were
school
you just
library.
screaming at teachers? Mrs. Field, you have to come collect your son again. He's he has no clothes on. He's huddled in
He's
the
in
corner,
the creek eating
petting
fish.
himself. Yeah,
Yeah, he likes it raw. He says
just
he likes
beating
it raw.
on a rock. Yeah, doing his little song.
Oh fuck.
Not what I was expecting you to say. One last thing I forgot to mention with him is that scene when he's yelling at himself, and it actually like keeps changing that angle, so it really feels like it's two different people. And I mean, in that, like, it's a CGI character, but still in that moment, like, it's just still, it's so convincing that it's two completely different persons, and it really showcases that split personality there.
100%.
I'll some other like Frodo and Sam stuff is probably a good time to throw that in there. One, just that whole kind of intro sequence is like that. There's a lot of stuff added there in the extended cut that I thought was interesting. One is that like them rappelling with the with
So
that string
random.
rope like down, and then obviously they use that to tie up Gollum. Now this makes sense in a way because once again that scene in Fellowship is cut for the most part where everyone gets an item, so you never see Sam getting that. So for it to be highlighted as this thing, it makes sense why that's kind of removed from there. But I thought it was interesting. I really liked that Sam has just that salt, that seasoning that he's kept with him. He's saving it for a rainy day. I liked that because once again it kind of calls back to the Shire and obviously the place, this rocky set piece that they're in, which I love. By the way, I think it's such a dark and grueling place. The fog's coming in. The only things they can see off on the horizon are awful looking. So to have just a little bit of comfort is nice. I like that little touch in there. Once again, like Fellowship, the title card shot is different in this. Just a different landscape. Essentially, it's not a huge change, as big of a change I'd say as the Fellowship, but I just thought that was interesting. And what else? The once again, like this is something I talked about in Fellowship a lot, how there's a lot of like the day-night cycle part of it that seems to be cut out, so it makes just the extended makes it feel like there's more time on each like stretch of this journey, I guess you could say. And that feels the same here too, where you do get that shot of Frodo and Sam in the rain, where they just like they can't even sleep because of how rainy it is. This is like right before they meet Gollum, and they're just kind of tucked away with their hoods. That's something that's cut out as well, but I like that. Even just that little moment there just shows the struggle they're on and how like they just can't even get a good night's sleep in this bloody place. And of course, the "we're going in circles" line is iconic. I love that one. So those are my notes on that sequence of it. I have some other Frodo and Sam stuff you guys want to move around. I don't know if you guys have anything in that section of the story that you want to touch on.
There's just one that I want to bring up again. Perfect trilogy, love the films, and when something like a little bad, it just sticks out so much as a sore thumb of these. When they're at the gates of Mordor, and you got the men from the Wild, and they got all the armor, everything that, and Sam falls down the mountains, and then you have these two soldiers that like realize, and the one soldier, the guy on the right, I had his toy. I remember specifically because he's that picture in the box. But I hate the editing or how it was shot of where Sam and Frodo are in parallel to where the guards are. Because, like, how did they not see them on this mountain? It makes zero sense.
I can defend this, actually.
You can try. You're not going to do anything. I don't think it's going to change my mind because one shot is literally Frodo and Sam are uncloaked. They're looking up, and then they throw the cloak over, and the guy literally takes 2 steps, and he's right there. And I just wish there was like a different edit or something. And I do, again, talking about the what if. I want to see the what if where Sam and Frodo just storm Mordor, like they were gonna, and then Gollum stops them, right? But they're like, okay, we're going. Like, what were you like that? Like, even though I don't trust Gollum, like, what was your plan? What do you think was gonna happen here? So, but yeah, your floor is yours to try and defend this.
Well, I mean, fair enough from like the movie perspective. I feel like okay, it's they're right there, and then he's he's coming towards him. Now you got to remember
video game
though,
guard accurate in terms of how
100%.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
Their stealth stats very high, but like you got to remember, like they literally have magic cloaks. Like they literally are magic cloaks. So but I understand where you're coming from. So you don't have an issue with like the cloaks hiding them. It's just like the editing of it. Okay, yeah, I'm on your side then.
It's just because they're uncloaked so close to the time. Like I think what they're trying to do, and maybe some footage was lost or something, where they're uncloaked and then the guys walk up, but they're uncloaked and they cloak themselves. The guy takes 2 steps, he's right there. And it's weird when, and I'm not going to pull up to derail the podcast, but it's this is where I think they were maybe shot differently too, because you never see them in the same scene. And when they show Frodo and Sam, it's like much higher up, right? It's much sloped. Right. But then when you see them as the cloaked, it's like a very like flat surface. So it's like, how's Sam even sunken in right now? So I think it's just that that's probably what happens. They shot the guards portion and Sam and Frodo's portion differently, and the exterior just didn't line up when they edited it. And it's fine. It's a little thing because I get what they're going for, but I always find it funny. It's just like Dylan said, it's video game guard. But yeah, no, I'm fine with the cloaks. Once they put on the rock and they can't see him, oh yeah, that works for me. I'm all down for some magic stuff, you know?
I just want to know what magical properties do their cloaks have? I didn't realize this.
Yeah, so like those cloaks were given to them from the Lorien elves,
Right.
Like a
and
little-
they mentioned that they'll basically hide them from their foes. And in the book, even like, so in the movie when the Rohirrim like just like ride by like our trio, they're kind of like behind a rock or something. In the book, like they're actually just running like, but the cloaks are just disguising them in such a way that like the Rohirrim literally just don't see them. Aragorn like shouts out at them like, what news do you have from the north? And then it makes them circle back, and then they're like, what the hell, like where did you come from? Like you literally just spread out of the ground. Like it doesn't make sense because they like there's nothing for them to really hide in. They really stress that like the cloaks actually do hide them from unwanted eyes. And then in that scene, I feel like as a kid I was always like, that's so stupid, how does it look exactly like a boulder? But then I'm always just like, I'll give it a pass because they're elven cloaks, and like they do put a point of emphasis in. But I'll have to side with Travis, and just like the editing of that sequence, it could have been a little bit better. But
My kid nostalgia mind still makes me just love that scene, even though
Yeah.
all of that is totally fair. We've maybe touched on this a little bit, the dead marshes. So I guess I just never put two and two together, but the battle that happened here they're alluding to is like the battle from the prologue of the first
yeah,
movie. Right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how I had
34
never,
of the
I
second
had never
age.
really
Or third
considered
age.
that, but I mean that is cool. I like that touch. And this is kind of the first time you see Frodo like just literally petting the ring. Like this is when he's kind of gone. He's hit that next corruption level. So I like that. And then one thing the extended cut adds is at some point in it, like it just recut this sequence. It's more or less the same thing, but they have a line about they've been in the marshes for 2 days now, and once again, just one of those things that makes the scale of the journey feel a bit longer. Because it always to me it always kind of seemed like, oh yeah, they're in the marsh for like one long shitty day, but it's like, oh no, they're probably here for multiple days, as any leg of the journey is, because this is a real place and the map is huge if you actually look at it. So I liked. I mean, I've always loved the Dead Marshes scene. I think just the setting of it. I think maybe the one thing that doesn't hold up so well is the fires that they have going on there don't look amazing. They just have like
Yeah.
random little fires. But in terms of the setting, like the brush, the water, obviously the effects of the bodies in there and whatever, like looks just fantastic. So love that sequence of the movie.
That scene just creeped me the hell out when I was a kid.
Yes,
Everything
definitely.
from the score to that elf like opening its eyes, falling
Yeah.
down, and like now I'm grown, it doesn't scare me like that. But it's like the fear of my childness still has like some
The music,
PTSD.
too.
Anytime, yeah, that means like that, "Ooh," like that like whistling that's going on. It's like, oh man, and I love the moment too because Gollum's the one that saves him, right? So that's your first kind of step. I think that's the first moment, like okay. They're maybe not all bad because they maybe could have let Frodo and Sam die here and take the ring. So there's something more to this character. But yeah, Dead Marshes are such a. I would love it if there's some sort of. If there was like a Lord of the Rings fighting game, I would want a Dead Marshes stage, because it's just.
With those pyres, yeah,
Oh,
that Dylan brought
100%,
up.
yeah,
You gotta
yeah.
have them in there. Yeah, this is the first time that we see the Fell Beast too, right? Like the Nazgul on
Yeah,
their
good point.
fresh
Yeah.
new rides, and again just bringing the terror, calling out for the ring. And I like how it like when they call out to the ring, it's just affecting Frodo even just so much more than what it did initially, like in the Shire. It's just the stakes are just ramping up as they get closer
yeah.
to their goal, and God, just like the terror that they bring. I know we brought up like their Fell Beast rides when we were talking about the Nazgul in the Fellowship episode, but just such a great design for the creature, and even when they show up later on in Osgiliath, it's just such an imposing force, and like it really would just damper the morale of like the men of Gondor of like, okay, we're fighting monsters, we're fighting orcs, but okay, we got swords, but then you just see this giant winged beast that's just like, and what's piloting him, like just a dark rider that you can't even see their face. Like it's just, God, they bring the heat, and I love the Nazgul for just that sort of aspect, but man, they're terrifying. And just reiterate everything that you said, Travis. As a kid, that scene scared the shit out of me, and like the effects of just like the ghosts, like just coming at them with like the wide eyes. Ugh, it's so terrifying.
Can you explain why this place is the way it is? Is it just cursed because of the death that
Um,
occurred, or?
Well, yeah. So like Dylan mentioned, like this isn't like the location where they fought for the ring. Obviously, that was in Mordor, but this was a big conflict, and it was actually like a really bad loss for the good guys. So Gil-galad, who you're going to learn all about in Rings of Power. Was the High King, so he was leading the forces of the Noldor, like the main elves, and then the Sindarin elves, which are like Legolas's people, the Woodland realms. They were coming, but they just kind of always thought that like they weren't really ruled by Gil-galad. So like they had a little bit of a discourse there. So they were supposed to wait for like everyone to attack, but I think it was Orifair, which was actually Thranduil's father, which is Legolas's grandfather. He was the king at the time of the Sindarin elves, and he's like, no, we're just gonna go. Like, screw this guy. I don't follow you. And then he went there, got absolutely messed up. He died. A couple other people died that missing their names right now, unfortunately. I apologize. But so he died, and it was just a really bad loss for their forces. Obviously they ended up getting to Mordor at some point in time, but that's why there's just so many like elven bodies. There was dwarves there as too. Like, it was a big alliance. But yeah, they died there. The forces of good buried their dead on like the outskirts of the marshes, not actually in the water. But just over time, the marshes just grew. I'm sure there is some like more backstory on like, they're close to Mordor, so classic Sauron just having his influence on evil. I'm sure there is like an explanation there, but as far as I'm concerned, they buried the dead on the outskirts, and then just over time they just grew because, yeah, like it was in 34, the Second Age, when that battle happened, and then where they are now, it's like the year 3000 in the Third Age. So like a lot of time has passed. The marshes are just growing, and eventually they're just like overrunning all these bodies, and then you just got some bad black magic in the air, I'm sure.
I see. This is all caused because of racist elves.
A hierarchy,
problems,
a hierarchy thing. Yeah, they're like, no, I don't listen to you.
Taylor, all those names that Kirklin said, repeat them back to us.
Fuck, not a chance. God.
There's
Oh,
I'm so excited for
Thumbelina.
Rings of Power.
Yeah.
A couple of the Frodo Sam things. We mentioned the boil and mash 'em, stick 'em in a stew sequence, but maybe we can talk about these guys more in the third film. But I've always loved the Oliphants. I love how their name too is just like a couple letters different, just to make it my own Tolkien lore kind of thing. So maybe we can talk about those guys and their backstory later on, because they don't make too much of an appearance. They kind of just get fucked up by Boromir, and then we don't really see them again.
The
But
Easterlings, that's
I
just
always
what they're
loved
called.
I've always loved that introduction to them as just like this totally different race of people that we haven't really seen before, and love those elephants. And then my last like Frodo Sam thing, I think my notes, as I said, very scattered, is, and you guys kind of touched on this too, but that very last scene when they're in the woods, which I'm trying to picture the geography, because I feel like from where they are in Osgiliath, like I didn't really picture that there was any more forests between that and Mordor where they are, but I guess maybe they go kind of around a bit to get to like that back road that Gollum's talking about. But anyway, that's not really important. But I love what, because Gollum kind of runs ahead there, and then he's kind of having these back and forth conversations, which, great cliffhanger for a movie. But I also love that gives you a moment where you can have just Frodo and Sam, which we haven't had in a bit, is just the two characters talking with each other. And I love their dialogue here, because Frodo's good in this moment. It's like, it feels like they just got a win of sorts, even though things are still going kind of poorly for them. But just them talking about how they're going to tell tales of us, and they're both like just buffing each other up, like, oh no, they're going to say Samwise the Brave, and like all this stuff. Just amazing. Like, the friendship there is so strong, and just the smiles on their face, the love that they share for each other is fantastic. And obviously it's being tested in this movie greatly, but I like that we end on a high note. But of course there's also this foreboding doom from Gollum, who's a couple 100 meters ahead of them. But yeah, I just love this sequence. I think it's a great way to end this movie when there's so much going on. We talked about this, how the Shelob section doesn't happen till later, and I think it just have this scene here end the second movie, like that is enough reason for me to be like, okay, that's totally fine to move that section ahead, into the next story, because it's just such a fantastic ending for the movie.
Yeah, because like you said, they're totally like very, very positive. I think you even get some like fellowship tones come in where it just feels very like hopeful, at least might be a better word than like everything's good. It's just like there is some hope in the journey. They're not pulling swords on each other, like they are pretty happy in this moment. But then you have Gollum being very conniving and like just nefarious, and then we just go up and see Mordor, and it's like, oh, that's how close they are now, because like the way the last the last movie ended, they see Mordor like pretty far away, and then like now, oh shit, now they actually have to enter this like. Yeah, they made like a huge chunk of their journey, but like this is the hardest part now. Like you got 3 flying beasts just like overhead. You got volcanoes. So yeah, a lot of danger ahead, but definitely I love just that dialogue. It's again, I feel like all these moments I fucking love hobbits, man. Like when they're just like in like the worst case scenario, like they still find these moments to kind of boost each other up. And yeah, when Sam is just like he keeps talking about a couple times in this movie, he keeps talking about like these great stories about like, oh yeah, you keep hearing about the great stories, and like he just can't comprehend that he is in the greatest story like of all time, and he is like a main like protagonist in it. And I love when Frodo kind of just like reminds him of that, and he's just like, Samwise the Brave? He's like, oh yeah, Samwise the Brave. Like that, I like the ring of that. Like I love seeing Sam kind of go through those motions. So completely agree with what you said.
He ain't in the greatest story if they fail, though. You know,
No
one's
nobody's
writing that
telling the
book.
story. Yeah,
I've seen the ending of this trilogy, Travis. What are you getting at?
Yeah. I was gonna say you love hobbits so much. We should probably talk about Merry and Pippin because we've not talked about them
Yeah.
at all and stuff like that. That's because I don't have much to say. As I've said, the stuff's not bad. I enjoyed enough. I think it is stuff that just it takes so long. Where it is, you know, they have this meeting and they lampshade it. They do a joke in the movie like, "Oh, we've been meeting for an hour and we've decided you're not orcs," and I love that joke. It's so good. And they're just like, we thought like just
and Pippin. That's great news.
yeah. The way the actors both sell it are so good. But it's just like I think even as a kid, this felt like a foregone conclusion of, you know, these trees are gonna turn babyface, you know, they're gonna help, and it's good. Again, I don't really love the Ents because I like the idea of them, but the only reason they turn good is because they're selfish and their kind gets taken out. It's not because the rest of the world's getting taken care of and stuff. And I think it's a fun thing to take care of Saruman, and I will show it in my notes as. It's one of those just things in movies. I'm sure movies we all love. We have little things that we love. One of my favorite shots of all time is when they're breaking down the water and all the water's going. And you have that one tree whose head is on fire. And he just running, puts his head in.
I always felt so bad when he first gets shot too with the fire.
Yeah, you
Oh,
think
yeah.
he might die or something, right?
Yeah.
And I will say too, I remember even in the tie-in games, like at the end of that level, like when you're going through and you're just
Yes.
popping off, it plays that cinematic, and you
Mhm.
would always see that one guy on fire, and then you'd go and dip. It's like, okay, yeah,
That's
no,
probably why
I
it
would see
burns
it
in
every
my
time.
mind. 'Cause like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm getting to the end of the game here. You know, like that's where
Yeah.
it was. But and it always end with that shot of Christopher Lee when he's really sweating and the hair was all over his face. I'm not sure if you remember that. But
Oh,
so
yeah.
I remember when I saw them as a kid, and my dad was not an Ent fan. He's like, it's just too like Wizard of Oz for me. And I defended the Ents, and I still do. But they're definitely like, if I had to list one thing that I care the least about in this entire franchise, it's this section with Merry, Pippin, and the Ents, because I think it is vital. I just think how much screen time it gets, that's where it's not vital. Like how we got less of Gandalf and then more Merry Pippin. I wish there was a way that, like, if Dylan was saying like I don't need it, but if I had to swap it, I could. So I like it. It's just not. I definitely liked it less as it goes on. I even remember when I read the books, like being kind of bored of it as well, and not in a sense of like thinking, oh, this is bad, but it's just, yeah, just not. And honestly, like. Merry and Pippin maybe rank pretty low for me as well, for just characters in general. I like them in the group, just as the solo venture. I don't know if I need that. I like them better where they're used in Return the King. So, yeah, I guess it's like it sounds negative, but this would not make me affect my score at all. So,
Yeah, I'll follow up on this. That, you know, especially watching these extended editions, there's a couple scenes where, I mean, they were fun scenes, but at the same time, if I'm watching the theatrical cut again, I'm like, yeah, I'm fine to not get this scene again. Like when they're talking about like who's taller and stuff, and they get gobbled up by this tree. It's a
Yeah.
fun enough scene, but like I don't know if I understand why he cut it from the theatrical cut. You don't need it there. And yeah, I guess I feel like this part kind of drags at times because there's not much happening, and I don't know if I can really think of too many iconic moments. For me, it's like they have a fun start and end, but the middle stuff isn't amazing. Like for example, one point like when Pippin like gets up and he's gonna, or Merry, I always confuse them, so sorry, but he gets up to like give this big speech of why the Ents should help, and it's not a great speech. It's pretty boring. He's like, you just got to do it. You got to help us out. Bad stuff happening, and I don't know. When you just compare it to like all these other great speeches or monologues or something, it just doesn't really stand up there. And yeah, there's a couple like more lore things you get from the extended cut. But I think for me, the things I like the most are just the initial scene when Merry and Pippin are on the back of the Uruk-hai. I like that. He kind of picks up I guess bites the leaf and like spits it on the ground. So it's like he's such a dope through all these movies, always just kind of making jokes and not really taking things too seriously. But I thought that was a very smart thing for him to do, and obviously that did pay dividends like right away. So I thought that was a good character moment for him. And I think the cutting back and forth of Aragorn and crew, like tracking them and finding them into the forest, like all that stuff is great. But yeah, once they're in the forest, once you get past the intro of Treebeard, which I love that, I feel like it drags a bit too. So I agree with you, Travis. And this is stuff that like any of it is like I'm okay with some of this stuff getting cut. I don't think it adds much to the overall story, even if there's a couple fun details in there, like the Entwives thing, like that line of dialogue is cut. It's a fun lore thing, but at the same time, don't really need it. So that's my stance there.
How you feeling?
Yeah, they are. I would have liked to have had them a little bit more prominent because I actually really, really like Merry and I really, really like Pippin. But at the end of the day, I'm happy because I got my Helm's Deep kind of stuff, and that's definitely like top notch for me. And what we got with Merry and Pippin just segueing into the Isengard battle was super, super fantastic. And it was a lot of like a slow burn build up to that, which I get because as they said, it takes a long time to say, so they only say something if it's worth saying. But
Some people should listen to that advice.
oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, when I think you're right, Travis, because when you're looking at the Ents, they're definitely looking at it from a selfish standpoint. Because they get called out. Mary's like, "Oh, are you part of this world, aren't you?" And they're just kind of like, you get the shot of like 7 different Ents there, and they're all like dumbfounded for a second, and it's like, "Oh no, you got him good." Yeah.
Nobody's on their team though.
Yeah,
That's the whole
yeah,
point,
that's
right?
true.
We're not on anyone's team because nobody's on our team.
Yeah, but that's again like I love how Pippin just steers the direction away, like sending him off, and just when you get Treebeard's just like, and he just calls him out like a wizard should know better, and then you're like, oh shit, like my business is with Isengard tonight, like it's the real deal, and that's when like this is a part that
Looks like Isengard's back on the menu.
yeah. Oh, this part just it gets me like so like excited. I just want to break out like action figures or something for this because when it's like the music plays for the like the tree end score and they're just like coming out of the forest and it's like the final march of the Ents and it's just so good.
And what I like, it's like very similar to to Star Wars. Obviously, Tolkien wrote this years ago, but just the idea of you have like Palpatine where he like undermines the Ewoks, right? And it's very similar to Sauron, like undermines, doesn't think about the trees. Like they're so in the back of his mind that it's like this little. They are big characters, but this big thing, like this thing that is unprecedented in these movies that he's not really concerned about at all is the downfall of that entire situation. And talk about just like serotonin. I just love visually when they show from inside the caves all the water just spilling in. Like I love that all just the water filling everything. It's so good. So,
Yeah, I had a question about that. Is that like was that like a lake before or something before they built the dam?
Yeah, I don't.
Or like did they actually just dig that deep into the ground in a?
Because they had a
What feels
dam,
like a
right?
short
So
amount of time.
there was like an actual water river or something that went through Isengard. It might have been the River
Okay.
Isen. I don't know. I don't exactly know that, but like you would have imagined that the dam would have been built from the time that Saruman was doing some bad shit because it looked like it was an orc-made dam for sure.
Oh yeah, 100%. Rusty
Yeah,
metal.
so it must have been pretty recent, I would imagine. I don't know. I don't know all those details.
I got another question for you guys. So let's say the Uruk-hai do not move out to go to Helm's Deep and they stick around. Do you think the Ents still win against 10,000 Uruk-hai?
Yes, 100%. I think so.
Why
Just
is
that
that?
water. I
Well,
mean, like,
do
Ents
they
are
manage to
strong,
get to
too.
the water though? Because I
Dude,
mean,
the
if you put like
Ents-
5,000 Uruk-hai there,
Okay.
I think so.
The Ents are so incredibly strong. They are like the equivalent of like 10 cave troll strengths. Like bare minimum. Like they are so strong. They're so old. They've been there longer than the elves have been. Like there's the first age. Before the first age is the year of the trees. And that's like literally when they were popping off. So yes, I think 100%. It's funny, while I was watching the scene, I even kind of thought of that. I'm like, would they pop off here? I'm like, yeah, I really think they would, honestly, especially if they just assembled and like all of the Ents just came in, because they're just not really like
Should've gave the
prepared
ring
for
to
that.
them, you know.
And like we mentioned the one that was lit on fire. I don't think a single Ent died in that attack. Like
I
there
don't
was
think
still
so
orcs
either, no.
defending. There was one that lit on fire and he just like got a bit of a haircut, I guess. But yeah, it's something I was gonna. Oh yeah, Travis, you were mentioning
Do
how
they have
like
like a
Sauron-
vital organ? Like, how do you kill an ant?
I think you got to
exactly?
get deep in there. Like you got to go through bark to bark. Like I think you like.
I don't even know, man. I really don't even know.
Like, if you cut it in half, is it like, well, now it's 2 ants? Like, does he grow a new pair of eyes or something?
Probably, yeah. Because like
I would think
you
it's
see
dead.
that where like a tree would fall over, sometimes just new growth comes out of it, right?
Yeah. It's
I don't
interesting
know.
because I always took it that when they go to the edge of the forest and they see a lot of it's been chopped down, I always took it that there were some ants involved in that part of the forest, but I guess not.
I did as well. Yeah.
I think so.
So they can be killed. So that's what I have subscribed.
Wait,
to
Like
so
they,
they already
probably
got-
would have
but
slowly
you
grown
just said
back,
that
I would imagine.
you just said that these ants would have taken on 10,000 orcs. So you
Well,
don't think
those
that,
weren't
like,
Ents though, right? That they cut down. Those were just trees. Like he doesn't say these Ents that were my friends. He
Well, that's
says
what I
these
just
trees
asked.
That's
were
what Dylan and I were saying that
Oh,
we
okay.
view that
I
they.
misheard you then.
I
Yeah.
took it as like there was some of ends in there and stuff like that. but
I
they,
see.
of
No,
course,
yeah,
but
sorry, I misheard you there. Yeah.
I'm still on team. If they got cut in half, they're dead. I feel like the organ, the heart is like deep in the middle, and you got to tear through the bark, or you got to tear it, or you got to chop it off. Now chopping in half would be very tough. I feel, but still, I feel that's where you could kill them and stuff like that. So
I'd like to
yeah.
see that battle. Like, that's
I
a
wanna see
fun what
the-
if episode. 10,000
Yeah.
orcs versus the ants. Let's
I was
see.
gonna say,
1,000
like,
ways to
I
die.
want to just see the anatomy of these things. I want to see where their vital organs are and all this stuff. Travis, you mentioned that Saruman, like, kind of,
he was naive about them.
he naive about the Ents, and I'm gonna correct you a little bit here. He wasn't
Okay.
naive about the Ents. He was naive about the hobbits, and that's like a main theme about the entire story of the War of the Ring.
True,
Is that
yeah.
Saruman just keeps undermining these hobbits, because even Gandalf the White says, like when he meets our trio of like the God, paraphrase here, but like the hobbits are entering Fangorn and they're going to affect something in the woods that hasn't happened in forever, and it's directly caused to them. I think that's his foresight of kind of seeing that Pippin and Merry kind of push them in that direction, because like Treebeard never would have gone down to Isengard. Maybe eventually, but like he never really would have gone down there until Pippin had like the quick wits to be like, actually no, take us back there. And I love the line too when he's like, yeah, no, he's like the place where, or what is it? It's like the place that has the most danger is like the safest that will be. And the Treebeard's like, that doesn't really make sense to me. But you are really small. And then he just like goes along with it. And then he just like leads into like, I love going south. It just feels like I'm walking downhill. And like,
I know he's just starting to monologue and everything.
Oh,
Voiced
yeah.
by the guy that does Gimli. If people didn't know that.
oh, I
Same
didn't know
actor.
that. Yeah, John Rice Davies
Yeah.
or something like that. John Davis Rice.
Yeah, I always screw him up with the other guy that has like
What
a very
else has he
similar
been
name,
in?
John Rice.
Looks like another
Indiana
actor.
Jones.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's right. Oh my gosh.
He's a-
I didn't think
I
about
thought
that till
iconic
now.
role, but because there's that young, good-looking guy that has another name that's almost like Jonathan Davies Rees or something. Like there's two actors that are very similar names. So I'm always like, am I saying this guy's name right from Gimli? But
Yeah. And then, oh my God, what was I talking? Oh yeah, with the Ents. And I love the Ents. Honestly, I absolutely love all the sequences of them just talking. I feel like, again, just the fact that like just thinking about the history about like how long they've been a part of this world and just kind of like there. I really love all those moments, like when Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn enter Fangorn, and like they just feel, or like Legolas actually like puts a point of mentioning of like this wood is just incredibly old, like even like to his perspective, right? And like he's been around since the Second Age, he's lived for thousands of years already, and for him to just be like, this is just a whole nother level. I love when I love all the humor around them. I love them interacting with Merry and Pippin, and I also feel like the scenes that we have with them, they're spaced out enough that it doesn't feel like it's too much for me. I feel like we might have some like Rohan stuff, and then we'll jump to them just kind of traversing. You have him just like narrating some poetry, and he's like, "This is one of my own creations," and then he just goes onto his poem, and then just like putting Merry and Pippin to sleep. I just love the whole psychology around them too, or maybe that's not the right word to use there. Just the whole motivation around them. Again, like I was mentioning, how like they just see themselves as being neutral because they've been on the earth for all these eras. Like they have lived through all of these rises and falls of dark powers, like strong powers. So for them, they probably just see like an age as like a day, honestly. Like it's just such a different perspective of time. And then the way that they like interact with the hobbits, and just it's two forces that, or yeah, like two parties that just completely don't understand each other. That's just really fun for me. I love Merry and Pippin too. I love at the end, I mean, we get that awesome climax when they kick in the gates at Isengard and like just release the dam, and then you have Merry and Pippin just like find like the like the food. I love how he just like a full turkey just like floating in the water there.
Yeah.
It's like all seasoned and ready to go, and they're all pumped. And they find long bottom leaf, the finest pipeweed, and all the, or just everything, the whole South Farley. So
Don't be.
I yeah, they're like smoking clouds, and I use that gif so many times of just be patient, don't be hasty, and just like Pippin's little like his little thing he does. God,
Mannerisms,
it's
yeah.
so great. Yeah, his mannerisms for sure. And another thing too that's going to be really interesting when we jump into Return of the King, that's not really like focused on in the movie, so I feel like it's safe to mention it here, is when like Theoden arrives, because that's where they're going. Like they're going to Isengard. They get there, and they find just Isengard completely flooded with 2 hobbits there. Theoden has never seen a hobbit in his entire life, so he just like arrives, and these 2 hobbits took out all of Isengard. He's like, "What the fuck is going on here?" It's just
Our
it's
new
so
secret
interesting.
weapon.
Yeah,
New
like,
kings.
yeah, I'm recruiting them, and like I feel like from that point, like it makes sense why he would like really want to take on like a character like Merry, like as like just a squire, right? And I feel like that's something that just I did not even think about really until it's like, oh yeah, no, like the Ents aren't really there when they get there, so like it's just these 2 hobbits, and just Isengard is completely flooded, and it's like, what happened here, right? I think that's a really funny situation if you're just a Rohirrim, like a soldier from Rohan. You're like, what are those things? It's like they did
Well, I guess
this? Oh my
Treebeard's
God.
there too, right? Because he talks to him.
Does he talk to them?
In Return of the King, I think he might have with Gandalf.
Is he?
and
Okay,
stuff
yeah.
like
I can't
that. Yeah.
exactly remember.
And
He
plus,
says like,
like,
"Bless
that.
my bark" or something like that.
Yeah, but
Oh, okay.
and plus, like in Return of the King,
Makes
you're right
sense.
where they don't really have Theoden like look at the hobbits with lots of respect. Like he kind of nicely talks down to Merry a lot in that movie. Of like
Yeah.
he's just a little thing. Like he's not.
Little kid,
and
right.
Carl Urban Aramir does that too. Like they all kind of like he's not really built for war and stuff like that. But
Because like from their perspective, that's what their kids look like. Like they've
Yes.
never seen a hobbit. They don't understand that like these
are grown men.
halfling. Yeah, they are. They're
They're
older
50.
than them. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I don't think those ones are 50. I know Frodo's the oldest out of all of them. Pippin's
41,
the
I
youngest.
thought we said it was like
Something
41 or
like-
something
yeah.
around this time. Yeah,
You're
which
definitely in the right ballpark.
I think the funniness was that because Elijah Wood's like the youngest in real life out of all of them, so it was a fun flip.
There you
But
go.
let's take another ad break, and then we'll keep trucking along. So we'll be right back. And we're back. So anything else to add on Merry, Pippin, Ents, Treebeards?
This is somewhat
leaves.
related, but a couple things that are cut from the extended edition earlier on when Saruman is kind of still getting prepared to send everyone out to Helm's Deep and all that. And there's kind of like this one orc lackey who is almost like framed as like a captain kind of dude, where he's like giving him permission to like burn more of the forest down. I thought that was interesting because they like you could tell like that person was cast, you know, like for this role or something to get this scene. But then it's like, you know, he never shows up again, so it totally makes sense that they would cut that. It's totally non-consequential. But maybe the more interesting thing is that they cut the scene of the man who, like, you know, cuts his hand or whatever, like pledging himself to Saruman. And Saruman, I think, has a line where he's like, all of your land was taken, and that's like your motivation essentially. So like I just need some background here of like who this guy is, who his men are, and who took their land. Like what's going on there? Like
Whose boat
what's the
was it?
TLDR on that? What am I missing there?
What did you say?
He's talking about like the Wildlands, like the mountain men and stuff like that, who is like they feel
Oh, like the
dejected.
Dunlings? Yeah. So those
they're taking your
those
land, your homes.
exactly. Yeah, they're just They're like wild men that have just kind of always sided with like the bad guys. Like I think their ancestors
Pieces of shit.
have like a
there's
specific.
no
Yeah,
power.
definitely. Yeah, like they're. I forget specifically where their ancestors come from, but like yeah, they've just always been like supporting Sauron. I think like their ancestors even date back to like supporting Morgoth. Which is hilarious because Morgoth just hated men even when they were on his side. Like he saw them as a creation of Aru Iluvatar, so he's like, I fucking hate these things, even though they were like on his team. It's kind of funny, but yeah, no, they've just always been bad, and that's what they are. They're just dirty,
So who
dirty
took
bad
their
men.
land then?
He did say
Probably would
he
have been
got them to-
Rohan
Yeah,
and Gondor. So
because probably these
Like
people.
what? Like long ago or recently?
well, like they're definitely not doing too well right now, Gondor and Rohan. So yeah, I would imagine the last couple hundred years.
They probably took it like justly, right? Because these men probably stole it from people like in a
Yeah.
bad way and stuff.
I don't
like
think they
that.
won it politically or anything like that. They
Y-
definitely
in
did
a
some-
vote. Yeah,
some
we are
dirty
now the
tactics.
mayor of. But I will say, like Dylan, you mentioned, and I feel like there's just like lots of little, just like 15-second, 20-second scenes around anytime Saruman's around in camp or things like that they cut, and I really like that because I love Saruman. I love like building of the army and things like that. And there'll just be like certain shots that are a little bit different or it's paced a little different. So that's extend stuff that it's not that long, and I wish they kept all. I get why you do cut it because like, oh, we could take out this, take out this. You get the point. Sauron's building an army. Saruman is, but that's what I love with this. Is just like more just like laying out of what he's cooking and what he's doing and everything like that. And he is building up this army pretty
He's
well.
cooking
where-
rotisserie chickens that are fully seasoned. That's what he's-
100%, yeah, and that's why that's where the meat on the menu is, you know, Saruman's menu. So, and again, Christopher Lee, he's outstanding in this. I love everything they do. We already talked about him in World Tongue, but I love their relationship, their dynamic, and I got negative thoughts, but I'll save that for Return the King as far as like
Right.
negative on the theatrical, like
Yeah.
you know, where we get there, but all this stuff is good.
Taylor, do you have anything else on the Merry and Pippin, that whole storyline?
On them, no. I think I've voiced everything I could about them.
He's voiced it all.
Mhm.
Okay. Let's jump to this random scene, the warg scene. This is kind of once again somewhat related. I've always loved this scene. I was maybe surprised in rewatching just now that I felt like this scene was over in like 5 minutes or something. Like it feels very short. I feel like in my mind it was always this big battle or something, which I guess doesn't make sense because there's not tons and tons of people there and tons of wargs. But
You're
yeah,
mixing
I
the
guess
video game level in here because the video game level
That's-
takes a while.
that's honestly probably what it is. Yeah, it's probably 100% that. And yeah, I think it's a good action scene. I like all the stuff that happens here. Obviously, Aragorn falling off the cliff is a big emotional beat as well. But I've always really liked this scene. I remember as a kid, just like sometimes I would just put in. I would always forget if it was in what movie it was in, but I would want to find and watch this scene. So I'd like put in different discs and like skip around and try and find in the scene select because I just like wanted to watch this scene for whatever reason. So once again, probably the video game thing like probably highlighted it more than it needs to be or something. But I've always liked that scene.
Yeah, no, it's good. I always liked he took a little tumble off the cliff. That's like a meme. That's one of those lines just sticks in my head because that actor delivered it so good. Like it's such a good line
100%.
reading.
Yeah.
You
No,
know?
I love it so much, and as everything that you just stated, I don't know how it just turned into a meme for me. So when I like see him, I'm like anticipating the chumble off the cliff. Like I get chuckled when I lead up to it. I think,
He
but
has a
the
gross
overall
little
scene.
gash too on his cheek there.
Oh, he's looking rough. Yeah.
His
just
name is
spewing blood.
Sharku.
Of
Sharku.
course. Yeah, I
That's a
love
good
pull,
Sharku.
Taylor.
Yeah.
I know all the elven names. Taylor knows all the orc names. I respect it.
And I don't know names whatsoever.
no names.
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that sequence too. It's really like stressful too, just knowing that like you just have women and children just like roaming, and then you just have these like orcs on wolves essentially, like just powerful
Feral
wolves,
beasts.
just just ambushing them. And again, it just goes to show like the lows that Saruman would like really go
gonna
to
happen.
just like screw over or like just to finish Rohan. I guess he doesn't really care if they're men, women, or children. He just wants them all purged. But yeah, just to get them at their like super weakest point, it's really intense because it's like, how do you make sure that these people are safe? Like you don't really have time to react. I thought initially initially it was kind of funny of Aragorn just being like, "We're all gonna die." He doesn't say that, but just like danger, ambush. Like he's just stressing everybody out. It shows like a bunch of like women and children. They're just like, "Holy fuck! Why did we leave? Why did we leave Edoras?" So yeah, it's just so intense, and yeah, like the chaos of it. It's really good, and I like that we do have a couple familiar faces bite the dust here, because again, it really makes it have consequence.
Don't even touch it, Taylor. We know who it is.
Hama is gone.
Familiar
Yeah.
face, Ahmed.
Character like that. There is one moment I will say though, it always just looks weird to me. It's when like the epic battle's starting, you have Legolas just like shooting arrows, the horses come around, and he like grabs Gimli's horse in such a way that he like the momentum would have made him rotate this way. Sorry, visual listeners, but he rotates the opposite way, and I'm like,
No, not like
maybe they're just really trying to hit the nail on the head that he's an elf and he just does
Yeah.
crazy acrobatic shit. But it always has kind of bothered me
Legolas's
that
gravity is like it changed. It's fluid. It changes.
Point of
yeah.
center somewhere else. Yeah, it's funny you say
That's
that.
fair.
Kirk. Every time we watch it, Emily brings it up. She's like, I don't know how he gets on that fucking horse and stuff like that. But he's just his powerful arms, Legolas. You know, he can just pull himself up like that dead stop. He's just showing off. But yeah, I don't have much more to add. It's a fantastic sequence. The intensity's there. I'll say this is probably though the worst the CGI ever looks in these movies. Of they look great when they're up close and not moving too much. When they're running, their running does not look the greatest, but that's where it's like it's a very minor as far as the thing, the lowest totem pole. And then I love the stuff with Gimli of them keep like they land on him and you know one gets shot and stuff like that. So that's all good stuff. And there's one shot in particular when Arwen sees Aragorn about to run over and fight these things. It's like the most like
Eowyn.
romantic Eowyn, sorry, yeah, the most like romantic novel because it's in slow motion. His hair's like wiggling and stuff like that. Just looks like the
Wiggling.
yeah, it just looks like the cover of cheesy romance novel.
Fabio looking guy.
100%. And Eowyn's just like, oh my goodness, look at I'm gonna be his queen one day, and it doesn't go that route. But
I'm excited to talk about too, like what Theoden says to her in like Return
oh
of the King,
my
too.
god, like yeah, let's talk because that's a
Yeah,
half an hour
it's a whole other
conversation.
thing.
I can't wait for Return of the King.
I don't even remember what you're talking about exactly.
Awesome.
Oh, just
The
you
whole
wait.
wedding scene.
Yeah, extended. They get married and he divorced. He's like, what is it called? Is it an annulment? What is it when you can get change the reverse of a wedding in the same
that's
24
right.
hours?
Annulment?
Yeah.
I think I
Sounds
know,
right.
yeah.
Right away, Aragorn's like, annulment. I regret it.
Just wanted that double king title.
Yeah, putting them both together.
I gotta commend Legolas here because in the Fellowship retro, I kind of bagged on Orlando Bloom's acting. I feel like he does a great job in this movie. There are a lot of great scenes, whether it's just the little moments of him like, oh, the skies are red, blood has been shed. Just little stuff like that, which could be still as cheesy as it seems in the first movie, but instead it's not. I really like it. Some dramatic moments when he and Aragorn reunite after he takes a tumble off the cliff. Like I gotta say, I really like him a lot more in this one in terms of the performance. That holds up for me. So shoutouts to Legolas. I just had to rescind I'm not going to say hate, but I'll rescind whatever criticism. I mean, okay, that criticism's still fair, but he makes a good comeback here, and he's in my good books again. I'm ready for his performance in
You're not-
Return of the King.
You're not calling for an annulment on your
Yeah, no.
criticisms of the last
Yeah,
movie.
exactly.
The only one that stands out to me is when Theoden tells him that Aragorn is
Yeah.
like dead, and he's just like it's
Just
like
stares
Orlando
at him
Bloom.
like,
Yeah, forgot.
"You're going
a
over
line."
next.
Yeah, it's like he forgot a line, and he's just looking. I'm like, what is the choice here? And they let it go
Yeah.
for like an extra 10
He's
seconds.
looking for the
like,
cue card that someone's
Yeah.
supposed to be holding.
It's like, cut the scene, cut it. We get it. He's sad and everything like that. And what do you think he
Yeah.
was gonna do with that? The charm there, was he gonna get it back to Arwen?
I
if he
think
had a
so.
chance to?
I would
Yeah,
imagine,
That's what I
yeah.
thought so. For himself.
I think he was going to
Oh,
grind
elf
it down
girl.
into dust and make it.
Yeah. You could turn this
jewel
into a sort of powder.
Snort it.
and Make a
Oh,
necklace out of it.
I'm ready
Make a
for
whole new
battle,
jewel.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like also like this just has more moments to really dialogue with
Mhm.
like not only Aragorn but just others. Like we
Mhm.
mentioned the Theoden, like he does
Yeah.
talk to Theoden in this, but just there's a lot more passion from him, especially in that moment when they're at the Battle of the Helm's Deep, and we brought up the meme. But yeah, like it's pretty much all in Elvish, but he's just really showing a lot of emotion in the words that he's speaking, and
Mhm.
you don't really get that in Fellowship. It's mostly like lambus bread, a simple crumb will feed a grown
Yeah,
man for a
he's
day.
the
You know,
cool, calm, like
Yeah.
like he's just here to help us get from point to another. But it feels like the humans, dwarfs, are kind of like rubbing off on him a little bit as far as he's gaining
Yeah.
more personality, or he's letting that
Mhm.
personality show. Where before he might have a guard up. I will say, I know it's me. I say, oh, we give it the pass. I will always say that it's a sign of the times. Every time I watch this, I go, I still wish they did not do the skateboard thing. I know it's cool. I know it's like,
I
but it's
love
just
it.
one of these things where because it brings me to this was made in 2002 and Orlando Bloom was like a ex player guy, like he did all this type of X sports, extreme sports. So for me,
what? Orlando Bloom, really?
well, he not like he was a professional athlete, but he's always like there's videos of behind the scenes of he trying to get the cast members to go do skydiving in between like scenes.
Really?
And stuff like that.
I
Oh
didn't
yeah,
know that. That's
he's
funny.
all, and that's why I got added in because he's an extreme sports guy. So every time I see it, I just think of 2000. This is 2002. So I that just reminds me of current day, and I wish it was out. I wish I had an extended version where I could take it out because it's cheesy. It's yeah, it's just a sign
It's
of the
so
times.
funny. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's
It's
all
maybe,
like, watch the
strategically
features.
maybe a bad idea, right? Like, okay, I'm an
Yeah.
archer. I excel at range, but I'm going to do this thing that puts me right in front of my opponent. So.
And I'm always surprised when we get to the end of the battle when both Gimli and he says 42 and then Gimli says 43. I'm surprised by the amount of and I guess we should probably like not quickly but at least talk about because we haven't talked fully about Helm's Deep. Like there's that one moment where Legolas like shoots the ladder and there's like it feels like 20 guys on the ladder and there's like 50 guys on the ground and maybe they're not deaths but it's like I feel like 43, 42 is like
Yeah, I
low
guess
balling it.
They're
Yeah,
not
hurts the
confirmed.
calculus.
They're probably like
True.
43 confirmed kills. So
It's
they're-
like in
they-
Call
the
of Duty when you get
gentleman
like
rule,
the assist
yeah.
and stuff like
I
that.
will say I feel like Gimli gets a good boost from the ramp scene because they just
Yes.
they're just
Oh,
knocking
yeah.
orcs off like crazy. So that's like you're not really dealing the death blow, but you're knocking them off the bridge that
True.
will then kill them
Yeah.
in the fall. So I'm sure he was even padding his numbers there too.
100%.
A lot of those are probably like that was Aragorn that truly did that, but he'll take credit for it. But I agree because that is something that is cut is that scene of them. That's like the one of the only things cut from Helm's Deep is that
system.
scene of
Yeah.
them sitting there when Gimli like whatever he's sitting on the body. That's cut too. So I always thought of the Return of the King scene when they're comparing numbers and stuff, but didn't really realize that they had done that too in Helm's Deep. So it was kind of fun
Yeah.
to see in retrospect.
and
Yeah.
it's oh go ahead. Karen.
I was gonna say I love that like this is where it started and then it carries
Mm-hmm.
on Return of the King of them doing the kill tallies. Even like especially as a kid, I was like, oh, these guys are
Oh,
so
yeah.
cool, So and like even still, I love it. It's that friendly competition. Travis, you brought up how like Gimli and Legolas are just a lot more friendly in this movie, and I love those moments. Again, I like looking back to the start of Fellowship when they just absolutely hated each other to where we are now. After the Lorien event, that's where they kind of bonded, and then like it's shown in the movies, even just going from that point forward. So I love those two. I love the dynamic, especially like they're in a similar like side character role. So the fact that they can share those moments together, it's a similar thing that like Merry and Pippin kind of have, right? Like I feel like if they're on their own, it's kind of lesser, but like the fact that they have each other to bounce off each other, or my gosh, that was a weird way to say that. They have each other to bounce things off of one another. So I like all that stuff.
Yeah, and just in case, like when he makes the box joke, like in the past, Gimli
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have laughed at that, but in this case, he gets that, and
I love his laugh in that scene too. He just like totally looks all serious, and then like a Mr. Krabs laugh.
one of my favorite things in the battle too is right when they're all running up, like this is like shoot for the neck and below the arms. That's where the armor is weak. It's like, and he's like whispering it to like 3 or 4 different. I was like, why didn't you say this before
In
we
Elvish,
started? Yeah,
too.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
all of the men are probably shooting for the fucking breastplate.
These people who've maybe never shot an arrow could maybe use this advice, Legolas. Like, please yell this out. Tell Theoden, tell Aragorn about it. But it's kind of like what we talked about with Gollum. It's tough because like, not even just in cash. It's like in any piece of media review literature, I feel like Helm's Deep has been talked to death as like just this perfect, like fantastic, some of the best cinema of all time. And it just is. It is just like everything other than for me the shield thing, like the skateboard. It's like a 10 out of 10 for action, drama, visuals, the set, the fact that if you go watch special features, most of this thing was actually built and they could walk around and play with it and everything like that. The rain, the color, the depths, like it's just perfect. It's just like and it's just this whole, and you never get bored of it. It's like an hour-long scene, and you're just like, I could take another hour of this battle. Like, and I think that's why it's hard already got some like scenes in other films that can go to this length, because it's just like this is it. This is like the pitch perfect perfection of every time you think the heroes have it, you know, a bomb goes off. Okay, we're going good, and then one of our heroes dies, and then the volley of arrows, and then the ladders come up. It's just like scene after scene, just like what they would have done to storyboard it and create and everything like that. It's just like perfection, and it is. That's why I think for many of us, like it was our favorite, or maybe it is for some people still, like when you were a kid, because like seeing this on screen was incredible. And same thing, I just remember how loud it was in the theaters, in the best way, just how loud everything was. And it just doesn't get much better than that when you're talking about like movie making as far as action. I'm somebody too, like I appreciate action, but there's so many times like look at something like Day Shift that just came out, which is weird to shout now, but just like the action, I'm like, oh yeah, it's fine, but I kind of tune out for that stuff. Like I'm usually for the character things, but in this, I'm here for all of this. And there's still like, I think the right amount of levity, you know, like when I talk about something like Endgame, that's what brings notches down, where sometimes there's too much jokes going on where I'm like, hey, this is life or death, like snap at it. Or in this, like I think there's the right amount of little breaks of like tossing the drawer for like Legolas and Gimli. So it's there's no, everything I could say is there's no hyperbolic or word that can describe this other than just it's perfection, you know, shield and all.
Yeah, this has always been such an iconic scene. I think for me too, when I was a kid, I had like this table in my bedroom that was kind of like a nice table, it was like pretty much like on the ground, you know, so I'd sit there. And I had like this, like it's not a Lego set, I was about to say that, but it's like these action figures that they're pretty stationary, you know, rather than like a G.I. Joe kind of thing. But it was like this set piece where it had what is the name of that thing that they would use to crash the door open? Like I feel like
a
Taylor
battering
would know.
ram.
Yeah, battering ram. You got it. I get your Warhammer 2, I bet you have battering rams.
Yeah, oh yeah, plenty of them.
But yeah, it had like that, and then it had like the ballista, which I think that's always super cool. They use that to shoot the ladders up. That's like a gigantic ass grappling hook. And then I had like, it wasn't even like a you know, Helm's Deep castle set, but it was just like the Fisher Price castle. I don't know if you guys know this iconic Fisher Price castle. If you Google it, it'll probably pop up. So I'd have that on the table. I'd like set up this like Battle of Helm's Deep. So I feel like that's given me a lot of appreciation for just certain things too, where I don't know, I just played with it with my hands in a way. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned a lot of this stuff, Travis. I love that it starts out with like these mini ladders, and then it evolves these giant ladders with like just, as you said, like 40 orcs on it. The elves showing up too. I mean, the costume design here is fantastic. I love what the elves are wearing. I love the volley shot. I think that's just strategically such a cool idea. And the visuals too, were like these arrows are whizzing right past their ears. But every one of these guys is fucking Hawkeye, so it's like, of course, it's gonna be a perfect shot that's not gonna hit anyone, and hopefully
Aragorn's inches from death. If he like sneezes, it's over.
Like I know they're elvish archers and everything, but still, like I would have.
And
stuck,
Aragorn's not wearing a helmet. Like not.
No.
If he gets headshot, he's dead instantly.
How did we lose Aragorn? Oh, he tripped into our volley.
This fucking elf over here.
Yeah.
They also the costume design for the orcs here, because we talked about this in Fellowship, how the Orca have these like those swords that are kind of like a rectangle with a little notch kicked out, but they kind of, you know, they didn't have their full armor sets yet, but here they finally have their full armor sets. I love they're just very angular. They stick up a lot on the helmet. They kind of have those circle eye holes. And you know, a lot of them are just super ripped too, so they'll have just like some armor, and then you see their huge ass arms and stuff like this. So I just love the design of all those guys there. The setup of like, oh, Helm's Deep, very amazing defense, except for this one weakness, and they kind of zoom in on it too. And I love that setup too of like, aim for the one with the bomb, and he's just, you know, very Boromir style, is taking all these arrows, but he will not give up. I love that scene. To me has always felt like it's almost going in slow-mo or something. But then when he jumps, it's like he just instantly it's like that part of it is very quick. All the rocks flying out, and that counts for a few kills as well. I love everything about Helm's Deep. It is iconic. The ramp too. Love that ramp. I mean, when Gimli and Aragorn are there, but then also when they ride out on the horses and just knocking everything off that ramp, just iconic. I love that there's that fucking little side hatch that goes around, even so Aragorn and Gimli can get there. It's kind of cheesy, but I just love that there's just this hidden little side hatch. What else? I think I've mentioned pretty much everything, but it is iconic. There's so much to love. It just every minute it ramps up. It throws out some new interesting thing for the viewer. So it's just a smorgasbord, as we love to say here on GeekVerse. And so it begins, of course, that iconic line when the rain starts and the guy does the accidental shot that you have in the pole. That fucking guy. Just I've always loved that. You can see him quivering. Obviously, he's scared. He's never been in a battle before.
It was a
This is his
perfect
first
shot,
one. What a
too.
way to start a battle.
Aldor is his name.
It was a
Good, good.
perfect shot. You didn't even have Legolas tell him that it was.
Maybe
a weak,
he has been in
weak spot
battle
in the
before.
neck.
Because you're right. That was he was locked and loaded with that shot.
He looked pretty scared though. Like he was shaking the whole.
Are you
time.
kidding me? Are you kidding me? Do you see what he saw? He saw 10,000 Uruk-hai marching towards him, and he had no escape route. I would have been shitting my pants.
I've been ready.
I mean, he could have
Yeah.
been shitting
Let's
his
use
pants
Aragorn.
too. We don't know
Oh,
if he
absolutely.
wasn't.
I would have been
the
using that as a
rain-
weapon. Yeah.
The rain disguises.
Oh god.
Throwing shit
Poison
at
damage.
us, sire.
Yeah, not to reiterate everything you guys said, because this is such an epic scene. I said earlier that like I used to just fast forward to this scene to just watch it as a kid. Like I
This is your
love.
AB moment, right?
Yeah,
long
exactly.
AB
The
moment.
PG AB moment. Yeah, like I just loved everything about it, and I feel like one thing I could highlight that I know you guys mentioned, but I'll just emphasize a little bit more was just like the before the battle, like when the host is coming, like towards getting closer, and you just hear the footsteps just thundering, and there's no like music or anything. You just have like the rain coming down, the elves and the men just chilling. They're at like the one I don't know what it's called, but it's like a wooden like plank that you like push forward, and then you could like throw stones down. They're just like kind of chilling on there, and you just hear like the creak of them like kind of opening it and like checking, and it's just this like it's literally the calm before the storm, and it's just so much tension. You can just see the fear on like the humans and stuff. But yeah, no, everything about this scene is definitely a 10 out of 10. It's just such a master class of like movie making. I think like to just have all this practical and like
the peak.
yeah, this came out in 2002, and I'm still just watching it. I'm like, I can't believe just seeing that these are like real actors, like the Uruk-hai just like running all together, like fully suited up. Like it's just so baffling to me. Yeah, definitely pull a lot of gifs from the scene too. I like the how did it come up to this, like the Theoden one. There's so many amazing moments from this scene, but you guys covered pretty much all the heavy hitters there. Yeah.
The family's having to say goodbye also, before
yeah.
the battle starts.
Super
very much
sad,
considered,
yeah.
like, just children are being suited up here, and I think that's very effective for these people that you don't really know, like these
Right.
characters, but still,
Yeah.
it's felt. So I thought that was.
There's one
pretty successful.
specific where there's like a kid putting on a helmet, and it's so oversized for him. It's just like, oh my gosh, like I couldn't even imagine. Again, I'm probably that age watching it like the first time, right? And then like seeing a kid similar to your age just
Everyone's
like
like,
going
"Oh,
into
no."
battle. Yeah.
Well, and it's very thematically, like, not to put more shit on Theoden, but like he says that line about no parent should have to live past their child.
Well, the
and,
parents
like,
are already dead, so right? So now they gotta call
yeah,
back
but
to-
then there's a lot of mothers just like setting their children
That's
off
true.
to go die, right? It's just like from where he started to what's happening now. It's like again, it's like The other thing I want to show that I forgot was when Aragorn's with the kid and he's telling him it's a good sword, even though you feel like Aragorn's probably just lying through his teeth. It just like makes
Such a
that
great
kid feel
moment.
hopeful, but it's so good. He's swinging and everything like that's that. Another like okay, this is how this guy could be the king, the leader of us all. You know.
Tamas
Taylor-
kid.
I was gonna say Taylor's ready to drop
Yeah.
the name drop right
Slayer
here.
of Hama.
What if it was the
Shit
opposite? What if
sword.
he's like, yeah, this blade fucking sucks,
Yeah.
man. Like this can't even cut butter. What are you doing? with
Yeah,
this?
you better find a spot to hide here because you can't take it on the orcs. Yeah. Want to switch swords? Yes. No, I'm joking. I'm not giving you my sword.
Yeah.
Stand next to Gimli. Anything to say on Helm's Deep, Taylor, specifically?
I mean, you guys have pretty much said it all. It's just
stole it
fantastic.
from you.
It's absolutely incredible. Like that calm before the storm, I really love that. There's one significant moment here where the wall gets blown up, Aragorn falls in behind, and there's just the volley of archers, the Elvish soldiers that were still behind, not on the wall, but behind on ground level. It just makes me tense up when you just charge at spears. And so when he just like, Asada Vide, says something like that, and he just charges with the elves.
I was like,
he
shit,
Spanish?
dude, it was Elvish. That was good.
But they like storm,
learning.
and then Aragorn just like takes his sword and whacks one of the
Yeah.
spears to the side, and you just see one elf just get like penetrated by the spears. It's just so brutal to charge into something like that.
On that note,
Fuck.
too, I always just thought it was so intense to be leading that cavalry charge that Gandalf was doing, just into spears. Like, it's
Yeah.
just, ugh. Warfare's crazy, especially like that medieval warfare. My God.
The freaking angle on that hill that they're going down on, just nonsensical. That the horses are all don't like half of them just fall over there.
Doesn't
I don't know.
compute.
You can't slow down. You know, you're only ramping up speed if you're going down
Yeah.
that hill.
Eventually, you just start sliding down.
And they go
you
into
know,
a
there's
jump too.
What's that?
They go into a jump right when they get
Yeah,
to the
like
bottom.
right at
Their
the end, yeah.
horses
Set
arc
up some
up and
ramps.
jump.
I guess that's
Crush
like
a
the
few
big
people.
significance of them like bringing the light, right? Because it kind of blinds like the people, or not the people, the orcs bracing for the charge. So maybe that's like what makes the spears not really, as Taylor mentioned, just penetrate them.
Through the chest.
They had to throw a Wilhelm scream in here.
Yeah, I
yeah.
never know how I feel about the Wilhelm scream because I get it. It's like a Hollywood legacy thing, and you do it. It's one of these things that I wouldn't dock it points, but I didn't need it here. I think I like it more in cheesy type of
What
movies
is it?
and stuff. Like
What is it?
It's a Star Wars, like that scream, and people put it in.
It's just like a generic scream that is in
Oh, okay.
hundreds of movies.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
In
some
that
people were
moment,
there.
like, is it supposed to be like an Orakai or something? Like,
No,
is
it's
that
a
how
No,
band.
it was
I-
Elf flying off the wall.
Oh,
I think-
really?
yeah, I think it was
Okay.
an elf,
That's
yeah.
funny.
I can't remember.
I didn't know how to term. That's funny.
Yeah, if you YouTube it, you'll be like, oh yeah, I know exactly.
Yeah.
what this
Okay.
scream is.
I was gonna mention when Theoden, when they get victory and he drops like just the victory, we have victory. That I don't know how many times I just like either said that in my head or like if you win something, I just kind of like would like repeat that. It's just so iconic. It's that line that just will always stay with me, and I feel like in my head at least I could just make it like pitch perfect the way that it sounds. I guess that's how it works with everything. But no, I love that line. It's just it's so epic too. I feel like after every like victorious event, I feel required to just chant
Just
out like
scream.
Theoden King. Yeah.
I had a couple questions. I wrote this note down. I don't actually know where it really pops up, but there's a scene where they're talking about Arwen's immortality and how she will see him die and all that stuff. So I was kind of confused. I thought that when she like takes the oath to marry Aragorn, that she will like how long is her life going to be at that point? I guess is what I'm curious.
Like after he dies.
I guess like she could, I guess, still live thousands of years, but
Yeah.
she won't get that Okay, so I always
Well-
took it that when she gets married, like she is essentially getting rid of that part of herself, and she would then have like a shorter lifespan. But I guess it's not that; it's that she's not sailing on the boats. And that's
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's the big thing there is that she's basically making a decision that she won't be sailing to Valinor, which like that's a big deal because that's like them going to the Undying Lands. That's them returning to like their origin point. Now, Arwen wasn't born like in Valinor, so she was born already like in the realms of Earth. So I don't even fully understand how that works because it's like she has to make this decision right now, but it's like, can't you just like leave a boat or something and I'll just like
Yeah,
take
they
it
all
after
suck.
Aragorn
They're
dies or
all
something?
too judgmental.
Elves don't
Like-
suck. Come on.
Yeah, they
Also,
do.
elves like, do they have a lifespan then? Because we
They
know
just-
that they're
th-
like
no, they-
thousands of years old, but do
Yeah,
they-
so-
can they live forever, assuming they don't get like stabbed or something?
Yep. They don't
So she's
die
not-
like
technically,
naturally.
she could keep her immortality, even if she marries him.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think that's what Elrond's even kind of emphasizing is that like, yeah, you love him now, but like, and he is a Dunedain, so he's gonna live quite a long time, but nothing in comparison to what you're gonna do. So
Yeah.
you're just gonna be living in shambles, and then you're not gonna be like with the family. She's not gonna be with Elrond. She's not gonna be with the others that are sailed to Valinor. Yeah, no, I gotta learn a little bit more about that because I don't fully understand why that decision has to be made like in that specific moment because like there's more ships I would imagine that
Well,
could take them to Valinor.
There's like this doesn't happen in movies, but it's happened in the books where like they kind of do that with Frodo, where it's like he can only go. But in the books later on, Sam does join him after Rosie passes away. So it's weird they like phrase it as like, oh, this is the only time you could go, and then Sam goes a little later because technically he was a ring bearer for a little bit, so he gets that pass like while he served some time. I do have
Yeah.
some questions about this. One, I agree, Dylan, like the way they phrase it is strange in Fellowship of the Ring because she does say like I choose a mortal life, but she's literally saying like I choose a mortal life like you, like I'm choosing you. Like it's a weird
Right.
phrasing.
I see.
But
Okay.
the other question I had, so when they go, we were presumably they're gonna have. I think in the books confirm they do at least have a child and stuff like that. Is that child? What is the bloodline gonna be as far as Elvish and stuff like
It
that?
would be half elven. So
what do you
But
think
maybe
the
a little bit
lifespan?
more, right? Because Aragorn's got some elf in him too.
yeah, so it'd be like half elf, half Dunedain,
elf.
but like yeah, because he's not even.
He's not even
I-
half, right?
No, like he's just the Dunedain, and the Dunedain are no, what is it called? It's something else. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name now. But so the big deal there is that oh my gosh, I'm blanking now. I think it's Elrond's brother, Elros. He like started the kingdom of Travis doesn't like that name. He started the kingdom of Numenor, which like the Dunedain people were there, and they were just given long life as basically a gift for just being awesome, supporting the elves, just being great. So that's where that all started. And then I think Elros actually was like technically an elf, but he just like renounced his like immortality and like lived a mortal life. It's interesting though because like even Elrond is
But
technically
he could
a
still
half
live
elf.
forever.
Elros, I
Yeah.
don't think so. No, I think he would have a similar.
So you just turn
age.
it on and off, and you're like, I'm not gonna be immortal anymore.
Well, that's like basically what Arwen's doing, right?
But I
don't.
still
That's what I mean. Like I'm kind of out of my wheelhouse on this. I don't
But
fully understand why
that's
that
where
decision
this
has
movie
to be
doesn't
made in
pose it
moment.
that way because they show Aragorn dead and they're like, you would outlive him and he would just be a
And
dream.
that's
and stuff. So it's
what's-
like
That's what's
what?
weird because spoiler alert at the end of Return of the well, this isn't even in the movies, so it's not even spoiling. But like eventually Aragorn does die, and Arwen just like passes away like 3 years later or something. Like I don't fully understand
Lost
why
the will
she's
live.
giving away her immortality or how that even happens. So
But also,
I'll
it's
do
like,
some digging. I'll figure out
Sure.
some answers.
I feel like the son or child would not get the full life of an elf, even though Aragorn
Definitely
has
not.
that.
No.
Yeah, but even then, even if it's like half with the elf, because like I know they guess they get immortality, but it's like Elrond's like, yeah, there'd be no
Yeah.
reason. But it's like, well, no.
Well, I
there'd
guess
be a
isn't
kid
half
around,
of immortality like still immortality?
Maybe. Well, I guess
That's
I'm
true.
saying,
What's half of infinity?
Let's
right?
say
Yeah,
technically,
exactly, right?
let's say technically the elves aren't immortal and they got like a lifespan of 100,000 years, right? So in my mind, it's like, well, their son maybe could like live on for 50,000 years. It's like, well,
He'll probably
at least-
live on enough that he would die because he gets run over by a horse instead of like
Yes.
old age.
Well, yeah,
And Arwen
elves
would
can
be there
definitely
to
die
see her
of
son.
unnatural causes.
Oh yeah, we've
son
seen
or
it a few
daughter,
times.
you know. So
yeah,
Interesting.
absolutely.
A couple other things that are cut from the extended edition. Eowyn's backstory with her parents dying kind of get taken in by Théoden, so I thought that was interesting. The stew scene, we mentioned that. And also the like drop that Aragorn is 87 years old. So I never thought of him as that old, never really thought about that. I knew now that he has like a longer lifespan, but even as a kid I never really thought about it. He was just a regular man because, I'm here for the battles. I don't care about this lore. Of course
and
I
the
care about
theatrical, he doesn't drop that 87 line in that one, right?
That's what I mean. Like that's the
Yeah.
extended edition.
And
line.
yeah, and that was another thing too, as growing up a kid. That's why for me, I guess I prefer that. I grew up my whole life thinking like, oh, this is the man who's representing the man. Then later on, it's like, oh, well, there's a little more to him. So in the theatrical, they don't really talk about that stuff at all about him having this whole lineage and stuff.
Which yeah, I'm curious to see in the extended cut what other kind of dialogue we get about him that I'm not really familiar with, because that could be some big stuff there potentially. Since Travis, you have something to say.
Let's just take an ad break,
Okay.
and then we'll be right back. And we're back.
Okay, so since we were just talking about this, I kind of want to talk about Eowyn a bit more. We've mentioned her in passing, but I felt like this rewatch of the movie really gave me a lot of appreciation for her. Part of it is because there's some extended scenes that I don't really remember. But also just in general, I think she adds so much to this one. I mean, if you look at like Tolkien's work, it's largely about white men, and it's, like there's just no like black people at all in this universe, and there's barely any women to talk about because he just didn't write about that stuff, which is too bad. So I think that's why one reason why she stands out to me is one, it's just like she is an awesome woman character. It's not that she's just like the only one you get, but I think she actually is very compelling. I really like the storyline with Aragorn because I feel like I'm taking it a lot differently than you guys are. Where to me, like the first interaction, one of the first interactions she has with him is seeing the Ever Star, and she asks him about it, and then he kind of goes off into like a flashback there. So it's unclear how much he really tells her in that moment, but I still feel like at that moment she understood that he, is taken. He's in a relationship, and she still has a lot of love for him. But I don't. I think part of it is definitely a crush, but I think more of it is that one, she's just kind of grown up in this place with a lot of really shitty men, and Aragorn one is different because he has just different blood in him, but he's also just a totally different person in terms of what he stands for and like how smart and fantastic of just individual he is. So I think it's more that she, like in a lot of ways to me, it is like a big brother sort of thing where she really looks up to him and she wants to go on these battles. She wants to be like him in a lot of ways, which obviously we see like some of that where she goes into battle and in Return of the King and stuff. So I just feel like there's a lot of great dynamic there. And then two, I just feel like she adds a lot of great emotional stuff to this movie. There's maybe a lot of scenes where she's crying and stuff, and maybe that's not great. That of course the woman character is just always crying about everything, and that could be some bad representation there. But I think she just is a fantastic performance, and a lot of these scenes she just really nails it. So I'm a huge Eowyn fan. I really gotta shout her out here. So I don't know if I have any other notes on her in particular, but I'm very excited to see more of her in the extended cut and some scenes that have been cut that I'm not exactly familiar with. But I thought she's fantastic in this one.
Yeah, I have no problem with performances and stuff like that. I think with my thing with her as far as the Aragorn relationship is because with Return the King, when he turns her down, she like literally cries and stuff like that. So that's where for me, I still see it as more romantic, as we talked about. There's a conversation with Theoden, like they very much set it up like she could be marrying this man, and it goes a different route. So
I'm curious to see some of that. I feel like some of that's cut from the theatrical then.
Yeah, that could be it too. Yeah, I would say I'm a much bigger fan of her in Return the King because I like her drive. It's not about Aragorn; it's about her and her country and her people. And this, like, she does have something. She's always looking after people, and she always wants to do more. So I think this is good groundwork for that character. I do like. There's one reading of Viggo. It's just the way he delivered it when she's like, "I've been left to be in charge of the women and the children." He's like, "That's an honorable charge," and she's just like, "You're not getting it. Like, I don't want to be doing that." He's like, "That's an honorable charge." He's just like, whoosh and stuff like that. But yeah, I have no problems with her performance. I prefer much in Return the King though.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's great. Like lead up to that point too, as well, because in this one she gets turned down quite a bit when she wants to go fight. Like she keeps mentioning that to Theoden. Like, take me with you, like I can fight, and then he just keeps turning down like very firmly, and then she kind of goes around him, in the events of the third movie, but like it ends up working out because she ends up being very significant, and I don't want to speak too much because we'll get there, but just her like team up with Mary, that's lots of fun, and I feel like I've always liked Eowyn. She's definitely not like in my top 10 characters by any means, but I definitely like her usage. I really, really love her usage, especially like in Edoras when Gandalf kind of cures Theoden, and even like around that, because you can only imagine like in her perspective, like she is kind of royal blood to an extent, but like she's just such in a situation that she's so helpless. Like she can't really do anything. Her brother's been banished. Like she's just so alone. And then these awesome gentlemen come in, just like cure the king, and then when she like rushes over to him and he's just like, "I know your face," and then you can just see like the relief in her own like visage of just like, I'm finally not alone in like my own home, which is like a kind of a weird dynamic there. But yeah, no, the actress really pulls it off there. And Travis mentioned it, I really like her just kind of helping out wherever she can. Like she really is shown to like really care for just the people, so she's always like helping like here and there. I know she's always like wanting to do more, but she's still able to kind of just be a good soldier and like make her soup, her iconic soup that isn't loved by everyone. But no, I like her usage, and like Travis was saying, I like it even more in Return of the King, but not my favorite character by any means, but that's okay. There's so many amazing characters in Lord of the Rings.
It's true. A lot of good ones.
Taylor Field, no opinion.
No, I think she's fantastic. I definitely am more prone to liking her in Return of the King a little bit more, but again, this just sets up the foundation, new introductions for her as a character, just what she's kind of foreshadowing to what she'll be diving into, because obviously she has that like quick like slashing of swords with Aragorn in this film. So no, I think she's great. I think she's fantastic.
I just have a handful more things here. We've somewhat talked about this, but the section with Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, I honestly like just watching it again this time. I was like, man, Aragorn's tracking skills are like fucking broken. Like he is insanely good. The way he like reenacts this scene of like, oh, there was a hobbit that lay here. It actually went a bit overboard for me. I was like, really? You could see that like a hobbit sat here. Like I don't know, that's a bit much when this is like a huge war zone. But I like the earlier scene where he like has his head to the ground and he's like listening for the footsteps in the distance and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, once again, I think that really showed to me like how great he is at this particular job of tracking people, because it is some fucking wild shit that he's doing.
In that one moment too, when he like puts his ear to the ground, I love it because that's a call to the book where they are so far behind them that they're like we don't even really have a trail, and then he says something along the lines like he goes down to the ground and he listens and he says like even the earth is basically like wincing at just the malice of the steps of the enemy, and like
That's
just
awesome.
the way that he like words it, it's so fantastic. So I love that they actually incorporated there, and then even as the viewer, like you can kind of hear footsteps that are so far away and he's getting that same reading. So I like that they did that call to the book. And yeah, he's the greatest man tracker of all time.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I mean, we haven't really we haven't really talked about this, but I really like that battle of the Riders of Rohan and just the orcs there. It's kind of weird the way it's cut, right? Because you're kind of just getting splices of it here or there, and it's more focused on Merry and Pippin, who are actively leaving the fight. But I still really like the way that whole scene's cut. Like the tension of that is good, and yeah, I like the part when they find the heaps of bodies, and there's like the one orc head that's just on the spear. Gimli finds one of the wee belts. Like I love that whole sequence. That's always really stood out to me.
Vigo broke two of his toes in that scene too, didn't he?
Did he actually?
Oh, kicking the helmet, right?
No,
Kicking
I
the
know.
helmet,
I
yeah.
know. It's a meme. It's a meme.
Is
it's
it a
like,
meme?
I think it says like one shall not watch this movie and not mention the breaking of
That's
Vigo's
why I
toes.
laugh, because I'm like,
Yeah. Thing?
someone's gonna mention it, and I was like, oh, no one's gonna mention it, but yeah, because it's like, Kirklin's right. It's
I've
a
never
meme of
heard
like,
of this like
Oh,
mythology of this
Oh, that's
thing.
funny.
it's like, have you ever heard? And it's true, he did
Yeah.
break his toe, but it gets brought up quite a bit. You lived up to Taylor. Good, we got someone
Yeah.
good.
Adding on to just that scene, I love just how chaotic that scene is. Like not even without like the splicing, but if you're watching for the first time, like you just really don't know who the enemy in that moment is. It's like who the fuck are these horse riders? Like this is just so random.
Yeah.
And I remember watching that movie for the first time and actually just being being in shock when
Dad, I'm in shock.
when it shows Pippin like about to get squished by the horse, and then it just cuts, and I'm like, what the hell happened there? Like I remember just being totally invested at the time when I wouldn't normally think to be invested in like a story element. I think it's just I like my Hobbit. I didn't like that he was about to get squished, and the fact that it a little bit of a cliffhanger, and then you have Aragorn investigating the scene. It's like, what happened here? I really like the way that's pieced together.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously,
I also go ahead, Travis.
oh, I was just gonna say, shout out to Meat on the Menu guy. Also, it's
Yeah.
become a meme in
It's
itself.
iconic.
But I will say, the people that I like, the one that just a little bite, him, and the one that does chase Pippin and Merry
Oh
through the Woods.
yeah,
I
it's like
really
Naga.
like.
shock.
I love
Or
their
what is it?
designs.
Snaga is the I can't have some meat, and then yeah, you're right, Grishnak. Kirkland,
Yeah,
you're right
Grishnak.
there.
Because I remember
Grishnak,
hearing
is
him
he
in
on
the
the pole?
book, and like I'm listening to the audiobook, and Andy Serkis does a similar voice. I'm like, that's exactly what the orc is. I can just tell by the voice alone.
But yeah, I
That's
just like
awesome.
their design, their specific character design, especially the one that goes after Merry and Pippin in the woods. There's just something about it. So, yeah.
And that's what's so fantastic is that it's really easy to discern the different type of orcs, because there is different factions of orcs in that meeting. Like they all have kind of
Yeah.
different orders, but they all are kind of similar. Like they're told that they have to take this to their master. They heard that it has it has a weapon or something. And I love how it's just
Elvish
like
weapon,
yeah, like they all have orders, and they just keep saying these very like basic orders, like, well, my orders are this. So it just goes to show how like simple-minded like these orcs kind of are. But yeah, like you have the Orcai, which are from oh my god, I said Isildur, Isengard, thank you. And then you have some that are coming from Mordor, and they're like, no, my orders are to do this, and like those are just the regular orcs, where the Orcai are just so much broader and just meaner looking.
Beefy.
So yeah, definitely.
That was a good extended scene too. Again, you don't see it in the theatrical when the Uruk-hai meet up with those orcs.
Yeah, the
that
initial
moment.
meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good thing they didn't sing a song. You know, if there's a whip, there's a way.
And the Grishnak character, I love too when like the Orcai like shit talks him, and he just is like, like he just like mouths off to him. Oh, it's fantastic.
Another interesting thing here, I guess this is when they meet Éomer and crew. I gotta ask you guys about this. So Aragorn introduces him and Gimli as like the sons of whatever, and then Legolas says like from the woodland realm. So I was curious about that. In general, do elves get introduced as like which realm or where they came from, or is it just Legolas's elves that get introduced like that? But then if you talk with like an elf from Rivendell, they'd say son of whoever.
Yeah, like I was saying, like there is like the Noldor elves or the Sindarin elves. I feel like when they're getting introduced to at least just like men or like basic people, it's just like this is the realm that they come from. So if it's because I think even when the elves arrive in Helm's Deep, they say like a host from Rivendell or something, or like the Rivendell elves or something along those lines, where it's just where they're originating from. They probably wouldn't be like I'm this subspecies of elf or like go into that terminology. I'm surprised they didn't say.
I'm imagining now like when they first get to Helm's Deep, he's like, I got my elves with me. This guy, his dad is this guy. This guy's dad. Like it
says all the
explains, like,
names.
each
Yeah.
one.
As the battle's going on, they're at the gate. And hang on,
Yeah.
we're almost.
The orcs are like,
done.
okay,
almost
we'll
halfway
wait.
through.
Do your
Yeah.
introductions.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like I'm kind of surprised that he didn't just say like this is Legolas, son of Thranduil, of like the what, like
Because
you know,
everyone
like
hates
that.
Randall. He's a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Super
so-
racist. so,
Yeah, he's a racist. So they're like, nah, I don't want. Nah, he's not my dad. I don't want to talk about that.
There you go.
Cool.
I have a couple notes I'll mention. One, classic phone freezing.
Wow. Performance issues. Call your
Performance
doctor.
issues. I was I already mentioned of like just a theme in Lord of the Rings of just like people kind of overlooking the effectiveness of these hobbits and like what they're capable of, and I love how it's showcased too here, where you have Gandalf the White up here and he's just dropping knowledge of like where all these people are. It's like now our hope just rests on Frodo, you know, like the one, like as long as he can do it. And then Aragorn comes in, he's like, well, Sam's with him, and then he's like, really? And like Gandalf to be just blessed with foresight.
Yeah.
like he just has this foresight. Like he kind of knew the plan, but for him, for Sauron, for Saruman, all these super powerful beings, they just always like count out the hobbits of being like, yeah, of course Sam went with him. Like that totally makes sense. And like Gandalf is thinking that because he has spent so much time just interacting with hobbits because he finds them so interesting. Saruman always just thought that he was just wasting his time. He thought he was just smoking halfling leaf and just killing
You've
brain
been
cells.
blinded by your love of the hobbits.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's always stressing that, but like there's a reason why Gandalf just finds them so interesting because they never cease to amaze him, and like that's emphasized in the Hobbit story of obviously the amazing stuff that Bilbo does, but even more so in this case scenario of like Sam just being so loyal to his master and just having so much love for him that he trusted his instincts and just like went to go find Frodo. And then I love that line. As again, Ian McKellen just being absolutely fantastic there, of just like his reaction to being like, oh, did he now? And then he's like, very nice, like very nice indeed. Just fantastic. I love Gandalf. I love Ian McKellen. I love that just that whole dynamic of the hobbits just being this unlikely hero. It's great stuff.
What do your elf eyes see, Kirklin?
Oh my god, maybe I'm getting tired, but it's just hard to read this now.
They don't see anything apparently.
Oh, and Hamling, is that his name,
Hamling.
Taylor?
That's Hama's bro, yeah. Not
Yeah.
literally bro, but his buddy in arms.
Like Theoden's like
gambling
main
You gotta
guy.
be
Sorry, I think
specific. In
gambling,
Lord of the Rings,
gambling,
they don't call
yeah.
people bro.
Buddy in arms.
That means something.
Hey
in this
pal.
world.
Yeah, that's what they call their enemies. No, but when like his like main dude, like his chief lieutenant guy, he doesn't have a lot of stuff
Brother in
going on,
arms.
but just like that actor just does such a good job of portraying that character. I wanted to shout out him because even as a kid, I remember just liking that character, even though he doesn't do that much. It's just a good side character to have that doesn't really say lines.
He puts the armor on Theoden and he's just watching Theoden crack like, do you trust your king?
Yeah,
He's
Theoden
like,
can't even
"Fuck."
put his own damn armor
I
on.
want to get the fuck out of here.
He's
I
like
never
quoting
wanted to
Worm
come-
Tongue. Late is the hour.
I never wanted to come to Helm's, dude.
We should have listened to the wizard.
Yeah. He saved you the first time. Why not again?
Oh
His
yeah,
Eagles.
last thing I was gonna mention was just like the scenery of Rohan, and that's like where we are for majority of this movie. Just fantastic, like the plains of Rohan. You have the big mountains in the background. It's just New Zealand, but man, like Rohan looking fantastic. I love the scenery of this movie.
Again, I already did, but I'm going to be listening to it again tonight. Ambience Worlds. They got a Rohan truck. It's great shit, man. I can't
That's
wait
my
to listen
second
tonight.
go-to. Shire first, then Rohan second.
Shire is the best. Which you got Shire with Gandalf singing because there's
Yes.
two.
I like the one with Gandalf
Yeah.
singing.
That's the one Gwen falls asleep to. I made a joke to Emily that they should do with Sauron and the Wild Men, and in the middle he's just like, "They took your land." It's like you're trying to sleep and you got Saruman being like, "Murder!"
His war cries, yeah.
yeah. It's all quiet, but
The little like goblin noises that you would hear in like Moria. It's like
Yeah.
you get that echo.
Jesus
Like I
Christ.
said, they did do a Mordor one. I'm like, who the fuck wants to fall asleep to Mordor? Like, I guess, cool. But
Evil
like,
Smeagol.
Smeagol
Yeah.
screaming, Baggins!
Bagoons!
I hate you forever. Yeah.
Yeah. Destroy it! All the yells of just people that turn by the ring. It's my birthday. So then, I just got quick 3 notes. I just love there's one line that Pippin says to Merry when they first encounter the Ents. He's like, "Don't talk to it, don't encourage it." Always love that line. That always just makes me laugh. I love the armor of the wild men where they have like this weird like these antennas that come up and a thing like just like and the way it's plated. Like I said, I had a couple of them as kids as toys. I really liked their looks and everything, so I like that. Specifically, had to get the Legolas Two Towers toy as well because he had like the bigger shoulder pads, and I'm pretty sure the Fellowship of the Ring ones didn't come with the 2 swords because he used the 2
Hey,
swords.
I
a
had
lot.
the 2 sword ones, and they were
That's
extra
this one.
removable. You could
Yeah,
put
yeah.
them like in his hands, or you
That's
could have
the
him
Two
hold
Towers
the bow.
one.
Okay, I had
the
that
Fellowship
one,
one,
for
he was
sure.
looking really smooth. The Two Tower ones, he had the big shoulder pad. He had a cloak you can take on and off, and he had the swords. The
Yeah.
Fellowship one, he was just clean with the white and stuff like that. I just remember like I need. They were like, you already have Legolas, but like I need this one because he has the 2 swords. Like
I remember
he's much
specifically
cooler.
being at like Walmart and like telling my mom like I need this, and it was
Yes.
like I don't know what the price point was, but in my mind I'm like this is more expensive than I'd probably get, and she still like bought it for me. So shouts out my mom because I was just so jazzed, especially like Legolas was my favorite character at that time.
Nice.
I was just like probably spamming the Helm's Deep battle too, so like I was just in like the prime of Legolas love
waves.
there, and yeah, like I remember being so cool. You could put the swords like in his hands
Yep.
actually. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that's when they were a bit more adjustable and stuff. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was a good Christmas gift. And then my last point, as I love when they're talking about what they're gonna do at Helm's Deep, and they're having this super serious conversation, and they just go over to Gimli, and he's having that big gulp of water, and when he takes it, there's just water just dripping down his beard, and he just burps, and it's like
I think it's beer. I don't think it's water.
what,
I think he's
oh yeah,
drinking
whatever
some
it is,
ale,
yeah,
yeah.
beer, ale, and then
Never
he
drank
just
water a
burps.
day in his life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. And just like it's super serious, but he's there. And then also later on when he has that scene where he puts on the armor and it's just like so massive on him. He's like, "Well, look at this."
You reminded me too that there's a couple moments. I remember we were speculating in the Fellowship of how many times he takes off his helmet, and like when he goes and
Yeah.
tells Eowyn like the news of Aragorn falling, like he doesn't have his helmet on. He
Yep.
doesn't have his helmet on for a long time
Quite
when
a
they're
few
actually
times,
in.
yeah,
So I was kind of surprised at how many times he didn't have the helmet on in this movie.
Forgot to mention he was flirting with Eowyn too. He's trying to make the moves on her and stuff like that, but he just falls off the horse and embarrasses himself.
All of the
poor Poor
dialogue with-
Gimli.
All the dialogue in that sequence, like with the dwarf woman, so fantastic.
Yeah.
Some
So
think there are no dwarf women. They just
Yeah.
dwarves just sprout out of the ground. Great
Yeah,
stuff.
and then Vigo just in the back. It's the beers and everything. Like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's good shit all around. But anything else? Notes, stuff to shout out. I'm
Negator.
as I said before, solid 10 out of 10. The fantastic movie, nearly perfect. That's where I'm at.
It's fantastic. I mean, absolutely incredible all the way around.
It's 10 out of 10 for me. I love this movie. Not my favorite out of the two that we've gone to so far. So that's my
spoiler.
little hint at my rating. But
That's not a
Things
hint.
could
You just
change.
revealed all.
That's true. Yeah.
it could change. Maybe
Luckily,
I'm
we
lying
got
to
some
everyone.
other. We got
Yeah.
best scenes. We got best characters.
Travis, just edit this out. I'll give you some other things to edit out.
Oh, great! Yeah, I love editing
More
a
editing.
4-hour cast. Yeah, yeah. well-
I agree. Times 4, 10 out of 10. It's good stuff.
4 potatoes out of 4 potatoes. you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Boil, mash them,
Potatoes.
stick them in a stew. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be recording in a couple weeks for the patrons, but the audio feed, you won't notice any difference. But then next now we got Return of the King, the longest one. What is it? It's like nearly 4.5, 5 hours or something like that, whatever the runtime is. It's massive, but we'll be here breaking that all down, and that's going to be a fun one. So thank you very much to tuning into this. We promise we'll hear from us next. Not be boring.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
See ya.